Inside the room, Altair is sitting up in bed, awake and alert. She greets them calmly, while Zephyr studies her carefully, wondering if she already knows something about Ned. Some time ago, within Altair's consciousness, the Dungeon Princess appeared and shared that 3 stars had aligned, signaling that Altair's Median magic had advanced to level 3. She congratulated her and explained that this meant she now held all the basic knowledge of Median magic. From here on, she would need to continue training, awakening her powers, and gaining levels. With each new level, another star would join the alignment. The princess went on to say that no one, not even herself, had ever reached level 8, but she remained confident that she could be the first. If she managed to succeed, a gate to the stars would open. Altair agreed, though she was already feeling the effects of overusing her magic. Princess revealed she would now fall into a deep sleep. Because of the overwhelming magic flow, she wouldn't remember anything from this moment afterward. Before fading, the Dungeon Princess gave her one final reminder, to trust Lord Zephyr. He was doing all of this for her, both in this life and the one before. Meanwhile, in the present, Princess Altair slowly opens her eyes. As she reaches for her hair and tries to sit up, a priestess gently advises her to take it easy. She's been asleep for an entire week. The news stuns her. She vaguely remembers someone telling her something important, but no matter how hard she tries, the memory won't come back. Not wanting to waste any more time, she immediately asks to see Lord Zephyr. Later, Zephyr arrives, clearly relieved to see her awake. Altair greets both him and Ned, apologizing for meeting them while still in her pajamas due to her condition. Seeing her like this, Zephyr quietly wonders how much she might have learned from Princess Overmind. He considers what this could mean for their relationship, the raid on the Blue Dragon, and the role she's expected to play in it. Zephyr suspects that Altair may have learned a communion skill, an ability that lets users read memories through touch, just like princesses. He remembers how the Dungeon Princess had tapped his hand and shared her memories. If Altair had that same skill, it would make things much easier. It could help him avoid long explanations and keep her out of unnecessary danger. He steps forward and offers his hand, testing the possibility. Altair immediately understands what he's doing. She tells him that when he gave her the Mage Crystal, she originally thought he was just trying to impress her and join her raid team, but she realizes now there was more behind it. Even so, she admits she hasn't learned communion yet. It's a high-level ability. She's only level 3, far below her ancestor, who was level 7. For now, reading minds is beyond her reach. She shifts the conversation to something more urgent, the plan they discussed a week ago. If Zephyr wants her support and access to her troops, he needs a real strategy to defeat the Blue Dragon. And not in some distant future. He has 3 weeks at most. She invites him to make his case. Zephyr agrees, but first asks if she's eaten, noting the talk will be heavy on an empty stomach. Then, to everyone's shock, he summons hundreds of strategy scrolls. A few days later, the group finishes all preparations for the Blue Dragon raid. They set out, joined by knights and healers from Lindell. Zephyr carries his silver key and a fully stocked inventory. To cover their movements, Altair claimed she was simply traveling and shopping. Meanwhile, a maid dressed as the debauched princess rides in a luxurious carriage, keeping up appearances and helping maintain the illusion that Altair never left. As they travel, Zephyr figures the Demon Lord worshippers are now suspicious of each other. He had deliberately removed any traces of the Dragonheart's power from the Third Parish, stirring confusion. He believes powerful figures are still trying to figure out why Lucius has locked himself away. With any luck, this confusion will buy them a month or two, but no more. That makes it even more important for Zephyr to stay low and move quickly. The first step is the Blue Dragon raid, and securing an alliance. He decides not to tell Altair the full truth yet. She hasn't recovered her memories, and she doesn't know he's from the future. Ned also cautioned him to hold back. If Zephyr suddenly claims they were lovers in a past life, she might think he's crazy. After all, she barely knows him now. Ned pointed out that, despite everything, Altair already seems to trust Zephyr, maybe because of a skill tied to touch. Either way, he warned Zephyr not to break that fragile trust. Zephyr sees that Ned is right. He can't ignore the past, but he has to be careful how he brings it up. Still, Zephyr couldn't help but wonder why Altair trusted him so easily. Maybe it was because Lucius had introduced them, or perhaps it was tied to their past life, where she had already lost several people close to her. As the journey continues, Edwin announces they've reached the plains of Danakil, the largest farmland region on the continent. He mentions that both he and his father are originally from here. Ned shares that he visited as a child and remembers being amazed by the golden fields that stretched as far as the eye could see. The thought impresses the group until they open the carriage window. What they see instead is a landscape in ruins. Broken homes, scorched earth, and decay cover the land. They step outside. Ned quietly comments on how bad things have gotten. Philip Pilgrim explains that the damage began 3 years ago, when the Blue Dragon first appeared. Princess Altair adds that even the kingdom's best healers couldn't purify the soil. In just 3 years, 80% of the farmland has been lost. Zephyr looks around and estimates that the remaining 20% won't last another year. In his eyes, it's a miracle they've made it this far, likely due to the river's rare healing properties. but he knows time is running out. If they don't act now, they won't just lose farmland, they'll lose everything. Soon, a guard welcomes the arriving caravan. Philip mentions they've brought food and asks about the current situation inside. According to the guards, it's pretty bad. Princess Altair adds, explaining that things are still difficult. The location serves as a temporary aid station for farmers who've been displaced by the poisoned land. She mentions that they're expecting to join forces with troops sent by the Lord of Danakil, but for now, the front line remains low on supplies. She suggests they stay at the station for a while to regroup and get organized. Zephyr agrees and heads into one of the rooms, where Lord Grimes lies unconscious. A nearby priest fills him in, explaining that Grimes is a knight from the Lord's castle. While patrolling, he encountered a monster and managed to defeat it, but suffered serious injuries in the process. Examining him more closely, Zephyr notices that Grimes's skin has turned a deep purple, a clear sign that the blue dragon's poison has spread through his body. He immediately recognizes the symptoms. Whether it was from drinking tainted water or being attacked by a creature from the dragon's nest, the result is the same. The poison can't be purified. Even the best healers can only ease the pain while the victim slowly succumbs. Altair quietly comments that she knows Grimes. He's a dependable and seasoned knight, and she suspects he may be part of the reinforcements sent by Danakil. Zephyr agrees that it's likely and asks how secure the station is, noting that they'll be working with these troops soon. She assures him that the station can be secured if needed, and he nods, satisfied. Though the dragon's poison is lethal, Zephyr has a countermeasure in mind, one that involves using poison to fight poison using his needle skill. Zephyr recalls that Fade only completed these poisons near the end of his previous life. Many of the ingredients were incredibly rare. This one, for example, uses the blood of Asmodeus, the 32nd Dragon Lord. Though originally meant to melt flesh from the inside, when used carefully alongside healing magic, it can actually burn away other poisons and rapidly restore health. He explains the process to the priest that each time he inserts a needle, he should wait 3 seconds before casting a recovery spell. The priest agrees to help. Watching closely, Altair thinks about the dual nature of poison. Depending on how it's used, it can either harm or heal. She wonders if this method might work against the blue dragon's toxin, especially since nothing else has. Just then, her mana perception picks up movement, indicating that someone is approaching. Moments later, Regulus Danakil arrives. As the commander of the Scarecrow Knights and the Lord's eldest son, he brings several knights with him. He greets Philip Pilgrim warmly, who returns the greeting. Regulus says he saw Philip's letter to his father about launching the raid earlier than planned, and because they've known each other for so long, he feels it's only right to share something important. He admits he's been deceived by someone. The Blue Dragon raid, according to official plans, wasn't supposed to happen until a year later, and only after the Holy One of Light discovers the dragon's heart. Regulus explains that he had spies in the Third Parish to keep him informed. They've reported that the entire area is now locked down, and that Lord Lucius hasn't been seen in public for days. He stays in his room and communicates only through requests for more troops. To Regulus, this all seems suspicious. Philip chuckles, acknowledging Regulus's caution, and reassures him that his father has already promised reinforcements. He then asks if Regulus came on his own or was sent by someone. Before he can respond, Regulus abruptly changes the subject and immediately orders the aid station to be shut down. However, just as he's about to finish his sentence, a loud scream erupts from a nearby house. Shocked, Regulus rushes over to investigate and finds Lord Grimes inside, vomiting blood with several needles embedded in his body. Alarmed, he immediately recognizes the poison-tipped needles and draws his sword, demanding an explanation. His eyes land on Zephyr, and suspicion takes hold as he orders him to step away from Grimes. Before tensions escalate further, Ophelia bursts in and kicks Regulus, stopping him in his tracks. Blood trickles from his nose as he questions whether she's Princess Altair's bodyguard and why she's interfering. At that moment, Altair steps forward, revealing that she overheard everything using her mana perception. She acknowledges Regulus's concern, but firmly states that he has no right to interfere with her raid party or threaten its members. Removing her cloak, Altair formally identifies herself as Princess Altair Justina Cayenne of the Kingdom of Cayenne. She clarifies that the letter sent to his father was not a merchant's plea for help, but a direct royal order. Realizing his mistake, Regulus immediately bows and expresses his honor at seeing her again. Meanwhile, Grimes, now stabilized, reaches out and grabs Zephyr's hand in gratitude. He thanks him sincerely and asks how he can ever repay him. Regulus also apologizes to Zephyr, admitting he didn't realize he was trying to save one of their elite knights. Zephyr accepts the apology and silently notes that, at the very least, Regulus takes responsibility for his mistakes, a promising trait that means he won't need to be dealt with harshly. Princess Altair then brings up their time at the academy. Zephyr realizes they must have been classmates. She recalls how other students feared Regulus because of his strict and serious personality. Still, he had a talent for noticing details others missed, which helped his team consistently outperform even the top groups, hers included. She continues, noting that now, as Junior Earl and commander of the Scarecrow Knights, Regulus remains careful and thorough, and she respects that about him. Addressing herself formally as the Grand Duchess of Lindell, Altair shares a closely guarded secret, calling him her most trusted ally. She claims that Lord Zephyr received a divine oracle from the goddess Arya and was chosen to save both the Holy One and the world from an approaching disaster. Both Regulus and Zephyr are stunned by the statement. Altair continues, explaining that their raid party had become vulnerable to infiltration by demon lord worshippers, but the goddess intervened. As a result, Zephyr was granted the dragon heart and entrusted with their protection. She produces a letter, which she says is from the Holy One, Lucius, confirming Zephyr's divine mission. With this, she declares that all members must follow Zephyr as they would the goddess herself. Regulus, deeply moved, pledges to serve her and support Zephyr with all his strength. Zephyr meanwhile fights the urge to laugh. The letter is forged, and he knows it, but watching Altair deliver the lie so flawlessly makes him admire her performance. Without thinking, he taps her head, a familiar gesture from their past lives that slips out unconsciously. As they talk in their own world, a mage with glasses watches them from nearby. Just like that, the raid party members at the aid station have accepted Zephyr as their commander with little resistance, though the role comes with greater responsibility. He adds that while he used acupuncture to slow the spread of the poison in the victims, the relief is temporary. Without a proper cure, the poison will return in a few days. Luckily, the ingredients they need can be found nearby. The group finally reaches the Great Forest of Elfin, a vast untouched land in northwestern Alsan. Ned is surprised to see that the forest remains pristine, unlike the ruined farmlands they've passed. Zephyr also notes how massive the forest is, larger than several territories combined. Altair explains that the forest feels different because of its high mana concentration. Horses can't go far beyond the nearby town. The intense mana causes them to panic. Philip Pilgrim hesitates, suggesting they leave the goods outside the forest, admitting he feels uneasy. But Zephyr knows they're safer inside, recalling the threat of the smiling woman who still roams the outer lands. He wishes he could store the group in the Silver Key for their safety. He remembers the angel once telling him that the Silver Key can store people too. However, she warned him that the previous owner who tried this retrieved a companion who had gone mad, screaming like a wild animal. Altair, curious, asks why someone would lose their mind in the Silver Key. Zephyr decides not to explain. Instead, he concludes it's better to keep his companions nearby, where he can watch over them. In moments like this, he wonders whether he truly needs the Silver Key at all. Altair explains that the nearby forest town used to be home to about 50 residents from the Danakil territory. Now it serves as a frontline base, and the rest of the raid party is already stationed there. She suggests they head in that direction. Zephyr agrees, though he briefly senses something strange, like someone had been watching them from the woods. When Altair asks if something's wrong, the boy says there's something he wants to check. She remembers that the last message from the forest town came 2 days ago, sent by a carrier pigeon while they were still at the aid station. The mage, Daisy adds that the sorcerers from the magic tower had installed a device in the town that would release red smoke in case of trouble. Altair's guard confirms she's already checked for hidden enemies or shapeshifters and found nothing unusual. Regulus also seems confident that they'll be fine given their current strength, but Zephyr isn't so sure. He recalls a conversation from a past life with an elf, who once called his homeland a place filled with old, meaningless stories. Yet, whenever things got desperate, the elf would open up more. Zephyr has come to understand that despite its beauty, the Great Forest of Elfin is a dangerous place, one that lures people in only to consume them. Back in the present, Zephyr quietly conveys Ned to take the lead and guard the front of the caravan. Ned nods and walks ahead. As they move on, Altair points out a section of tangled bushes that mark the forest's entrance. She notes that a magical security device used to be placed deeper within the woods, beyond the forest town. Now strangely, it's been moved here. Suddenly a voice calls out from within the bushes, morphing into a monstrous face that warns the humans to leave. Zephyr grips his magical key, thinking that 2 days is more than enough time for the town to have been taken. With that, he draws the Graham's sword, declaring that the enemy has had more than enough time to occupy the bases. He questions what the monster did with the remote village people. Just as the monster is about to respond, Altair dismounts and tells everyone to wait. She then steps forward and, addressing the monstrous figure as the president of the forest, introduces herself, stating that she comes in peace and wishes to speak. The creature in the bushes responds, asking why she speaks of peace while arriving with an army. He reminds her that several warnings were already sent through carrier pigeons. Calling her the human princess, he accuses her brother of destroying any chance for negotiation. He recalls how her brother once proposed a truce. Each side would build a town and a sentry post on opposite banks of the river, with no contact, no interference, and no conflict. It was meant to mark an era of silence, sealed by a rare item as a token of cooperation. But now, he says, all they can offer intruders is death. As the roots begin to move, the group braces for a possible attack. Suddenly they erupt, sending the party members flying in all directions. Meanwhile, Zephyr reflects on the elves, long-lived beings with pointed ears and a deep connection to magic. For over 2,000 years, they've lived in the great forest of Elfin, drawing on its life force to create unique magic and transform the land into a living fortress. As the battle begins, the creature warns them once again to leave or face death. Regulus Danakil tries to reassure the group, but he accidentally steps on some kind of berries that explode. Meanwhile, Altair quietly disapproves, but her attention is soon drawn to a strange glow coming from the bushes towards her. It is a watchtower interior, used by gatekeeper elves to monitor the forest and control its magical plants. The elves, seeing the beam strike the princess, get excited and begin mocking her. However, to their shock, someone has shielded her. It's Zephyr, our boy, who used his dragon cape and the barrier of light to block the beam. The nearby warriors are surprised by the barrier's strength and praise the healer who helped create it. Zephyr turns to Altair and asks if she's alright. She nods, grateful for his quick action. Altair then wonders if the gatekeeper elves might just be following orders. One of the elves watching is visibly shocked that the humans survived the attack. Meanwhile, Zephyr, unfazed, believes that no magical device can truly stop him. With his team gathered behind him, Zephyr steps forward and using his dragon tongue skill commands the elves to open the gate. As he speaks, he senses the same uneasy gaze he felt earlier, likely coming from the central watchtower hidden inside a giant tree. When the gate creaks open, one of the elves asks, confused, what just happened? Without hesitation, Zephyr enters, quickly knocks out 2 guards, and grabs the young elf girl. Despite her young appearance, he can tell she's likely well over 100 years old. He jokes that sometimes, a conversation starts better after a good smack, but she demands that he let her go. He pauses for a moment, noticing something off. Her eyes look different than he remembers. Before he can ask, someone attacks, and he throws the girl aside in defense. She accuses the attacker of nearly killing her and warns them to control their strength. It's another elf who just attacked using a bow, but as the young girl gives him instructions, Zephyr notices him. It's none other than Dariel, the divine archer, one of the strongest archers across the 10 continents. Hearing the girl, Dariel calmly announces the exact distance to his target, 0.63 miles, and begins preparing his shot. After that, he suddenly launches an attack. Meanwhile, Altair's group is left stunned, unsure where the attack is coming from. The mage quickly takes control, using her Grea's Eye spell to summon a few long-range scouting golems to assist Zephyr, and another to trace the direction of the attack. To her surprise, she discovers it wasn't a spell. It was an arrow, fired from over half a mile away with incredible precision. Back at the clearing, the arrow is about to hit our boy, but he deflects it with his sword. Though it cuts his arm, he casually remarks that it was a decent shot. The little elf girl doubts he blocked it on purpose, but the wound convinces her he won't last long. She urges Dariel to use a stronger skill, promising to back him up. Dariel agrees and unleashes his Crimson Meteor attack. Now his arrows fly 3 times faster and hit much harder. Zephyr knows he can't rely on language enchantment to stop them. It takes too long to activate. Dodging them is risky too, as the shockwaves could hurt his allies. With no other choice, he decides to go all in and fight at full strength. As he transforms, Ned watches in awe. To the untrained eye, Zephyr's movements appear slow and his sword swing almost lazy, but it all happens in less than a second. The path of the blade forms the shape of a dragon and shoots into the air. Zephyr's powerful attack collides with the meteor, resulting in a massive blast. Meanwhile, Ned reflects on the Dragon King style, a martial art he once thought was simply named for its elegance and flow. But now he's beginning to think it might have a deeper connection to dragons than he ever realized. Seeing him block the attack, the little elf girl watches in disbelief. To her, he doesn't seem entirely human, more like a dragon disguised in human form. She wonders how they're supposed to fight someone like this, especially after everything they've already lost to the blue dragon. A memory flickers in her mind, sitting by her mother's bedside, crying over the family's losses. Back in the present, she lowers her head and admits defeat. She says they won't fight anymore and asks Zephyr whether he's truly human or something else. Either way, she's willing to give him anything he wants if he agrees to help them. As she pleads, the rest of the group makes their way toward them. Meanwhile, Zephyr has already decided to help her. Inside, the elf head grabs Lord Grimes's hand, surprised to see the knight still standing after being poisoned by the blue dragon. Though some traces of the poison remain, he has never seen a detoxifier that powerful. Regulus Danakil stays worried. Grimes isn't fully healed and walking around won't help, but Grimes insisted on coming. He wanted to prove the antidote worked, no matter the risk. To him, that kind of resolve is what makes a true knight. Meanwhile, the elf head introduces himself as Heron, a high elf elder, and points out the 2 high elves Zephyr fought earlier, Dariel, standing to his left, and Kiara. Zephyr recalls that high elves are considered part of the ruling class. Their unique pupils often hint at rare magical abilities from birth. He also notes that Kiara seems different from the one he knew in his past life, more mature now. Still, he knows it's hard to guess an elf's age. Maybe she's about to go through a growth phase, though with elves, it's never easy to tell. Heron remarks that the Tree of Life must have guided Zephyr to them, calling it a stroke of fortune to meet someone who might actually help. Since their truce with Prince Polaris, the elves have stayed deep within the forest, away from the outside world. Heron explains that Zephyr is only the second human they've ever welcomed. The first had risked everything to enter the forest and save the elves from a deadly poisoning. Hearing this, Zephyr recalls someone from his past, Fade, also known as the Viper. According to Heron, however, Fade was searching for his lost companions. Heron also believes that even a friend of a friend can be trusted, and with that, they might be able to help each other. Hearing that our boy's thoughts drift to the rivers that flow through the great forest of Elfin. These waters once carried the healing power of the Lake of Vitality, nourishing the forest and all who lived in it. For generations, the elves flourished, drawing their strength from the divine energy of the Tree of Life. The tree grew tall and powerful by feeding on the lake's life force. One of the lake's tributaries flowed into the Danakil Plains, turning the region into humanity's richest farmland. But things changed when the blue dragon made its nest in the lake. The once pure water turned toxic, poisoning the rivers and slowly spreading corruption across the forest. The sickness now threatens not only the elves but the nearby human lands as well. A few days earlier, at Lindell Fortress, Zephyr's group had gathered to go over their strategy. Edwin explained their plan to raid the Blue Dragon's nest, which would involve both their team and the troops based in Danakil. He emphasized the need to gain the elves' support, but admitted he wasn't sure they would agree. Princess Altair challenged his doubt, asking why he lacked confidence in her. Edwin responded calmly, explaining that it wasn't her skills he doubted. He was simply unsure how the elves would respond to the crisis. While it was clear the elves were in a tough position and might be open to cooperation, Edwin knew the real obstacle wasn't them. The bigger problem, he said, would be getting the people of Danakil to agree. He explains that for those living far from the elven borders, elves are seen as something out of legends, mythical beings from fairy tales. But people who live near the edge of elven territory have a very different view. To them, the elves have always been a threat, often compared to wild beasts like wolves or boars. Over time, that tension grew until it finally broke out into open hostility. He continues, saying that 4 years ago, just 1 year before the Blue Dragon appeared, 2 powerful high elves known as the Scarlet Moon and the Black Moon crossed into Danakil territory. Their actions only made relations worse, deepening the divide between elves and humans. The elf argued that any land touched by water from the Lake of Vitality should rightfully belong to the elves. However, since the lake's water flows through the Danakil fields, they believe that gives them ownership. He remembers a time when the elves nearly claimed the land by force. But then Prince Polaris arrived with the Temple Knights and led a counterattack. As a cardinal, Polaris spearheaded the battle, forcing the elves to retreat after the Golden Dragon appeared. The humans won and secured a truce. A year later, the farmland was poisoned. It was then, the Lord of Danakil and his son, Regulus Danakil, realized that working with the elves was the only way to resolve the situation. They also took steps to stop the false rumors blaming the elves for the poison. Many believed the elves were acting out of revenge, so the Danakil leadership found themselves managing not just the mission, but also the growing mistrust among their own allies. Edwin admitted that launching the raid at that moment might be too soon, but Princess Altair laughed at his hesitation. She told him he was missing the bigger picture. In her eyes, the timing was exactly what made the plan likely to succeed. What seemed like a bad situation was actually a rare opportunity. She reminded him to look beyond the immediate obstacles and focus on their long-term goal. Back in the present, while treating a poisoned elf, Zephyr recalls a small favor he once did for one of Fade's former guildmates. In return, the guildmate took him in as a disciple, teaching him poison making and acupuncture. Zephyr decides to stick to that version of the story. When he shares it, Elder Heron, Kiara, and Dariel seem to trust him, at least a little. Kiara watches in shock as the antidote takes effect and quietly remarks that Zephyr might even be more skilled than Fade. The boy explains that the poison he used is far rarer. There's a recipe floating around, but no one has ever managed to make it before. He's the first. He even suspects that the actual formula doesn't exist yet, and won't until Fade invents it in the future. Curious, Zephyr wonders about Kiara's connection to Fade. She speaks about him like she knows him well. Soon enough, she says that Fade would want to meet the entire group and asks where Zephyr's master is. The boy replies that he can't say. He claims that both his master and Fade once belonged to a now-destroyed assassin guild named Persephone, which collapsed due to betrayal. Until he knows for sure whether Fade is still trustworthy, he says he won't reveal anything more. Kiara understands and responds that she also can't share everything for the same reason. Then Dariel speaks up, revealing that Fade had already visited a year ago. After hearing rumors about the poisoned lands, he reached out to an old guildmate and came to investigate. Hearing that, Kiara tried to shut him up, which annoyed him, and he casually lifted her up while calling her out. Watching the argument unfold, Elder Heron thinks about how bad things have gotten. For the past year, the poisoned elves have survived only because of the small doses of deadly poison that Fade left behind. That supply is nearly gone. He remembers the painful choices they've had to make, deciding who would receive treatment and who would be left to die. In his eyes, Zephyr's arrival is nothing short of a miracle. Without him, the elves might have been torn apart by civil war. Now Heron sees a spark of hope. Not only can Zephyr neutralize the dragon's poison, but his strength might even match or exceed Dariel's. If they can earn his full support, Heron believes there's a chance they could recover the Queen's last sealed box, still hidden deep within the poisoned lands. 3 years ago, a powerful elf woman got her hand on the last of the sealed boxes hidden within the 12 towers. She claims that with this, they finally have enough strength to form a new kingdom. Elder Heron questioned her decision. He asked if she truly meant to leave behind both the kingdom and the Queen. He reminded her that she's only alive today because the Queen once risked everything to hold off the blue dragon. But the elf scoffed at the idea. She asked if he's looked around lately, if the state of the forest looked anything like a victory to him. She criticized the Queen harshly, saying she was never strong enough to lead. Even before the poisoning began, the Queen was weak and sickly. She failed to prevent the Scarlet Moon and Black Moon from taking control of the army. A real queen, she said, would have used mind control from the start to deal with such traitors. She declared she's done relying on a foolish ruler and will now lead anyone willing to follow her. Thinking back, she admits that the Scarlet and Black Moons taught her something important. Even though they were exiled for losing the war and destroying towers, they escaped with sealed boxes in hand. Their betrayal opened her eyes. She now sees where she went wrong. As she left, she told Heron to enjoy what's left of a kingdom with no future. Still, she added that if he ever changes his mind, he'll always have a place in the new realm she plans to build. Then laughing, she walked away. Left behind, Elder Heron quietly reflected that he didn't stay out of loyalty to the Queen. He stayed because he never had the strength to claim power for himself, not without one of the sealed boxes. Looking back now, he thinks he chose the wrong side. He admits he once considered training Dariel to be his ally, as the young elf has real talent. But Dariel is too loyal. He could never betray his mother, the Queen. If he ever found out about Heron's real intentions, to leave once he had a sealed box, he'd probably have him imprisoned without hesitation. Because of that, Heron sees the current situation as a rare opportunity. As the head walks Zephyr and Altair through the main building, he reveals that he truly believes the dragon must be slain, not just for the elves, but for the humans as well. While he fully supports that goal, he also notes that most of the other high elves have already abandoned their duties. Only a handful of capable fighters remain, and even they are barely holding on. He explains that he already sent scouts across the river a few days ago to search for possible resettlement sites. Those scouts ended up capturing some prisoners in a nearby forest town, but he assures them they were treated fairly and will be released soon. For now, he goes along with the Alliance while keeping his true goals hidden. Inside, he wonders about the tower where the last sealed box is kept. The area around it is far too dangerous to approach because of how badly it's been contaminated. However, with Zephyr's rare ability to neutralize the poison, Heron believes he can persuade him to retrieve the box. Once he has it, Heron is confident he'll finally have what he needs to claim the throne and become king. Elsewhere, Edwin reports that the Elf Elder has agreed to cooperate. With their poisoned kin now saved, the rest of the elves are beginning to support the Alliance as well. They watch as the people of Danakil eagerly follow Princess Alair's preaching and devotion to the Goddess of Light. This confuses Philip, who wonders why the people revere the goddess so deeply. His son explains that she has protected them since ancient times. Although Philip remains doubtful, he brushes off his concerns, thinking everything turned out fine after all. Still, with a knowing smirk, he quietly advises Edwin to stay alert, sensing that trouble is near. Not far away, Milia, a mage from the Magic Tower, grows increasingly frustrated. She's already irritated about being sent to such a remote, unsanitary place, especially one where no one is even allowed to bathe. On top of that, she has no patience for Altair. With a dark look in her eyes, she wonders if she could kill her now, asking Daisy if she's discovered any of Altair's weaknesses yet. Meanwhile, in the southern metropolis, the fake Altair signs a petition to proceed with the Thorn Mountain Clearing Project in partnership with the Architectural Guild. The crowd celebrates, and she pretends to be excited about turning the mountains into farmland. After wrapping up the announcement, she asks for leave to continue her work. While the real one carries out their missions, the fake Altair stays focused on pushing the mountain clearing plan forward. However, hidden among them are Demon Lord worshippers in disguise, ready to sabotage the project. But it doesn't matter. This plan was only a cover for the real objective. Zephyr knows that if anyone investigates closely, they'll eventually discover Altair is an imposter. Fortunately, the Demon Lord worshippers seem distracted by their own internal problems, especially with one of the 12 apostles' positions left vacant. It's the perfect opening to move forward. Back in the forest, Kiara leads the group to a magical plant called Flora, designed to produce food and water based on coded input. But the plant is now malfunctioning due to poison contamination. Instead of helping, it's turned into a monster-producing factory surrounded by toxic mist. This makes the elves fear for their village. The poison has already pushed them back from the forest center, and if it spreads further, their home may be lost. Dariel remembers that while Zephyr helped them stabilize the poison, his mother was hit by the worst of it, and she's been in that condition for 3 years, so they must hold the defenses. Following Zephyr's suggestion, the group prepares to fight the monsters while collecting magic stones from them as loot. Determined and ready, they brace themselves for battle. As the monsters charge, the mages, Altair's guard, and Ned fight back fiercely, knocking them down and keeping the horde at bay. After they manage to stop the attack, Dariel invites Zephyr to a meeting to thank him for helping defend the village and stabilize the poison. He admits it was surprising to receive help from humans. However, despite his gratitude, Dariel calmly explains that the 2 ingredients Zephyr requested are essential for protecting the village from further contamination, so he cannot hand them over. This response deeply frustrates Zephyr. He begins lecturing the elf, insisting that he needs those ingredients to craft a cure for his mother. According to his plan, once he heals her, he will restore both the lake and the tree of life, at which point those very ingredients will begin growing naturally again. To make his point, Zephyr gives him the middle finger salute and firmly assures the elf that he will also slay the dragon, just as he promised. What more does the elf want? A Hawk Tuah tribute or something? Still, Dariel remains hesitant. He doubts Zephyr can truly slay the dragon and insists that without the ingredients, the village would be contaminated within seconds. He sees himself as the last capable warrior among the High Elves, and believes it's his duty to protect their home at all costs. Hearing Dariel's refusal, Zephyr warns him that there won't be another chance. No one else is coming to save them. Not from the Blue Dragon, and not from the Queen's illness. All the humans have lost their minds, so asking them for help is pointless. Zephyr even is sacrificing his own blood to make an antidote for the poison, yet they still don't trust him. Stepping closer, Zephyr urges Dariel to open his eyes. This isn't something they can hesitate on. It requires full commitment. Agitated, Dariel challenges him to settle it through combat. As Dariel strikes, a sudden burst of light flashes into the sky. Altair watches in shock, surprised they would use their full skills in such a confined space. But to her surprise, the two vanish into the dust. Inside the dust cloud, Dariel tried to prove his point by aiming his strongest shot at Zephyr. But even that attack can't pierce Zephyr's dragon-like scales. Though Dariel also wants to defeat the dragon, deep down he knows the task might be impossible. Seeing him tear up, Zephyr tells him to get up. Then, to everyone's surprise, he snaps his bow in half, calling it useless. But before the moment grows too bitter, he assures Dariel that he'll craft something better for him, and warns him to hold back his tears, because once he sees the new items, he won't be able to stop them. Despite his assurance, Kiara begins tearing up, insisting they cannot give away the bow or discard it, as they are already short on firepower. She cries out that it's a hero-grade weapon, a revelation that stuns Philip and his group. Curious, Elise examines the bow and confirms that it truly is a hero-grade item, ranked second among all item grades. According to her, since the bow belongs to Dariel, it could easily sell for 50,000 gold at an auction, which leaves Philip visibly shaken. However, Dariel calmly responds, stating that 50,000 gold would be a bargain. He doesn't care about the price, knowing it was his own hesitation that led to this. Although the bow was once used to defend his town from contamination, he now looks forward to what Zephyr might create in its place, especially after mentioning he possesses some exceptionally rare crafting materials. A part of Dariel wonders if the high-quality material Zephyr referred to might be the branch from the Tree of Life, though he quickly dismisses the thought, assuming the branch is too small to craft a proper bow. Later, inside the main hall, Dariel fulfills Zephyr's request by offering him a glass of the Water of Vitality, along with a young branch from the Tree of Life. As Zephyr observes the shimmering liquid, he realizes how numb he has become since his brush with death. Nothing seems to stir him anymore. Yet, this water before him radiates a beauty that momentarily awakens something inside. Just as Zephyr prepares to drink, Dariel reminds him that it's the last remaining cup. Still, he remains hopeful that if their raid succeeds, they will take control of the Lake of Vitality and gain access to a plentiful source. Zephyr confidently assures them and quickly gulps down the Water of Vitality in one go. Suddenly, a burst of glowing energy erupts within his body. To his excitement, it begins to merge with his effectiveness-boosting perk, amplifying the potion's effects even further. In this empowered state, he immediately initiates dragonification and activates mana flow. He knows he must grow stronger, as the conditions for the upcoming dragon raid are far harsher than those of the princess raid they recently completed. The area surrounding the dragon is enveloped in a massive, poisonous field, and at its center lies the beast itself, the dragon, king of beasts. Zephyr understands that no ordinary human can face such a foe. To stand a chance, he must enhance his dragon heart, and the vitality-infused water is the key to that transformation. Watching this unfold, Altair recognizes the risk. She knows that although the dragon heart must be strengthened slowly and with care, they no longer have the luxury of time. Acting decisively, she casts Moirai, a powerful spell named after the 3 goddesses of fate, to stabilize and adapt Zephyr's mana while he meditates. With great precision, Altair begins merging the elements. His mana, the Water of Vitality, and the energy flowing from the dragon heart. She channels all of it into the core of his being. As the merging begins, Zephyr's body convulses with a sudden power surge, his very frame starting to fracture under the pressure. Seeing the signs of physical breakdown, Elise immediately casts her healing spell to stabilize him. At the same time, Zephyr pushes past the standard 5% threshold of the Dragon Heart's power. Slowly, the power rises, but Altair continues adjusting the mana with intense focus. To her shock, however, the energy within the Dragon Heart begins resisting the fusion. The merging process falters. As a result, Zephyr's Dragon Heart power starts to drop, threatening to undo everything they've built. Meanwhile, Ned sits beside Zephyr, guiding the wild surge of power flowing through his body. Despite the mounting pressure, everyone remains focused on their roles. Suddenly, the entire chamber erupts in a blinding flash of light. As the dust settles, Dariel stares in disbelief as Zephyr has transformed into a half-human, half-dragon hybrid. The group breathes a collective sigh of relief, their expressions softening into smiles. They've succeeded. Now in his transformed state, Zephyr's Dragon Heart surges to 10% power, with a temporary spike reaching up to 19%. Though still far from the strength he wielded in his past life, he feels himself closing the gap. With his companions having done their part, Zephyr decides it's now his turn to contribute. He casually asks Dariel for a towel, but to everyone's shock, he bites into it hard, claiming it's time to repay the favor by securing material for his weapon. Without hesitation, he raises his claw and cracks his own dragon scales from his arm. Dariel watches, stunned, as the boy tears the scale from his body with no sign of hesitation. Zephyr explains that Dariel can use the dragon scale to forge dragon skin, a material strong enough to create a bow and arrows capable of piercing even a dragon's hide. He knows he's still operating at only 19% of his true power, but the scale itself holds immense strength. With the right craftsmanship, it could become a weapon powerful enough to deal serious damage to the Dragon King. Afterward, the elven blacksmith places the mana stones into a boiling pot, explaining that they'll need to mix additional high-quality ingredients with the core materials to forge a top-tier weapon. He then begins boiling the secondary components, including one of their finest mana alloys, clear gold. After a period of careful boiling and preparation, all the components of power are finally ready. Now comes the most critical stage, the fusion. For this, Altair activates her Magic Circle skill, which amplifies all spell effects within its radius. This enhancement empowers Zephyr's dragonification, allowing him to channel his energy more efficiently. Using both his raw power and his language enhancement ability, Zephyr directs the ingredients to flow together and bind in perfect harmony. As the fusion completes, a powerful blast erupts from the center of the ritual. When the light fades, a newly forged weapon emerges, a black dragon longbow, accompanied by a set of dragonbone arrows. Time passes and now only 2 weeks remain until the raid. Both humans and elves are busy preparing, fortifying their forces and gathering resources. Zephyr, acting as their leader, reveals the structure of their combat units. The army is divided into 2 specialized teams, and Ned has been appointed as the supervisor of their training. Though he understands the weight of the responsibility, Ned accepts the challenge with unwavering determination. Zephyr also informs the army of the harsh path ahead. To reach the dragon, they'll need to fight through countless hordes of monsters. Their objective is clear: cover the distance and reach a point 1 mile east of the Lake of Vitality in under 10 days. Following Zephyr's guidance, the troops begin gathering supplies and refining their strategies. Among their efforts, they collect mana stones, which they use to construct powerful golems, living defenses for the treacherous march to come. The mages are responsible for golem production. The mana stones are being used for a variety of purposes, constructing buildings, crafting weapons, and especially powering magic circles. These circles act as traps that protect the base and serve as temporary safe zones. According to Altair, if a circle is created using a branch from the Tree of Life, it can shield the area from the poisonous fields. She assures the group that she has already installed several of these protective circles along the cleared paths. Meanwhile, the blacksmith also depends on mana stones to meet the demanding requirements of crafting Zephyr's new, rare weapons. As for Zephyr, he continues training his body relentlessly. Despite upgrading his dragonification, he can currently only maintain the form for 10 minutes, far from enough. The power continues to spread through his body even when he's not actively using it. Still, with each use, it grows stronger. He understands that unless he pushes his limits now, he won't stand a chance against the monster. His goal is to increase his threshold, sustaining 19% power for at least 28 minutes before the raid begins. Without reaching that benchmark, he knows there's no hope of victory. Zephyr also recognizes that he needs more strength, not just to fight, but to craft additional weapons essential for the raid's success. So he continues pushing forward, preparing both body and mind until he reaches his limit. Just like that, the final night before the raid arrives, everything is in place. The scouting, the supplies, the defenses, and the troops. Zephyr gives a final order for everyone to rest well and prepare their bodies for what lies ahead. As the exhausted troops retreat to their quarters, Zephyr and his closest companions gather inside their tent, savoring warm, hearty steaks in silence. Ned watches in disbelief as Zephyr devours his food like a pig. Once finished, Zephyr quietly rises and takes his leave from the tent. Seeing him go, Altair quickly follows, offering the excuse that she's tired and needs to rest. Ophelia moves to follow Altair, but Ned grabs her arm, reminding her they still have sparring to do. She protests in anger, insisting she never agreed to that, but Ned pushes her toward the training ground regardless, unwilling to let her off the hook. Meanwhile, Altair walks toward Zephyr's tent, her thoughts drifting to everything that has changed since he entered their lives. From the moment he appeared, things that once seemed impossible began unfolding right before them. She remembers how everyone mocked her when she announced the dragon raid. Letters sent to nobles and foreign rulers were all returned, rejected. Even the other parishes refused aid. Her own brother turned against her, warning that any rash move would get her framed for conspiracy. Not even the adventurers were willing to help. In the end, the only people she could count on were her small team. And then, out of nowhere, Zephyr arrived, and somehow, like magic, her impossible problems started to vanish. Some might call it fate or luck, but Altair never believed in either. Lost in thought, she reaches Zephyr's tent. Without hesitation, she steps inside and kisses him. Zephyr freezes, surprised, and quickly realizes she just used the kiss of darkness, a spell that forces the target to speak the truth. He starts to ask what's going on, but she gently silences him, insisting that now isn't the time for questions. Calmly, she reminds him that the Blue Dragon raid, the one she had worked toward for so long, is finally becoming reality because of his efforts. She admits she hadn't trusted him at first and had quietly kept an eye on him. But over time, as he followed through on every word he spoke, she found it harder to keep doubting him. Still, one thing bothers her. No one willingly removes their own dragon scales day after day without a deeper reason. Leaning in a little closer, she calmly presses him, asking if he's hiding something. If he has another motive, something he hasn't shared, now is the time to say it. The princess's eyes take on a steady glow as she leans forward and plainly asks who sent him. As the kiss of darkness activates, Zephyr reveals that he came here of his own will, and that everything he's done has been for her. The answer stuns Altair, and the spell confirms it. He's telling the truth. She presses for more details. In response, Zephyr gently pulls her closer and quietly explains that she had died once for his sake, and that he traveled back in time to change the outcome. Altair freezes, caught between disbelief and rising panic. She summons her dark hand, grabbing his arm and demanding the truth. But Zephyr remains calm. He knows she already understands. It's the truth, and the spell has confirmed it. As a user of median magic, she would instantly know whether or not her spell succeeded. And in this case, it has. Gripping her hand firmly, Zephyr thinks to himself that he had been waiting for this moment. He knew she would eventually use the spell, and it was the only way to make her believe him, at least until she learns communion. Leaning closer, he reassures her. She can ask anything, and he urges her to do so. But now, knowing the truth, Altair starts to feel unsettled. The tension lingers for a moment, until Zephyr gently pulls her closer and kisses her. Meanwhile, outside, Melia grows increasingly frustrated with her golem duties. She yaps to Daisy, feeling like Altair is simply toying with them and bossing her around. Daisy, however, calmly reminds her that although they were hired by Lord Danakil, their actual employer is Princess Altair. Hearing that, Melia becomes even more annoyed, loudly expressing her dislike for Altair. She admits she's never liked her, not since their academy days. Back then, Melia stayed up late every night studying, working hard, while Altair always seemed relaxed and carefree. In Melia's eyes, Altair acted superior, relying on her wealth and connections to gain respect, even from professors. As Melia continues yapping, Daisy listens quietly, recognizing that despite her frustrations, Altair has actually been doing a decent job so far. Deep down, she suspects Melia's anger might stem more from an inferiority complex than from anything Altair has actually done. Still, Daisy knows she needs to calm Melia down before she says or does something reckless. To help with that, she reveals that if Melia performs well during this mission, she's set to be promoted to exclusive sorceress, a role that clearly surprises her. Daisy adds that both dukes had requested a sorceress for their courts, but have yet to find a suitable candidate. From what she's seen, Melia fits the position perfectly. If she proves herself during the dragon raid, her future will be secure. That's all the motivation Melia needs. Her view shifts, and with new determination, she returns to her work. Unnoticed by either of them, Heron waits silently in the shadows nearby. Once they're gone, he approaches the golems and begins scribbling his own set of commands onto their control plates. Golems follow the instructions written directly on them, and Heron takes advantage of this, rewriting the runes so they will obey him alone. The next morning, war drums echo across the camp as everyone moves into position. They all understand what's at stake. Some will fall, their bodies turning to dust, while for others, today may mark a turning point. Once the formation is ready, Princess Altair gives the signal to bring forth Zephyr's powerboat. The group begin their chants, praying and channeling their respective abilities. As Altair assists them, her mind drifts back to what Zephyr told her the day before, the bloodshed that was coming, and worse, the weight of witnessing it firsthand. He had spoken with quiet determination, promising that this time he would do better. He vowed that once it was over, he would finally claim what he wanted. Thinking back to that moment, Altair calls upon her star power, channeling her magic to grant Zephyr strength. She remembers him being confident that after everything ends, he intends to give her the throne, and he hopes to stand beside her not just as an ally, but as her king. Suddenly, a bright flash lights up the field. Zephyr appears out of it, fully transformed into his dragonification form. With that, the Blue Dragon raid begins. Their party consists of 225 members, with healers and long-range attackers like Melia and Dariel positioned in the backline, alongside support units including Altair and other mages. Guarding the rear squad are Ned and Ophelia, bringing the rear guard's count to 224 out of 225. At the front stands the vanguard, Zephyr, ready to lead the charge. As the raid begins, he instantly leaps into the air and surges forward. He knows the formation is unusual, almost reckless, but it's their best shot at completing the raid successfully. The closer he gets to the lake, the thicker the dragon poison fog becomes. That's the reason he positioned everyone else in the rear, away from the contaminated zone. Zephyr, on the other hand, is prepared. He has the Gold Tears potion, his effectiveness boost spell, and his dragonification, all giving him enough resistance to survive and fight within the poison zone. He's effectively the only one capable of operating properly inside the lake's radius. As massive monsters appear in his path, Zephyr activates his electric acceleration spell and charges straight into them. Using his massive sword, Graham, along with his dragon claws, he unleashes a powerful slash that cuts through most of them in a single strike. Pushing through the wave of enemies, he realizes he's approaching the lake and shouldn't waste time dealing with low-tier monsters. Without slowing down, he summons golems stored in his inventory and places tombstones that disperse mana wavelengths within a small radius, designed to draw enemies and keep them from interfering with his advance. Zephyr places one tombstone every 100 meters to cover the entire area, creating a mana road. This pathway allows magic from the main camp to travel through it all the way to the front lines, though the effect will be halved by the time it reaches the end. The team also uses strengthening magic on the golems, allowing them to control the constructs remotely through the tombstones. Despite the intensity of the raid, Daisy seems unusually excited, mainly because Altair finally approved her thesis. The proposal had been deemed costly by the Magic Tower, but Altair's green light gives Daisy a rare boost of confidence. Kiara too stays engaged. She deploys a Cyclops to accompany Zephyr for scouting, which makes her optimistic. With its help, they can easily circulate real-time attack coordinates. However, the moment they lay eyes on the polluted Tree of Life, the contaminated lake, and the dragon, their optimism fades. The scene feels different from 3 years ago. Back then, the dragon had growled instantly at the first hint of a presence. Now it stays silent, unmoving, and that silence unsettles them more than any roar could. They recall Zephyr previously questioning the strangeness of a territorial dragon remaining idle in one place, especially in a forest teeming with intruders. That thought returns to Kiara now. As she reflects, she realizes something they all overlooked. What if the dragon came to the lake for a reason? Meanwhile, Zephyr reaches close to the dragon and feels a sense of relief. As expected, the creature remains quiet, which works in his favor as he's already used up 2 minutes of dragonification just flying there. With the remaining time, he gets to work. He summons black dragon chains and wraps them around a large branch near the Tree of Life to anchor himself, then charges directly toward the sleeping dragon. He's already informed the others and is certain of one thing. The dragon isn't actually a poison type. The last recorded appearance of a blue dragon was 600 years ago. Despite lying in a lake known for its healing properties, this one is poisoning everything around it. That contradiction never sat right with Zephyr. As he charges in, he deliberately disrupts the dragon's rest. The dragon stirs, and in an instant, it lunges forward and swallows him whole. The knights watching from afar are stunned, but their shock deepens when they see Zephyr force open the dragon's massive jaws with both hands from the inside. Zephyr knows the truth that the dragon isn't the source of the poison, it's the victim. It's being slowly poisoned by demonic energy, and is using the lake to try and heal itself. The beast is dying, not attacking. As he pushes the jaws open, Zephyr clenches the black dragon chain between his teeth and anchors it tightly around the dragon's mouth. He understands the creature is trying to stay submerged in the lake to recover, but the poison is wearing it down faster than it can heal. That's why he's chosen to take it down now, while it's weakened. Pulling with everything he has, Zephyr binds the dragon's mouth shut. The black dragon chain, forged from his own scales, proves effective. The moment the dragon senses the restraint, it lets out a thunderous cry, shaking the ground as it struggles against the binding. Zephyr pulls the dragon out of the lake, aiming to accelerate the spread of poison within its body. Without the lake's healing properties, the dragon won't be able to recover from its injuries. However, to his surprise, even with 19% output from his dragon heart, the creature resists. Its strength is greater than he expected. Not one to back down, Zephyr adjusts quickly. He draws Graham and slashes the inside of the dragon's jaws, where the tissue is softer than the outer scales. Suddenly, a momentary lapse in focus costs him. The dragon charges forward, jaws wide open, and manages to pin him against the tree of life with its mouth. Before Zephyr can react, the dragon releases a burst of its dragon breath directly at him. From the rear lines, the others watch in alarm. The same devastating beam had once burned part of their forest, and now it's aimed at their leader. Altair immediately senses the urgency and calls for everyone to prepare their skills. Still, deep inside, she believes Zephyr is unharmed. She, and even the dragon, notice something strange. Despite trapping Zephyr between its teeth, the dragon doesn't actually feel anything solid between them. There's only the faintest tingle just before it breathes. That's because Zephyr has already activated his silver key. The key allows him to teleport between the same entry and exit point. Once inside the dragon's mouth, he deliberately uses it to vanish before the breath hits, and reappear right after it ends. With perfect timing, Zephyr re-emerges inside the dragon's open jaws. Without hesitation, he strikes. His thunder palm lands cleanly, sending a surge of powerful force through the creature's body. Electricity crackles across its scales as the attack hits from within. Despite the pain, the dragon charges up another dragon breath attack. This time, however, Zephyr reacts swiftly. He strikes directly at its breath glands, burning them and successfully disrupting the buildup. The attack fizzles out before it can be released. Zephyr notes that the dragon won't be able to use those glands again for at least 10 minutes, making this their best window to strike. The mages take the cue, channeling a variety of spells through the mana road created by the tombstones. Bursts of elemental energy bombard the dragon, holding it down. At the same time, Dariel prepares his dragon arrows, coating them with venom before firing. His shots hit their mark with precision, piercing the dragon's thick hide and forcing a painful roar from the beast. Seeing the impact, the party erupts in cheers. Many begin praising Dariel for his accuracy and power. Dariel, however, is lost in thought. He recalls how Zephyr once told him that he was still weak, because he lacked real combat experience. Kiara hears it and finds the comment odd. Zephyr looks younger than Dariel, yet speaks with the confidence of someone who's seen countless battles. Dariel, meanwhile, grows more curious about what the boy really meant. He suspects the meaning may not lie in this raid alone, but perhaps in something tied to his future path. Back in the moment, the arrows explode on impact, further damaging the dragon. Dariel doesn't celebrate. He simply watches, aware that this battle is just a stepping stone. The blue dragon isn't their final challenge. Kiara, observing Dariel's composure and focus, realizes that he's finally beginning to find his footing, just like he had once done in the past. As a child, Dariel never dreamed of being king. His ambitions were different, but now his resolve is returning. Zephyr, seeing Dariel's arrows actually hurting the dragon, feels a sense of relief. But even now, he isn't sure how they're going to finish it off. Zephyr tries to tear into the dragon's body, aiming to enter through the wound, but his hand suddenly stops just as it's about to slip inside. It feels like something invisible is gripping him, holding him back. At the same time, from the rear, Altair sees something that shakes her to the core. Without hesitation, she calls out to the party, ordering them to stop their attacks and switch to a defensive stance. The mana road is shifting. Its direction is changing. She quickly recalls Zephyr's briefing. If they ever spot anything unusual in the Watchers or sense a surge of power, they must immediately reroute the mana flow. Zephyr had explained that the tombstones, while useful for extending spell range, also act as open channels. If a powerful enemy can manipulate mana, those same paths could send attacks right back at them. To prevent that, they need to disable the back end of the tombs. Doing so will block the incoming attacks, but it will also weaken their own offensive power. Following Altair's orders, the team begins reconfiguring the mana road. Just as they shift it, a massive shockwave tears through the field. A tremendous energy blast strikes them, confirming their fears. Zephyr had warned them of this exact moment. When he would be flung backward and the lake's surface began to ripple, it would mean one thing. The dragon had activated its unique attribute, telekinesis. This ability allows it to move objects without making physical contact. Only dragons with infinite mana reserves can wield it, an ability that, in simple terms, means destruction and pain. On the battlefield, Zephyr regains his stance but knows he's running out of time. He has only 20 minutes left of dragonification, and the real fight is just beginning. Earlier, during Zephyr's briefing, he explained to the party that the poison in the air wasn't affecting humans or elves as severely, likely due to the water of life mixed within it. That water actively repairs the damage caused by the poison, which is why no one is dying outright. However, he warned that losing consciousness would still result in extreme pain. Zephyr also pointed out that the same effect applies to the dragon. Because of the constant internal pain, the beast remains partially dazed and might not be able to activate its unique abilities right away. Kiara, recalling past raids, finds this unusual. In those battles, the monster's attacks had grown more repetitive over time, something that always felt off. Zephyr explained that this was their window of opportunity. The moment they deal enough damage to break the creature out of its daze, it will regain clarity. and that's when it will activate its real powers. That's when the true battle will begin. Now back on the field, Zephyr stands in front of the massive, wheezing dragon shrouded in purple energy. He draws Graham, his sword. The dragon's eyes fixate on it and widen in recognition. It remembers the blade. It remembers Georgios. And now it realizes that it's him again. Meanwhile, chaos briefly erupts in the rear squad, but they quickly regain formation. Altair and the mages manage to redirect the mana roads, successfully cutting off the feedback loop of the dragon's counterattacks. The rear squad is safe, at least for now. However, even with that defensive advantage, they all begin to understand a harsh truth. Despite their efforts, despite the strategy, they are still painfully small in the face of the dragon's overwhelming power. Altair grows increasingly concerned. Their long-range attacks will be far less effective under the current conditions, and she knows that supporting Dariel is now critical. He's the only one who can make full use of the mana road to land direct hits on the dragon. Meanwhile, Dariel himself is feeling the pressure. The distance is so great that each of his arrows takes nearly 4 seconds to reach the target. That means Zephyr will need to hold the dragon in place for at least 4.5 seconds, an eternity in battle. At the same time, the dragon gate appears to be closing again, and everyone holds their breath, waiting for Zephyr to force it open once more. Inside the battlefield, Zephyr continues dodging the dragon's swirling beam attacks. Each strike carries enough destructive force to disintegrate whatever it touches. He quickly realizes that tanking them head-on is not an option. As he analyzes the pattern, the dragon suddenly unleashes a devastating surprise attack. It catches him slightly off guard, but he manages to block it just in time. Without hesitation, the dragon lunges forward with jaws wide, trying to devour him. Zephyr instantly activates electric acceleration, darting out of reach. He draws Graham mid-movement and delivers a powerful slash across the dragon's jaw, forcing it open. Wounded, the dragon lets out a roar and dives into the lake. The entire battlefield watches in disbelief, realizing that the dragon is trying to heal. But Kiara quickly realizes the bigger problem. The dragon's dive is stirring the waters, and violent waves ripple across the lake. The nearby plants, which produce magical byproducts, might absorb this chaos as energy, and if they do, they'll start spawning powerful minions. As the summoned monsters emerge, they immediately begin targeting the golems. In response, all rear support mages shift their focus to reinforcing the golems and eliminating the incoming threats. Altair quickly orders the monsters to be cleared, knowing they could interfere with Zephyr's fight. However, to Daisy's shock, despite everything going according to plan, and the golems being exceptionally powerful, several of them suddenly start fleeing the battlefield. Their movements become erratic, and they fall out of command. Meanwhile, Heron, silently watching, knows that his sabotage has begun to take effect. Back on the front line, Dariel spots a monstrous projectile rapidly approaching. He reacts just in time, deflecting it mid-air with a perfectly timed arrow. The force of the deflection draws everyone's attention. Altair watches the impact site and realizes that if Dariel hadn't intervened, the entire rear squad would have been wiped out. Kiara examines the trajectory and determines that the attack originated from nearly 700 meters away. She warns the others to stay alert, as the presence of something that powerful can only mean one thing: the enemy is on the level of a dungeon boss. As she finishes speaking, a towering beast appears in the distance. Meanwhile, Zephyr reflects on his past life, recalling that the Blue Dragon raid began about a year and 4 months later than the current timeline. In that attempt, they lost both the Black Dragon's heart and Lucius the Holy One. However, Altair still managed to gather strong allies and rare items, allowing them to initiate the Blue Dragon raid and eventually slay the beast. Despite the success, they failed to obtain the dragon's heart due to a critical mistake. As a result, Danakil's vital agricultural land became irreparably contaminated, turning the operation into a failure by every measure. Around that time, after returning to the temple from the cave, Zephyr struggled to rise through the ranks. Meanwhile, Olden, one of Ned's staunch rivals, took control of the third parish. Zephyr saw becoming a temple knight as his only path to revenge, a way to close the distance between himself and Olden. He knew that finding a weakness would be crucial, and the more information he gathered, the better his chances became. Elsewhere, Matthias and Olden sipped tea as they acknowledged the princess's failure, and reflected on the decision to withhold troops from the Great Forest. A strategic move that wasn't solely Olden's idea, but a brilliant one nonetheless. Zephyr recognized the political cost of the failed campaign. The princess lost soldiers, resources, and much of her standing. Even if she joined the upcoming Ice Dragon raid organized by the Guild Alliance, he doubted she would hold any real influence. With the Black and Blue Dragon hearts already secured, only the Ice Dragon's heart remained to complete their objective. Olden anticipated generous rewards once it was done. Back in the Silver Key, Zephyr notes that the situation has shifted. This time, he fully understands the traps laid out for them and refuses to let things unfold according to his enemy's plans. He also got the healing potion that restores wounds, a mana potion that replenishes energy, and golden tears, an enhanced protective item that blocks harmful effects. Confident in his inventory, Zephyr checks the status of the video transmission golem. While the large golem at base can transmit footage from his end, he needs to see what's happening back at camp. Unfortunately, inside the silver key, the golem fails to connect. He assumes the storm has passed by now and decides to focus on the task ahead. Back at the fight, the group is locked in battle with the monsters, including the massive boss. It rips a tree from the ground and hurls it toward them. Seeing it, Kiara asks Dariel about their remaining black dragon arrows. Dariel reports having only 24 left, barely enough to deal with the dragon itself and none to spare for the surrounding monsters. These arrows are crafted from hippogriff feathers, with gem seed branches enhancing their power. Kiara and Dariel coordinate their attacks, using Blue Storm and Flame Dance in tandem. Zephyr notes their synergy and the solid performance of the entire party. However, he also recognizes the core issue. They simply are facing too many monsters. Seeing them coming, Dariel prepares to fight, undeterred by the number of enemies. Whether dozens or hundreds, he intends to destroy them all with his arrows. Meanwhile, the monster boss speaks in his own language while casting an area of effect spell from horseback. In an instant, he vanishes, leaving the knights stunned. Moments later, he reappears out of nowhere, a massive jaw slamming down on them with crushing force. One of the soldiers spots more monsters, some already reaching the outskirts of the camp. The troops move to defend, but the monsters strike first. However, to the monster's surprise, Ophelia arrives just in time and stops its stomp with her leg. With calm confidence, she notes that it stands too upright to be one of them. Then, without hesitation, she kicks, sending the monster flying backward. Despite the chaos, Regulus Danakil, seated on a wooden stool, reminds himself of his duty, protecting the fragment of the Tree of Life's branch hidden within the hut. He recalls Princess Altair entrusting him with this responsibility, explaining that the small branch powers the core of the magic circle. Without it, the base's safety zone would collapse within 10 minutes, and the area would fill with poisonous mist. Though he understands the importance of his task, Regulus struggles with inaction as he hears his knights screaming outside. Lord Grimes encourages him to remain strong. Meanwhile, Regulus is using the Impenetrable Fortress, a family skill passed down through generations of the Danakil line. It generates a powerful force field that protects a designated building, though the user cannot leave while the skill is active. The smaller the space, the stronger the barrier, enough to resist even legendary weapons. Only those he permits may enter. Regulus reassures himself that he is the right person for this task. Then someone knocks on the door, coughing and asking to be let in. The voice resembles Princess Altair's. He hesitates, believing she might be in danger, and that failing to help her could cost him and his knights their lives. Lord Grimes, however, warns it might be a trick, but Regulus insists on opening the door. To his shock, Elder Heron stands outside. Regulus briefly doubts the elf's identity, before realizing Heron mimicked the princess's voice using an item. It's an imp acorn, which allows the user to remember and reproduce another person's voice. As Heron removes the acorn from his mouth, he uses a blinding flash. Regulus, though only temporarily blinded for 3 seconds, becomes immobilized. Enough time for Heron, already under an acceleration spell, to act and get his hands on the Tree of Life branch fragment. A horn sounds in the distance, signaling an emergency. Ophelia recognizes it as a sign that the magic circle's core is compromised. At the same time, Heron confirms their successful infiltration and urges his imposter group to move quickly. Ophelia notes that the safety zone will deactivate in 10 minutes. Elsewhere, Princess Altair, calm and composed, attempts to contact Zephyr, informing him that her side is falling apart. She reveals to use a space core to restore the circle, but urges him to kill the dragon quickly. Zephyr, hearing this, doubts he can finish the fight in less than 10 minutes. He considers whether a reward might help motivate him. Hearing that, she offers him last night's unfinished work if he takes down the dragon in 10 minutes. That's all the motivation he needs. He ends communication and shifts into action. Meanwhile, he notices the blue dragon's breathing sacs beginning to recover, restored by the water, likely in preparation for another breath attack. As he seems momentarily distracted, the dragon suddenly bursts from the water, ready to strike. But he reacts just in time, summoning the Stake of Fath and slamming it down on the creature. He borrowed the weapon from Lucius, who, despite concerns about the debt it carried, agreed to lend it. He then activates the Watcher Golem and signals the rest of the squad to follow his lead. Determined to end it within 10 minutes, he now sees the monster as nothing more than dead meat. Back in the forest, the imposters cheer over how easily they succeeded, but the mage controlling the golems quickly silences them. She struggles to maintain the copied magic circle and recalls Altair's instructions about the activation requirements for her skill, Mock Board. Though she successfully copied the magic circle of purification from Altair's earlier briefing, she now finds it difficult to keep it stable. She warns the others that, being a copy spell, she can only use it once, and urges them to move quickly. Their goal remains clear. They are heading toward the final sealed box, which contains the seed of the Tree of Life, essential to founding their new empire. Stopping there, Heron thanks his teammates, who reassure him that they are honored to follow a leader like him. Yet, deep inside, Heron harbors other intentions he does not reveal. Back at the battlefield, the elf warriors begin to falter after their elder retreats. From a safety bunker, Philip and his son watch the situation unfold with concern, feeling helpless. They know they did everything they could, ensuring steady food supplies, deploying Ophelia to tear through enemy minions, relying on a skilled healer, and placing their hopes in Zephyr, who carries a dragon's heart. Even the princess stood by them, protecting the soldiers with her blessings. Despite all this, morale continues to drop as the absence of their elder weighs heavily on the elven forces. Philip's son, however, finds it strange that Dariel still holds his ground firmly, even though the one he looked up to has already abandoned the fight. Philip explains that although Dariel appears strong and determined now, he is not the true center of the elf kingdom. That role belongs to the chief priestess, the chosen partner of the Tree of Life. The tree itself selected her, and only an elder who has received the tree's favor can become a leader. Through the Tree of Life, she can connect with all elves and influence their minds. Her name is Sylvestia, also known as the Broken Moon. Born blind, she became paralyzed after giving birth to Kiara, yet she remains a wise and respected figure. Hearing this, Philip's son wonders how Sylvestia gave birth to Dariel if she was already paralyzed after Kiara. He responds that rumors once spread about an affair. Kiara may have been born from it and is only half-elf, which is why she is not recognized as a high elf. Dariel, on the other hand, is a pure-blooded elf and was born with remarkable talent. However, he never wanted to become king. Instead, he aspired to become the queen's loyal protector rather than a ruler. Initially, Dariel's stance wasn't a problem for the elven people, but when the situation began to deteriorate, they started seeking someone to lead them through the crisis. Even then, Dariel refused to take on any leadership role. Left without options, the elves were forced to appoint Heron as their temporary leader. Back with Heron's party, the mage struggles with guilt over abandoning the remaining elves. She tells herself there was no realistic way for them to defeat the dragon, and tries to find comfort in the belief that they did what they could, especially while Dariel chose to turn away from them. They sent their Black and Silver Moon units into human lands 4 years ago, sparking a war. In the process, they lost a precious item and allowed part of the forest territory to fall into enemy hands. The blue dragon soon appeared, taking control of the lake, and the strongest moon elf departed with the seed box, leaving Heron behind to manage a broken kingdom. The one who left stood no chance against poison, and even Dariel ignored the situation, choosing not to intervene. Then Altair arrived in the forest, accompanied by a dragon-like warrior, requesting an alliance. To the mage, it all feels like a facade. She believes they lack the strength to stand as equals with humans, and even if they do manage to defeat the dragon, the elven kingdom is already lost. Overwhelmed by the thought, she begins to cry, realizing Dariel truly abandoned them, leaving them with no real hope. What they're doing now, she tells herself, is for the sake of finding a new one. As they reach the tower containing the Tree of Life's seed, Heron looks ahead with determination. He plans to plant the seed far away from this place, hoping the new tree will eventually choose him, allowing him to finally become king. However, to their shock, a large red monster is already there, clawing at the tower walls. Back at the safety bunker, Philip feels puzzled. The High Elves, especially those of the Black and Crimson Moon, had left the kingdom to build a new one, but no one has heard anything about these new elven realms since. He wonders where they went. As the thought crosses his mind, the crimson beast near the tower begins to radiate an overwhelming energy. Taking charge, Heron deploys 2 sparrow golems, one to distract the monster and the other to retrieve the sealed box. The plan works perfectly. While one golem draws the monster's attention, the other blasts through the tower and swiftly returns with the box. However, what they don't realize is that the demon has spent 3 years searching for that very box. The moment it sees it in their hands, it strikes, slashing their throats and seizing it with ease. The monster is no ordinary beast. It is Crimson Moon, once known as Masha, a former queen candidate from 60 years ago. After undergoing demonification, she lost herself completely. The only emotion she retains is her deep hatred toward the elves. 3 years earlier, both the Crimson and Black Moons were brought to their knees by the master of the Demon Lord worshippers. Furious that they had dragged humanity into war, he punished them. In that moment, he revealed 2 stones of revelation, powerful relics known to transform their wielders into powerful demons. He explains to the smiling woman standing beside him that the stones are braided with the same parasitic worms, yet each one grants different powers after demonification. The process isn't always successful, and the master believes its outcome depends on the hatred, anger, and greed within the heart. The stronger these distortions, the more powerful the transformation becomes. With that, the master begins to remind the Moon siblings of their resentment toward the elves, those who stole their future and took everything from them. He offers them the stones, and in an instant, with a violent surge of energy, they undergo demonification and transform into monstrous beings. Watching the transformation, the smiling woman questions the master's true intentions, but he simply claims he had none. Then, without warning, he snaps his fingers and summons the 12 apostles of the demon god cult to welcome the newly born demons into their ranks. Over the next 3 months, the demonified siblings wage havoc, killing countless individuals, both humans and monsters alike. As they grow accustomed to their powers, Olden lends them his demon soldiers to assist in a new mission, killing the blue dragon. Upon reaching its den, the black demon understands that the real challenge lies not just in the dragon, but in the elf protected by the Tree of Life. Still, if they want to send their enemies into the depths of hell, they must acquire the dragon's heart. Without hesitation, they leap into the den where the blue dragon rests. The dragon immediately senses their presence and begins to emit wild tornadoes. With a deep, rumbling voice, it declares that it's been a while since such inferior beings dared disturb him. Meanwhile, during a private wine party at the parish, an apostle questions Olden's choice to send weak elves against the blue dragon. Hearing that, Olden laughs, claiming he only sent the elves to become food for the dragon. He has his own reasons for forcing them into battle. He reveals that the 2 demonified elves were once candidates to become rulers of the Elven Kingdom. According to him, they come from the prestigious Moon High Elf family and were once powerful figures, known for their radiant light magic. Among the moon-named elves, those who bear the title often aspire to rule. However, the one chosen to be queen was blind and crippled, something the siblings could never accept. To their shock, despite her physical condition and her involvement with a human, she was chosen as queen, even though she had never received the formal training of a ruler candidate. As the rest of the elves celebrated, the Moon siblings stood in disbelief. With her appointment, they lost their chance at leadership. After their demonification, they also lost their wisdom and clarity. The apostles of the Demon Lord cult note that perhaps they started the war so others would recognize their strength. But according to Olden, they failed miserably. As a result, they were exiled from Elven society, but not before stealing the seed of the Tree of Life. In their final confrontation before exile, they were defeated by a young elf who had barely earned his moon title. They only managed to escape with their lives. Olden then questions what any the apostle would do if his own people rebelled or abandoned him. The answer is simple: he would kill them no matter what. And to prove his point, Olden says that's exactly what he has done. Back in the dragon's den, the blue dragon manages to gulp down the black moon. Olden, watching from afar, knows that the Moon siblings are now driven entirely by the desire for revenge against the elves, and that is precisely what he's exploiting. As the dragon gulps down its prey, it immediately feels something stirring within. With a piercing roar, it vomits a tremendous amount of blood. The cause is Black Moon's demonic ability, extreme venom and petrification. This is exactly what Olden planned. He intended for Black Moon to poison the dragon from within, knowing that, in the end, it would become a race against time, whether Black Moon can survive the dragon's corrosive digestive fluids, or whether the dragon can endure the spreading poison. Olden is certain that if the situation worsens, the dragon will fly toward the Aslan continent and dive into the Lake of Life, the same sacred place that nourishes the elven forest with its waters. As expected, the dragon launches into the sky, heading toward the lake. On its tail still clings the monstrous Crimson Moon. The dragon ignores her completely, sensing no real threat from behind. Meanwhile, Crimson Moon holds on, not out of strategy, but because the side effects of demonification have left her mind clouded. Even so, a faint instinct drives her. Drawn to a familiar energy that stirs fragmented memories, she leaps toward the seed tower. However, her damaged cognition prevents her from entering. Instead, she begins attacking anything that approaches the tower, killing without hesitation. Because the dragon has become the main threat, no one has noticed her presence, and since that day, she has been relentlessly clawing at the tower walls. Now, after tasting the blood of an elder, Heron, something shifts within her. Her senses begin to return. Slowly, she starts regaining fragments of herself, and with that clarity, her thoughts of revenge sharpen. Her gaze suddenly locks onto a trail of radiant energy flowing through the forest. It leads directly to its source, the Ill Queen, Broken Moon. Crimson Moon doesn't just sense her now, she knows exactly where she is. The demon carries worms inside her, parasites that grow stronger alongside their host. Once they reach maturity, the wielder unlocks a unique ability. In Crimson Moon's case, it is gluttony, a power that steals abilities by devouring them. Now, having consumed Heron, the demon uses his acceleration skill, propelling herself toward her destination at an incredible speed. Within moments, the beast reaches the outskirts of the elven village and storms into the queen's resting chamber. The moment it sees her, it recognizes her as Broken Moon, the very one it has longed to kill. Overcome with rage, the beast lunges toward the queen. But just as the attack is about to land, multiple slashes strike the demon from all sides. It's Ned, sent by Zephyr to protect the queen in anticipation of a possible demonic threat. Now, seeing Crimson Moon before him, he understands what Zephyr meant. Without hesitation, Ned charges his Thunderbolt spell and unleashes a devastating barrage, shaking the entire chamber. Meanwhile, Back at the lake, the battle between Zephyr and the monster still rages. Only 8 minutes remain before the purification magic protecting the camp fades. Because of this, Altair urges Zephyr to take the monster down before that happens. But in truth, he wants it dead even sooner. He knows that killing the dragon won't be the end of this raid, and every second counts if they're to ensure the safety of everyone left. Once the dragon dies, Black Moon is expected to awaken, and this is exactly the reason they failed the raid in his previous life. Last time, when they killed the dragon, the entire camp erupted in celebration. The warrior who delivered the final blow, Ederuis, stepped forward to claim the dragon heart, just as they had planned. But as he reached for it, he froze, shocked to see a barrier surrounding the dragon's corpse. In that moment, the demon hidden inside the dragon's stomach burst out, catching everyone off guard. Even more alarming was the sight of the demon holding the dragon heart in its claws. With a mocking grin, the demon thanked them for slaying the beast, and without hesitation, shoved the dragon heart into its own chest. Ederuis attempted to stop him, but another warrior quickly pulled him back to safety. Seconds later, a violent blast of poison erupted from the demon's body, melting everything in its immediate vicinity. The toxin spread rapidly, covering the entire forest. Realizing the scale of the disaster, Altair ordered a full retreat, and just like that, they lost the dragon heart. The aftermath left the once great elven forest, and the fertile Danakil granary, transformed into a lifeless, cursed land no one could return to. Back in the present, Zephyr fights with all of this in mind. In his previous life, the raid failed not because of poor strategy, weak party members, or lack of countermeasures. Those aspects were solid. The failure came from a lack of critical information. At that time, they had 2 capable vanguards who could move freely through the fog and were confident they could defeat the blue dragon. Ederuis had also identified a lingering wound on the dragon, a weak spot he had noticed during a previous encounter, when the dragon moved awkwardly. That was their key advantage. But now, in the current timeline, Zephyr feels frustrated. He can't find any trace of that same weakness on the dragon's body. Then it hits him. The previous raid happened a full year later. By then, the dragon may have become more eroded by poison, which could have caused that wound. In this timeline, it simply hasn't developed yet. Determined to create his own opening, Zephyr stabs poison scales directly into the dragon's body. The impact causes a violent explosion, and the dragon lets out a thunderous roar of pain. As it screams, the dragon suddenly commands everything around it to stop. To Zephyr's shock, time itself freezes. Water droplets hang motionless in the air. Leaves stop mid-fall. Even the wind stands still. This is a commanding power far beyond what humans can wield with a dragon heart. Even the silver key refuses to respond. Zephyr realizes the effect will last for exactly 7 more seconds, but that's more than enough time for the dragon to charge and unleash its breath attack. However, in that exact moment, Dariel fires a barrage of arrows at the beast. The strikes land just as time resumes. Dariel watches in disbelief, realizing that Zephyr actually created the opening he spoke of, and it worked. With each blast, Dariel continues to strike the dragon relentlessly, shot after shot. His barrage creates just enough of an opening for Zephyr to deliver a massive blow to the dragon's body. Together, they succeed in destroying its breath sac, rendering the dragon breathless, at least for now. Dariel now has 17 black dragon arrows remaining. He calculates quickly. Each spell requires 3 arrows, meaning he can cast his enhanced spell 5 more times. To kill the dragon, though, every shot must land. Back at the lake, as the dragon retaliates, Zephyr narrowly dodges the attack. He recalls how, in his previous life, they lost the dragon heart after this point. The blue dragon had taken full control of the corrupted body, and the battle that followed lasted an entire month. Over that time, Zephyr had learned its attack patterns and, through sheer endurance, barely managed to defeat it. Back then, the dragon had fought using memories from its prime, faster, stronger, and far more ruthless. As that thought flashes through his mind, Zephyr is suddenly punched in the face by the dragon. He absorbs the impact and is surprised. It's not as devastating as it once was. He crashes into a tree but quickly recovers. The dragon, using a telekinesis spell, sends the lodged dragon arrows flying toward him. Zephyr swings his dragon chains to deflect them, parrying each one mid-air. But just as the dragon prepares to strike again, it hesitates in shock. Zephyr vanishes from view. A faint glimmer appears in the air, the silver key, and without warning, the massive stake of faith descends from above, crashing down onto the dragon with overwhelming force. Zephyr follows up by slamming his lightning fist into the stake of faith, driving it deeper into the dragon's throat. At the same time, Dariel's arrows strike with precision, dismembering the dragon's right arm and sending it crashing into the lake below. Despite the devastating damage, the dragon still breathes. Its eyes lock onto Zephyr's sword. That sight pulls him into a memory of Lord Chrysaorus, once possessed by demons. They had no choice but to fight him. In the end, Georgios landed the final blow with the dragon-slaying sword Graham, ending Chrysaorus' life. As he was dying, the blue dragon had thanked Georgios for freeing his master from the curse. But with tears in his eyes, he also issued a warning that as Kaisaurus's loyal vassal, he could never forgive the man who killed him. If they ever met again, he swore, he would kill Georgios himself. Back in the present, the dragon lies motionless, the stake still lodged in its neck. Kiara watches from a distance and wonders if it's finally over. But Dariel feels something off. He senses danger. The tree of life is trembling. Suddenly the dragon begins to speak in a deep, rumbling voice. It calls Zephyr the Dragon Slayer and, in a solemn tone, reminds itself that it cannot go back on its oath. It must honor its vow, even if it means forgiveness. With that, the dragon grips the stake and pulls it from its neck. It then picks up its severed arm and, through ancient magic, transforms it into a massive blade. Clutching the sword, the dragon declares its duty is not yet complete. Though the pressure of its power is immense, Zephyr can't help but feel a surge of excitement. The dragon has just used its own tongue to convert its remaining life force into pure combat strength. And now, the true battle begins. Our boy has only 12 minutes of dragonification left, and the dragon still holds one breath attack in reserve. But those numbers no longer matter, because the dragon has already unleashed the dancing blade of death, a weapon forged from its own life force, carrying immense destructive power. He knows that no strategy will work now except one, pure, overwhelming force. To match that, he activates Berserk Dragon Mode, which boosts his physical abilities by 200% but shortens his transformation time to just 3 minutes. As the dragon brings down a heavy, energy-charged blow, he counters with his own power-loaded sword swing. Their attacks collide, the impact so intense that it sends him skidding backward. The dragon's strike is strong enough to slice the Tree of Life clean in half, shaking the elves watching from afar to their core. In the middle of the clash, he recalls Ned's teachings from his past life, lessons in martial arts that focused not just on strength, but on sensing its flow and learning to control it. According to Ned, if he masters it, he can elevate his strength to a higher level and overcome stronger foes even with limited power. Remembering this, he dodges the dragon's next attack and launches himself forward. While mid-air, he channels energy into his sword, recalling Ned's words, how strength flows like a river, and if one truly understands it, even a leaf can become a weapon. With that clarity, he moves around the dragon in rapid flashes, striking from all directions with precision. As he lands, he notices something lodged deep within the cuts he just made. It looks old, as if it had been buried inside the dragon for a long time. Then it clicks. He recalls the conversation with a vanguard from his past life, one that revealed the dragon's hidden weakness. This must be it. He charges again, but just as he moves in, he sees the dragon turning away, trying to escape into the water. To stop it, he throws the dragon chains, but as they catch hold, the beast pulls him into the lake along with it. As he swings his sword to wound the beast, it retaliates with a quick and powerful strike, knocking him back. Meanwhile, at the protective barrier, Kiara grows anxious as they can't pinpoint the monster's location underwater. At the same time, Dariel, seeking guidance from the spirits of his mother and father, shifts his aim toward the Tree of Life with his remaining arrows. Philip watches in disbelief as Dariel begins firing, but Dariel has a plan. With precise shots, he breaks the Tree of Life apart. Beneath the water, just as the monster prepares to strike Zephyr again, the shattered remains of the tree crash down onto it. Seizing the opportunity, Zephyr kicks the dragon back and drives his sword with full force into its exposed bone, causing the creature to scream as it recoils in pain. On the day Georgios defeated Kaisaurus, the blue dragon had warned him to leave, but the knight had other plans. He apologized to the dragon as he drew his sword, explaining that he couldn't walk away and leave behind a threat to the queen's future. A brief but intense battle followed. Georgios overpowered the blue dragon and severed one of its horns in a single, decisive strike. He then drove a sealing stake, White Queen's finger, into the dragon, a weapon that locks away the target's power and cannot be removed by the one afflicted. With that, Georgios ordered the dragon to remain in its den until the red dragon calmed down, stating that, because of the Kaisaurus heart inside him, he could never truly befriend a dragon. He advised they avoid meeting again for as long as possible. Now, in the present, as the blue dragon sinks into the depths of the lake, the memory resurfaces clearly. In that moment, he realizes, it's not Georgios standing before him now, but someone who has inherited his legacy. It's our boy Zephyr, the new dragon slayer. Meanwhile, inside the dragon's stomach, Black Moon awakens, sensing that the dragon might finally be dead. He believes this is the moment to claim the dragon's heart. But just as he begins to get excited, Zephyr strikes him with a powerful blow, sending him flying across the space. Without pause, the boy follows up with another swing, slamming Black Moon into a tree. Zephyr has already sealed the dragon's corpse inside his silver key, preventing Black Moon from getting anywhere near the heart, no matter what he tries. He remembers from his previous life how Black Moon had once absorbed a dragon heart improperly, triggering a surge of uncontrolled power that killed most of his followers. Zephyr knows that only beings on the same level as dragons can absorb a dragon heart safely. Black Moon wasn't one of them, and he died on the spot attempting it. Shortly afterward, the smiling woman arrived, taking both the dragon heart and Black Moon's magic stone. It became clear then that Black Moon had merely been a pawn used by those who worship the demon lord. Now, in the present, Zephyr still can't believe that Black Moon allowed his own people to die and lost their homeland, all to be discarded by the very ones he served, only to end up in this pitiful state. On the other hand, Black Moon senses something strange, a human aura mixed with dragon energy, but he finds it interesting. He had expected to run into elves, but seeing a dragonoid catches him completely off guard. Just as he prepares to introduce himself, Zephyr wraps the dragon chains around him and, using his strength, drives the full stake of faith into his body. To his surprise, the figure vanishes. Black Moon isn't there. Moments later, laughter echoes from behind. Black Moon mocks Zephyr, claiming that his speed exposed his own weakness, making him easy to counter. By now, Black Moon has already figured out that Zephyr is relying on limited dragon power, and that he can only maintain it for around 2 minutes. Zephyr realizes the man is sharp. Only 48 seconds of dragonification remain, and once the effect of his secondary spell ends, he will immediately collapse. He doesn't have enough strength left for a drawn-out battle, so he shifts his focus to baiting Black Moon instead. As Zephyr stands below, Black Moon hovers above and offers to spare his life if he hands over the dragon heart. He claims he holds no hatred for humans and seeks only revenge against the elves. While Black Moon yaps, Zephyr quietly casts Dragon Tongue, a spell that issues a direct command. With it, he orders Black Moon to freeze in place. Black Moon is shocked. His legs suddenly refuse to move. Seizing the moment, Zephyr strikes once more, slamming the stake of faith into him with full force. But to his shock, Black Moon activates a barrier, blocking the strike and shouting at Zephyr for interrupting him mid-sentence. Meanwhile, Zephyr, feeling dazed from using Dragon Tongue, begins loading his silver key. He knows he needs just enough stamina for one final attack. To end it, he attempts to summon the Sword of Light, but to his disbelief, the goddess doesn't permit it. The sword instantly transforms into a burst of flame instead, and Zephyr stares in disbelief. The goddess of light had granted him the sword before, even when he was weaker. Confused and frustrated, he curses her, and in that moment he's suddenly thrown backward, engulfed in flames. Watching from a distance, Black Moon is confused by what just happened, but relieved his barrier held. He still can't move his legs, but being bound doesn't stop him from attacking. In his hand, he conjures Venom, his ultimate skill, Venom Spear, sharp enough to pierce dragon scales. With a leap, he drives the spear straight into Zephyr's chest. The impact sends a brutal wave of pain through Zephyr's body. Hearing his screams, Black Moon is amused, surprised to see someone stronger than himself cry out like that. Without pause, he prepares another spell, claiming he has much to do and will grant Zephyr a peaceful death. He unleashes a massive wave of poison. But before the spell lands, a strange noise echoes from the lake. Suddenly, enormous roots burst out from beneath the water, one of them piercing straight through Black Moon's chest from the left. Black Moon can't believe what just happened. Zephyr reveals that, by drawing in all the poison from the area to use his ultimate skill, Black Moon unknowingly purified the lake and the surrounding jungle. Zephyr remembers from his past life how the Dragon Heart and the Black Moon's magic stone were taken by the demon cult and turned into weapons that generated poison fog and spears. So in the present, he anticipated that the original owner, Black Moon, would possess the same poison-based skills. Zephyr had intentionally baited him into using them, knowing it would be the fastest way to cleanse the forest. Now the area around the lake stands as the only purified zone, but it's enough. The Tree of Life uses its roots to extend into the cleansed soil, and the forest will soon begin to recover. Zephyr had foreseen most of this, but the tree's intervention still came as a surprise. Meanwhile, Black Moon is writhing in pain as the roots continue to pierce and shake his body. Realizing the threat, he struggles to spread poison once more. But Zephyr steps forward, scolding him. He reminds Black Moon that the elves had long been protected by the Tree of Life, and yet now, when facing it directly, he cowers in fear and struggles. Channeling energy into his claw, Zephyr brings it close to Black Moon's face. He calls him ungrateful and foolish, but assures him that since he is incapable of true understanding, he'll have to face the truth in death. With that, Zephyr drives his empowered claw into Black Moon's stomach, extracts the magic stone, and brings him down for good. Before news of their success even reaches the rear squad, they witness it with their own eyes. The Tree of Life begins to resurrect right in front of them. Seeing this, Altair announces to the rest of the party through her golem that the blue dragon has been defeated and the dragon heart has been secured. The soldiers, hearing this and seeing the tree's revival, are filled with renewed energy and quickly begin wrapping up the remaining monsters. Altair still can't believe Zephyr actually pulled it off. As everyone celebrates, she tries to contact him again, but receives no response. Meanwhile, Zephyr is unconscious, free-falling on the lake's surface. The Tree of Life gently catches him with its roots, silently thanking him for saving it. In return, it decides to do the same for him. Its roots wrap around him, glowing faintly as they begin to share their healing energy. Far away, even Ned, watching the roots burst forth from the forest floor near the village, smiles. He knows the boy has done it. Despite his relief, Ned himself is badly wounded from his battle with the Crimson Moon Demon. He's shocked to have been struck by his own martial arts, realizing too late that the demon was capable of duplicating his techniques. Ned has already lost a great deal of blood and can no longer restore his body. Just as he begins to accept what he thinks is the end, glowing vines begin to wrap around his arms. To his surprise, it's her, the queen. She assures him that the vines act as her hands and legs. Though she cannot move herself, he protected her, and now she wishes to express her gratitude. As her vines lift her gently from the bed, she introduces herself as the Queen of Elves, quickly noticing Ned's condition and realizing he needs immediate care. Meanwhile, back at the lake, Zephyr is lost in a dream, reliving a moment from his childhood when his father left him. In that memory, his mother embraces him, recognizing his human side and choosing to raise him with care and compassion, unlike his father. She apologizes for not being able to protect him but assures him that the last thing she can offer, as his parent, is the strength to protect himself. With those words echoing in his mind, Zephyr awakens from unconsciousness. He realizes he had been dreaming about his mother. Looking around, he finds himself enveloped in glowing vines, lying within an unfamiliar but gentle cradle of roots. Suddenly, a deep voice speaks, advising him not to move. The voice tells him that he's been unconscious for 72 hours and is still in recovery. It then reveals that the space he's in lies within the trunk of the Tree of Life, and the godly speaker introduces himself as Yggdrasil. According to Yggdrasil, this is his reincarnated form, allowing him to communicate directly with mortals. Zephyr is stunned. He had never seen this form before. In his previous life, they had failed to save the Tree of Life and the Queen, so he never had the chance to meet Yggdrasil. The ancient being explains that, aside from his wife, no one else, neither their children nor anyone in the forest, has ever seen him in this form. Curious, Zephyr asks if the figure can read thoughts. The figure confirms, but assures him that he won't do so if Zephyr is uncomfortable. Still, Zephyr feels uneasy. He can't read the figure's emotions, and his strange eyes only make it more unsettling. The tree, sensing his thoughts, reassures him once again that he has no intention of causing harm. Instead, he wishes to thank him. As a gesture of gratitude, Yggdrasil summons a small fruit-bearing branch and asks Zephyr to eat from it, explaining that it will help his body recover more quickly. He then reveals that he had been imprisoned by the blue dragon's tongue spell, paralyzed and poisoned, unable to move. However, through his children, he had been silently observing Zephyr all along. Seeing how Zephyr helped both his children and his wife, Yggdrasil has now decided to offer a bilateral contract, a sacred bond between them. He presents it as a formal decree, though Zephyr has no idea what the old tree is even talking about. In any case, Zephyr begins to understand that the tree is genuinely trying to thank him. He senses no hostility. He recalls how, in his previous life, Dariel once told him that his father was a demigod, a being caught between the state of elf and god. Realizing that the situation clearly favors him, Zephyr decides he should at least negotiate to make the most of it. He speaks up, stating that simply healing him isn't enough to call them even. But Yggdrasil calmly explains that he hasn't just healed Zephyr, he also stabilized the dragon hearts within him. These hearts require recalibration whenever their output increases. After defeating the demon forces, Zephyr's heart output surged to 23%, which could have been lethal. During the 72 hours of recovery, Yggdrasil readjusted the balance, strengthening Zephyr's body to handle the change, and preparing it to host the blue dragon's heart as well. This revelation shocks him, but before he can respond, the Tree of Life extends a hand toward him, offering to implant the blue dragon's heart into his body. In return, Yggdrasil will ask for just one request. According to Yggdrasil, 10,000 years ago, the first seed of the Tree of Life broke through its shell. At that moment, a voice was heard, urging those present to prepare. He understood the meaning of these words and realized that his purpose was to prepare the world for the day of promise. With the first stage, the air quality began to shift as mana spread through the atmosphere. The original waters of the world turned into purified healing waters. Across other continents, similar trees started the same process, continuing for thousands of years and gradually reshaping the world beyond recognition. Eventually, the elf species was created to serve the Tree of Life, and with their assistance, everything progressed smoothly, while Yggdrasil waited patiently for the promised day. But then, something unexpected happened. Yggdrasil became a father. In that moment, he chose to go against his original mission, willing to pay any price to protect his family. While recounting this story to Zephyr, Yggdrasil offers once again to transplant the dragon heart in exchange for a promise that he will fulfill his request. Zephyr remains uncertain. He knows that during the transplant, he will be completely defenseless, something he cannot risk trusting to someone he doesn't fully believe in. Sensing this hesitation, Yggdrasil surprises him by asking how he will die in the future. The being already knows that Zephyr has seen the end. To understand the truth for himself, he looked into Zephyr's dream while he was unconscious. The first thing he noticed in the boy's vision is a connection to his mother, but he quickly realized it wasn't something he could use as a clue. Then he picked up a signal, a detailed depiction of the world's devastating end and a face he recognizes. He suspects it might be a prophecy, and it appears to be a remarkably detailed one. As Yggdrasil speaks, Zephyr understands that the ancient tree has managed to interpret the signals on his own. Realizing there's no point in hiding the truth, Zephyr reveals that the Tree of Life will die when his own comrades attack the forest, and that the tree won't recover from the poison used against it. Still, Zephyr decides not to tell Yggdrasil that he comes from the future. Allowing Yggdrasil to believe that it's simply a prophecy seems safer. However, the Ancient One remains cautious. He knows the boy is still holding something back. He admits that he is aware of at least one truth: he will die. He points out that if he had seen a future where he lived until the end of the world, Zephyr wouldn't have stepped in to save him. As he says this, Yggdrasil reveals a symbol on his forearm. Zephyr instantly recognizes it. It's the same oath ring mark he received after defeating the cult leader, Olden. However, as Zephyr continues watching the mark, his eyes begin to burn. Yggdrasil explains that he shouldn't try to view it further, as his current state of mind isn't strong enough to handle its power. He adds that he is bound to keep certain knowledge confidential and isn't in a position to share the core truth. Yggdrasil goes on to explain that both he and the 7 dragons are bound by a mission given by the Almighty, one they cannot abandon until their deaths. Zephyr immediately understands what he means. It's the same reason he had no choice but to kill the blue dragon. The Tree of Life then reveals that in the final days, the surviving dragons will lose their will and join the Demon Lord's army, a future he has already seen. Upon hearing this, Zephyr wonders if he too will become an enemy like the dragons. Yggdrasil offers a vague answer, admitting that he has never doubted his mission and never truly believed this world held much value. Yet something changed when he fell in love with the Broken Moon. Despite knowing she wouldn't live long, she loved him and wanted to have a child with him. Though her body was weak, she wished to create lasting memories and dreamed of continuing a life together. She also refused to use the Chalice of Conception, a sacred tool used by elf royalty to help conceive a new life, choosing instead to try naturally, despite the risks. She chooses a different method, and Yggdrasil, moved by her love, takes on a humanoid form. That one woman significantly shifted his perspective, making the world seem more valuable than it ever had before. He believes Zephyr will one day understand that feeling as well. Hearing this, Zephyr recalls Altair from his past life and the moment of conception they shared. As he lies down and closes his eyes, Yggdrasil begins channeling the blue dragon heart's energy through his divine powers. Before starting the process, he makes a request that when the time comes, Zephyr must kill him, to prevent any chance of him harming his family. It is a personal plea. With that, Zephyr is transported into his mental realm, where he must face the will of the blue dragon. He reflects on the fact that, although he once considered threatening Yggdrasil over the heart, he never actually did it. Yggdrasil could have manipulated him in his sleep, but he didn't. That alone confirms to Zephyr that he can trust him. Yggdrasil had also mentioned that while Altair is skilled, she lacks experience in transplanting a blue dragon heart, and the procedure would take much longer with her. With that in mind, Zephyr leaves the transplant to him. Now conscious within his mind, Zephyr knows the stakes that if he fails to defeat the dragon's dark thoughts, his body will either be destroyed or fall under the dragon's control. In his previous life, it took him a month to overcome this trial. He wonders how long it will take this time. As he transforms into his dragon form, the blue dragon appears and immediately responds to the change, acknowledging his transformation. However, Zephyr is genuinely shocked when he senses the presence before him. Much to his surprise, it's a woman. On the other hand, the woman calmly points out that they've already fought each other, so there's no reason for him to be unsettled by her appearance. She invites him to sit and have a cup of tea rather than drawing his sword again. Despite her calm demeanor, Zephyr still struggles to believe that the blue dragon is actually a woman. Meanwhile, in the forest, Dariel assures everyone that Zephyr is safe and currently with his father. Altair, upon hearing this, looks confused. After all, his father is a tree. Others begin to wonder if the tree might have simply consumed him. Dariel, however, explains that the Tree of Life might actually be treating him. Philip, hearing this, grows concerned. He worries that Zephyr could end up captured by the Tree of Life and possibly used as a hostage. At the same time, Dariel senses another strong presence within the tree, one he suspects might be the blue dragon heart. That thought raises further concern that will Zephyr even return? Still, one thing is certain, that if he does come back, he won't be the same. Inside Zephyr's consciousness, he accepts the woman's offer of tea, quietly honored that a dragon has chosen to reveal her polymorphed form. He knows that all life forms are most at ease in their original shape, and they only shift their form when trying to show superiority, express respect, or deceive someone for personal gain. Judging by her demeanor, Zephyr deduces that she likely lacks the talent for trickery, so her transformation is either out of respect or a show of superiority. The woman hears his thoughts and takes them as a compliment. She's impressed that he managed to defeat her, even though she was weakened by poison. She also admits she feels at ease in Zephyr's consciousness. likely because it's filled with the ancient energy of the Kaisaurus. She doesn't want to treat Zephyr like a stranger just because he now carries the dragon heart. Suddenly, the entire area pulses with mystical energy. She notes calmly that it seems her liege is upset. Without warning, she begins communicating directly with his dragon heart using her psychic abilities, leaving Zephyr both confused and annoyed. Her name is Artalis. In his past life, Zephyr had also encountered her in his consciousness. Even though he had grown strong by then, it still was a dangerous fight. The only reason he survived was due to the dragon's unpredictable temperament. At times, it allowed him to rest mid-battle. The dragon would relentlessly attack, then revive him while he was half dead, only to start again. This cycle repeated until he finally defeated her. Through those long battles, she had unknowingly trained him. Still, Zephyr reflects that everyone who's ever taught him seems to have a chaotic personality, whether it's Ned or the blue dragon. As Zephyr's irritation grows, Artalis notices and questions it, only irritating him further. Eventually, she gets to the point. She declares that with her death, she's finally free from the burdens of her old mission and will soon reunite with her liege. But first, she wants to see some of his cute tricks. She adds that she has no regrets as a warrior. Her final battle was worthy of her pride. Then, she shares final thoughts that a person's soul can be seen through what they hold dearest. An artist through the tip of their brush, a musician through their fingers, and warriors like them through the edge of their swords. A warrior's training, hardships, and unwavering will all reveal the true shape of their soul. After observing Zephyr closely, Artalis comes to a conclusion that she likes him, and feels comfortable entrusting him with her power. She also senses a tremendous amount of energy within him, along with a rare potential. She looks forward to seeing him reach the heights she herself failed to attain. With that, she announces that she will merge with him, granting him permission to use her power. Whether he can actually wield it, however, depends entirely on him. As she gives him the dragon heart, she warns that she will continue watching, and hopes he won't lose his life meaninglessly. Zephyr is slightly surprised by how willingly she cooperates, but it works in his favor, saving precious time. He also understands what she meant about dying without having truly lived a fulfilling life. Just before leaving, he offers to cook something for her as a gesture of thanks for her sacrifice. She smiles, telling him that he won't need to. He'll find out why soon enough. With that, a tremendous surge of power erupts from within. Outside, those waiting near the Tree of Life feel the shockwave, and then, to their astonishment, Zephyr emerges, fully healed. Altair, seeing him safe, feels a wave of relief and embraces him warmly. Meanwhile, in the realm of the Silver Key, the angel Mercedes addresses someone she calls Old Master. She informs them that another ancient god has chosen the new master, an event that signals a shift in the world's future. At the fourth parish of the Temple of Light, a soldier arrives and presents a letter to the captain, claiming that Olden has been murdered. The news spreads quickly, and rumors begin to circulate with many believing it was Lucius who killed him. Several hunters take up arms, thinking that if they eliminate the man who defeated one of the twin knights, ranked among the top 10, they might claim the vacant position for themselves. Meanwhile, in the realm of the Silver Key, the angel kneels in prayer, recalling the prophecy of a coming battle so devastating it will turn rivers into blood. With the throne of God now vacant, countless factions are expected to fight for it. Yet despite the looming chaos, they believe that someone will rise at the end of the world to save them from this tragic fate, the one foretold as the destroyer of fate. Back in Lindell Castle, within Altair's territory, a knight defeats her guard and demands an audience with the princess. While Lord Zephyr rests within the Tree of Life, he reflects on how much has happened outside. After the forest is cleansed of poison, Yggdrasil activates a command to the mana flowers, magical plants that grow near streams and purify both the air and water. Outside, survivors continue pushing forward, defeating the remaining monsters and making their way to the Tree of Life. Princess Altair identifies the location as Elfenheim, the Elven Kingdom's capital. One elf, overcome with emotion, expresses disbelief at seeing it again and thanks the group. Ned also soon arrives with the Elf Queen, who has finally awakened. Her presence brings joy to many, especially Kiara and Dariel, who run to embrace her. Afterwards, the group buries fallen soldiers and mourns their losses near the graves. Zephyr reflects on the exhausting effort of treating the wounded, cleaning the battlefield, and locating those left behind. With Yggdrasil focused on purifying the forest, others had to take on the burden. Still, the busy work helps the survivors process their grief. Most of them lost their homes to this devastating disaster. Although the threat of the Blue Dragon has passed, Zephyr notices that peace brings its own weight. It forces everyone to confront the true cost of survival, the lives lost, and the sacrifices made. As the last of the fallen are buried, the Blue Dragon raid is declared officially over. The Queen formally thanks Princess Altair, the Temple of Light, the Danakil territory, and especially Zephyr, the Dragon Slayer. She swears on the Tree of Life that the elves will never forget their debt. Honoring the bilateral agreement, she declares that the Great Forest of Elves is now allied with Princess Altair and the Earl of Danakil. A non-aggression pact is sealed, along with a commitment to share future hardships and victories. Philip's son, Edwin, reflects on how these alliances answer many concerns he had before the raid. With tension between elves and humans, the mission had always risked betrayal from within. Attempting a raid under such conditions seemed premature. Yet, Princess Altair saw the bigger picture. To her, this moment of crisis was an opportunity, a chance to unite both the Elven Kingdom and Danakil. She challenged the idea that they should exploit the elves' weakened state. Philip Pilgrim agrees that conquest isn't the goal. He reminds the group that Polaris, once celebrated in Danakil as a hero, had already proven his worth by driving out the Black Moon and Red Moon during the war 4 years ago. Princess Altair explains that when Danakil was poisoned, Polaris refused to help. Claiming he had no time, he even sold off all his Danakil-related stocks and land bonds. To him, the situation seemed unsolvable. As a result, Danakil was effectively abandoned and left desperate for aid. The elves were in an even worse state, having had no diplomatic contact with humans for centuries. With no one to rely on, this moment became a key opportunity. By helping both Danakil and the elves, Altair plans to bring them into an alliance, one that favors her rather than human kingdoms like Cayenne. It's a strategic move to remove Polaris's influence and prepare for the long war ahead. Zephyr, hearing that, also considers the advantages: Danakil's abundant farmlands, the Tree of Life's limitless healing power, and the unification of the elves. Altair's plan has worked better than expected. Yggdrasil and the Elf Queen, as it turns out, have similar goals. Now that the Queen has awakened, she will command the forest elves through the Tree of Life's bond, ensuring loyalty. A celebration follows. As the group gathers, the Elves' Queen raises a toast to their hard-won victory. Nearby, Dariel notices Kiara sitting alone and walks over. Despite her wiping away tears, their casual back and forth brings a light moment as they share apples and reflect. Kiara says it's hard to believe that less than 6 weeks ago Zephyr and his group arrived, the dragon is now defeated, and Elfenheim has been reclaimed. She feels relieved that both her mother and the Tree of Life have recovered, and that he can now move forward with his duties as the Queen's head archer. Dariel questions her cringy remarks, but she reveals that she has already decided to leave the forest soon. Later that night, while many are asleep, or some who can't sleep yet, like our boy Zephyr, Princess Altair prepares for the night, knowing it's time to rest. But there's one important thing she must do before going to bed, and just as she thinks of it, she hears a knock at her door. She knows many admire her for her beauty, lineage, and talents. People praise her, offer gifts, even pledge their lives to her, but none truly understand her desires or who she truly needs protection from. Even before adulthood, she realized few would walk her path. Though she appreciates her companions, she has never felt romantic interest in any of them. At some point, she accepted that she may always be alone, but that, she believes, is something she can live with. Princess Altair reflects that what she truly needs isn't a romantic partner, but a reliable weapon. She remembers the day her hopes for a normal life were shattered, when Polaris, corrupted and dangerous, reached for her, and she had to run. From that moment, she knew emotions were a luxury she couldn't afford. Love, to her, only creates vulnerability. She once believed that choosing a political partner, someone who could lead her to victory, was the logical path. But when she looked at Zephyr, she began to question that belief. Ophelia, observing the change in Altair since Zephyr's arrival, remarks to Ned how often the two are together. Zephyr would keep an eye on things while she visited the Elder. She remembers asking the princess who would protect her, to which Altair casually replied that the Tree of Life would protect her, but she knew it was Zephyr. Ophelia, left out and emotional, admits to feeling abandoned. Though she and the princess grew up like sisters, it now feels like she's no longer needed. She sits with Ned, drinking, frustrated and disheartened. Ned notices and thinks she's clearly unfamiliar with romance, or perhaps she just doesn't like Zephyr. Still, he encourages her to recover, telling her to rest for now and help his disciple later when she's back to herself. As she drinks, Ned wonders what his disciple might be doing at that moment, but reassures himself that it's his second time, so he'll probably manage. Meanwhile, Zephyr approaches Altair's residence, feeling unexpectedly nervous. He remembers her words. If he could defeat the Blue Dragon in under 10 minutes, they could pick up where they left off. He had done exactly that, and things had started to escalate that night, before everything got interrupted. Now, standing outside her door, worried, he wonders what surprises Altair might have planned. He remembers Altair casting the kiss of darkness on him, which forced him to reveal details about his previous life. After that, he kissed her maniacally and just went with the flow, but she rooster blocked him. He knows Altair has feelings for him too, but to her, he's just someone she's known for a little over a month. She doesn't recall their past lives, so it makes sense that her desire isn't as strong as his. Still, he's willing to let her lead for now, though he fully expects her to make it up to him someday. There are more important things to handle, like discussing their next move or examining the dragon heart. So he enters her room, and when he looks at her, he realizes it's okay for him to goon, for once. Altair looks away shyly, then meets his gaze, thinking about how much she had planned to say. But now, overwhelmed with nerves, she forgets it all. Without a word, he kisses her at the door. She notes how sweet he tastes. That night, They lie beside each other. Before this, she believed she would live her life alone. That love didn't matter. But he changed that. He gave him more love than she thought possible, and she gave it back freely. Altair once believed she was alone on a difficult, thorny path, but he had always been there, walking beside her. She thinks back to the night he revealed his past and how deeply it affected her. She had tried to avoid the truth, hiding her own loneliness, but now she can't even imagine the kind of pain he endured, losing everyone, forced to continue on alone. Her heart aches for him. She had stayed awake that night, unable to rest, feeling a strong desire to do something, anything for him. That's when she finally understands. This must be love. And she's in love with him too. On day 44 of the lockdown in the third parish, Fade holds a dagger to a priestess. She's caught off guard, thinking the sacred barrier around the parish should have made entry impossible. Yet here he is. Fade, however, insists he came for another reason entirely. He didn't expect to find this. He demands to know who supplied her with the poisons in her possession. Elsewhere, Daryl practices with his bow. He recalls being 15 when his mother briefly regained consciousness. At that moment, she gave birth to Kiara and said that this little girl was born with a different fate and would have to leave the forest. Now that the girl was grown and ready to leave, she chose to go with Zephyr, claiming it might be fun, and that, just maybe, she'd run into Fade out there too. But Daryl questions Kiara's sadness at the banquet. Was it really just about leaving? Or is it something deeper? Perhaps the lingering rumors among the elves. He remembers the whispers. Her striking eyes and vibrant hair make others suspect she's half human. Some even say that's why the queen was punished, and why the forest's life force has been weakening. He concludes that maybe she really doesn't belong in the forest at all. Still practicing, he's surprised when his mother arrives and watches. She simply smiles and says it's impressive. Daryl notices her too and is surprised he hadn't sensed her. She tells him that she came to hear his sound. After listening, she calls it the most beautiful sound in the world. With both parents now present, his mother awake and his father physically incarnated for the first time in decades, Daryl feels deeply grateful, silently thanking Zephyr. His mother observes his form and gently points out that his mana flow is uneven. Though his aim is accurate, she advises him to shoot with his heart and trust those around him. As part of his training to earn the Moon title, she gives him a new task, to leave the forest, and she wants him to take Kiara with him. Elsewhere, Philip Pilgrim arrives with an urgent letter for Princess Altair. Zephyr opens the door and, after a brief moment of surprise, takes the message seriously upon seeing the seal. A meeting is quickly called. At the gathering, Altair thanks everyone for attending on short notice. She announces that, as agreed with Elf Queen, Kiara and Daryl are now official party members. Both express their gratitude, though Daryl quietly teases Kiara for previously claiming she'd leave alone. She's embarrassed, unsure how she was supposed to know her mother's plan. Earlier that morning, Kiara's mother had given her the last remaining seed of the Tree of Life. She reminded Kiara of her destiny, foretold long ago, to leave the forest and raise a new tree. As the last queen of the forest, she entrusts Kiara with leading the next generation and building a kingdom that can survive the difficult future ahead. This mission, she said, may be the only way for their people to endure what's coming. Kiara's mother explains that she alone is capable of carrying out a specific task due to her unique nature. She reveals that her bond with Lord Yggdrasil is weaker because she was born an empty vessel, meant to channel the power of a new tree. She gives Kiara the seed box and clarifies that her weaker connection to her father was intentional, designed to make her seem smaller and less significant compared to others. Kiara learns that this was done on purpose because she is the miracle child they had long hoped for. As Kiara reflects on the moment, she becomes emotional. She had felt joy when her mother regained consciousness, but part of her had also feared it. Deep down, she worried her mother might confirm painful truths she didn't want to hear. That fear made her want to leave without speaking to her. Now, she realizes how deeply her parents cared for her and how aware they were of her inner struggles. With gratitude, she walks away, thinking she no longer needs to carry those doubts. Back in the present, Princess Altair commends Daryl for his performance during the dragon raid, assuring him that his efforts have not gone unnoticed. She informs him that he and his companion are now considered among the 10 great warriors and will serve as key members of future missions. This means attending meetings, receiving assignments, and being granted access to supplies, intelligence, and other resources upon formal request. As the meeting begins, she presents 2 urgent letters. Before deciding which matter to address first, Philip Pilgrim raises his hand and offers clarification. One letter comes from a contact within his caravan stationed near the third parish. He explains that after defeating the Dungeon Princess, one of the world's most difficult quests, Lord Lucius, the Holy One, locked down the area and disappeared from public view. Many believe this is a strategy to obscure the actual location of the Dragon Heart, the final reward from the quest. Zephyr, knowing that few are aware of his return from the future, anticipates what others might assume. The possibilities include them thinking that Lucius is recovering after absorbing the Dragon Heart, secretly selling it and covering his tracks, or perhaps faking the entire thing, meaning the Dragon Heart never existed. Regardless of the truth, The situation has triggered chaos among investors. The potential value of the dragon heart at auction would break records, so its absence raises suspicions. Philip explains that if Lucius did absorb or dispose of the heart before it could be verified, or if it was only a fabricated promise, he'll face years of legal trouble. Meanwhile, the Temple of Light, having promoted the dragon heart to attract funding, will likely be held accountable for the financial fallout. To protect their interests, the investors have already assembled legal teams. The temple's financial board appears ready to shift all responsibility onto Lucius to avoid the consequences themselves. Philip explains that Lucius is significantly behind on payments for borrowing the Stake of Faith, a legendary grade item. As a result, the Vatican's Holy Relic management team has been dispatched to demand repayment. Meanwhile, others have arrived searching for Lord Olden, with whom all contact has been lost. They all accuses Lucius of harming Lord Olden, prompting several figures who have recently entered the Third Parish, including the head of the Temple Knights in the Fourth Parish, and a wave of adventurers hoping to claim a spot among the 10 great warriors after hearing of Olden and the Twin Knights' deaths. With so many factions converging, the Third Parish has become unstable and is on the brink of siege. The troops are agitated and are demanding entry, determined to confront Lucius and reclaim his investment. Ned reflects that the Third Parish, weakened after the raid, would not last long without reinforcements if a siege were to begin. Turning to the second letter, Ned questions what could possibly be more urgent. Philip explains that the letter comes from a butler at Lindell Fortress and concerns the recent defeat of a knight representing Lord Ophelia in the ongoing marriage competition. What makes it significant is the weapon used, a renowned blade with ties to Zephyr and his past. Zephyr immediately recognizes the weapon as Requiem, the legendary sword once wielded by Blademaster John Howell, the highest-ranking member of the 10 Great Warriors. A while later, at Lindell Fortress, an old man informs Zephyr that the visitor is already waiting inside. Zephyr reflects that Requiem had been his final weapon in a previous life, though neither he nor the Blademaster possessed it at this point in time. As he enters the room, he notices a warrior enjoying himself, surrounded by girls. Our boy quickly recognizes him as Adarius, the Blademaster's final disciple. Adarius also notices Zephyr and casually asks who he is. Meanwhile, Zephyr knows exactly who this guy is, and the moment he appears, he is the strongest person on the continent, which seriously annoys him. The title of the strongest on the continent originated from a single night. 5 years ago, at Cayenne Palace, Lord Lucas is being congratulated for his victory over the mercenary King Gladys, both through strategic leadership and personal combat. Despite the praise, Aaron humbly states that he is only the 6th strongest warrior in the land. The revelation shocks everyone, even King Leo, who gets interested in hearing about it. So Aaron lists those stronger than himself. At the top is Blademaster John Howell, followed by Henrik the Grand Sorcerer, Roland the Blessed Knight of the Sky Temple, and others. In 7th place he names Dariel. 8th is the Dominique from Temple of Light. 9th, the mercenary King Gladys. And in 10th place, the Twin Knights. Back in the present, before Zephyr's departure to Lindell, Philip Pilgrim recalls how Lucius's popularity helped the ranking spread quickly across the continent. Many self-proclaimed warriors challenged those on the list, only to be defeated, further solidifying the rankings. Over time, the list became widely accepted as the official ranking of the 10 Great Warriors. After the execution of the mercenary king for treason, Ophelia rose to 9th place by defeating the Twin Knights. Since then, the rankings have remained unchanged for 2 years. Dariel reflects on an encounter 7 years earlier, when he fought a powerful human knight near the forest's edge, unaware then of the knight's fame. Now, realizing he's considered one of the 10 Great Warriors, he doubts the credibility of the list. He notes that Zephyr seems far stronger than him, and even Ned isn't included in the rankings. Zephyr replies that the list was made 5 years ago, during a time when both of them were still growing. They also chose to keep a low profile, as drawing too much attention would make it harder to operate freely. Ned remarks that regardless of the list's origins, to be officially included now, one must defeat a ranked warrior and present proof, typically an item belonging to the fallen warrior. That's become the unspoken rule. Zephyr recalls his past life, when a wave of chaos followed Adarius's appearance. Adarius had claimed that his master gave him the legendary sword Requiem before passing away. This declaration attracted many challengers, seeking to take his place among the great warriors. Around the same time, Ned became wanted for stealing the Black Dragon's heart, adding further instability to the region. Princess Altair comments that the mysterious newcomer wielding Requiem, Blademaster John Howell's legendary sword, is claiming to be the master's final disciple. If true, it's a matter of great urgency. She notes that John Howell is of particular concern to the leader of the Demon Lord worshippers, as she's one of the few capable of thwarting his plans. Known also as the Sorceress Elva, or the White Queen, John Howell's true form is said to be that of the White Dragon, an identity shrouded in secrecy and power. She is revealed to be the one who taught ancient Median magic, a form thought long lost. Elise is surprised to hear of a dragon disciple for the first time, and wonders how such magic resurfaced. She notes how the princess seems to attract rare fortune. Meanwhile, Daryl questions the name John, assuming it's male, but Kiara explains that names often vary, and John might be a play on the sword technique or simply a false identity. What shocks them most is the claim that this woman is a dragon disciple. Edwin brings up the legend that the white dragon was supposedly killed by the black dragon 1,000 years ago. Altair, however, corrects him, noting that the white dragon was not killed but sealed away, and every 100 years sends a physical incarnation into the world to train a new disciple. Princess Altair explains that her own master's incarnation disappeared 6 years ago when its time in the physical world ended. That raises the question, how could this new disciple have been trained by her since then? Kiara speculates that the guy might be lying, but Princess Altair silently concludes that Adarius is indeed her master's disciple, something she knows through Zephyr. However, revealing this openly would raise difficult questions, especially since only she and Ned know about the future. She decides the safest path is to guide the conversation naturally without exposing too much. Philip Pilgrim then shifts focus to the real concern, the sword. If Requiem were a fake, the situation wouldn't be as serious. But the blade is genuine, carrying immense power, and must not fall into the hands of the Demon Lord worshippers. He questions why Adarius would participate in the marriage tournament at all, knowing the duel was public and difficult to cover up. He asks if there's any chance the sword could be a replica. Zephyr, however, points out the suspicious timing, prompting Princess Altair to encourage him to elaborate. Zephyr explains that from the Demon Lord worshippers' perspective, their plans have suffered major setbacks. They failed to acquire the Dragon Heart and lost both Olden and the Twin Knights. Despite this, they managed to recruit Matthias, a close ally of the Holy One, gaining inside access to the Third Parish. To add further confusion, Zephyr says they planted clues to make the Demon Lord worshippers question one another. Evidence at the scene included signs of Olden's demon transformation and traces of something scorched by lightning, both indicating the use of Dragon King-style martial arts. He also mentions that one of Jinryang's disciples likely appeared there, as well as a rare poison, which should not have been present. All of this is designed to redirect suspicion internally. Zephyr concludes that Jinryang, the Holy One, and the agent known as the Tarantula, who joined the Demon Lord worshippers 3 years ago, have likely joined forces and were responsible for eliminating Olden. Zephyr questions how the Demon Lord worshippers could make such a reckless move when the stability of their entire order is at risk. He explains that anyone accused of betrayal will be forced to search outside their ranks to prove their innocence. In doing so, they'll eventually realize that Ned alone isn't behind everything. Lucius will likely become the primary suspect, but those more perceptive will begin to consider the possibility of a hidden mastermind, someone operating behind the scenes, orchestrating events, and assigning roles to both Ned Stryer and the Holy One. Princess Altair sees the implication. Eventually suspicion may fall on her. Philip Pilgrim seeks clarification, asking if Zephyr is suggesting that regardless of whether the Blade Master's sword and disciple are authentic, this whole scenario could be a setup meant to bring her down. Zephyr confirms this, pointing out how conveniently Adarius has appeared, and how dangerous it would be for the princess to travel to Lindell now. They discuss how to verify the sword's authenticity. Princess Altair mentions that Requiem, the Blade Master's sword, is said to react to dragon hearts. If Zephyr touches it, he might sense something. He agrees to travel to Lindell immediately. If the sword is real, he will retrieve it. If it's part of a trap, he will handle it himself. With that, he arrives in Lindell before sunset. On the other side, Adarius waits, having expected the princess, and asks about Zephyr's identity. Zephyr, meanwhile, believes the head of the Demon Lord worshippers has likely heard rumors about Adarius by now, though he won't act just yet. Despite his wariness toward the Blade Master, he doesn't expect any major interference for the next 2 years. Zephyr didn't come here because of Adarius's fame, but for another reason altogether. Noticing him, one of the girls challenges Zephyr, defending Adarius's win and inviting him to speak. Before the situation escalates, Adarius calmly steps forward, joking that his master said he'd meet interesting warriors here. He seems amused at how quickly he's found someone worth fighting. When Adarius offers to take their fight elsewhere, Zephyr agrees but warns him to listen carefully. Internally, Zephyr senses his arrogance, almost as if he expects to be followed like a master commands a dog. He activates the unique dragon ability called Dragon Tongue, and as it activates, Adarius finds his body moving against his will and collapses, confused. Without further comment, Zephyr turns and walks away. His girls, watching it all unfold in panic, wonder what they should do next. She notes that Adarius has been taken away, and whatever skill Zephyr used had an unusual and powerful effect. The girl, whose name is Nina, suggests they should go help Adarius, concerned by the dangerous look in Zephyr's eyes. However, a nun dispatched from the Sky Temple to Baron family intervenes, saying there's no need. She believes Adarius can handle the situation on his own, and advises them to stay out of it. She also recalls the day Adarius first arrived at the fortress. As Adarius was sitting quietly at the edge of a building when Nina joined him, She expressed regret that a month has already passed and apologizes for keeping him at their fortress. She encouraged him to seek out Princess Altair, just as his teacher had wanted. Idarius, however, said he'll do that later, explaining he can't walk away when so many monsters still threaten the area. Nina remembers how Idarius saved the fortress single-handedly during a major monster wave. Though rough around the edges, she appreciates his strong heart. The sister comments that someone might be falling for him, then adds that as stronger monsters began appearing, Idarius fought with increasing intensity, often skipping rest, food, or sleep. Eventually, he charged alone into the boss monster's den and defeated it a week later, after luring it out and toying with it during battle. His fighting seemed almost possessed, wild and unrelenting. Over the next 6 months, Idarius cleared 3 nearby territories of monsters. Baron Risha, impressed by Idarius's strength, thanked him for defending their lands and marveled at how someone only 18 could be so powerful. Despite knowing that Idarius's goal is to marry Princess Altair, he proposed that he marry his daughter instead, promising to make it worthwhile. Idarius politely declined, saying he must go to the princess, but Baron insisted his daughter should accompany him. The sister supports the idea, commenting that Idarius is reckless and only focused on battle. She warns that he doesn't react well to being interrupted during a fight. When Nina asks for guidance, she suggests they follow Idarius from a distance and observe in secret. Meanwhile, outside, Zephyr is calmly served tea while Idarius lies tied up on the ground. However, Idarius soon manages to free himself from the restraints, shouting triumphantly that he is free. Zephyr observes this with mild surprise. Most knights would take at least 30 minutes to break a basic dragon tongue, yet Idarius manages it in just 12 minutes, a clear sign of the powerful item in his possession. Idarius also hadn't expected a human to use such advanced dragon-related magic, and the sensation reminds him of his own master. Meanwhile, he speculates about Zephyr's true nature, wondering if he's a dragon servant or perhaps carrying a dragon heart. He uses Cradle of the Earth, a rare ability tied to the white dragon which allows the user to hide items in an underground inventory. Idarius quickly decides it doesn't matter. His master warned him never to go easy on opponents like Zephyr. He formally introduces himself, a disciple of Blade Master John Howell. Seeing him, our boy knows why he stands above most warriors. Exceptional natural talent, elite training, and a legendary item. That item is the Silver Lion Mithril Armor, crafted from the bones of the white dragon. The armor nullifies a wide range of debuffs, resisting temperature extremes, poison, curses, and even the weakening effects of dragon skills. This armor explains how Idarius has survived intense battles and even fought dragons without possessing a dragon heart. Zephyr notes that he already wears the armor and evaluates his combat potential. He then draws his own weapon from a silver key. His sword Graham is a famed dragon-slaying blade forged 1,000 years ago. Zephyr reveals that the blade is freshly soaked in dragon's blood and confirms he carries a dragon heart within his chest. To test him, Zephyr pours water into a glass and lays out a challenge. If a single drop spills during their fight, Idarius wins. If that happens, Zephyr will hand over both Graham and the dragon heart. Idarius asks if he wants Requiem in return, but the boy replies that if he does manage to win, he can keep the sword. However, Zephyr will earn the right to choose a nickname for him, suggesting playful insults like Whitey Baddock or simply Mutt. As the duel begins, Zephyr mocks him for having crawled behind him for 12 minutes under the dragon tongue, suggesting that Mutt is already a generous nickname for someone with his level of intelligence. With that, the two clash. Zephyr strikes first, and the guy blocks the blow, acknowledging his confidence. He raises the stakes, saying that if he loses, he'll willingly become Zephyr's lapdog. Both fighters push forward with full force. Idarius quickly notes Zephyr's skill, impressed by how effortlessly he wields a massive sword with just one hand. Curious to test his own strength, he activates Lion's Roar, a unique ability granted by the Silver Lion Mithril Armor. With his defenses heightened, he launches an aggressive attack, but Zephyr immediately counters, striking with enough force to make him crash with a massive blast. His girlfriends and an old man observing the fight reflect that Idarius has grown even stronger since their last meeting. Meanwhile, Idarius leaps into the air and charges straight at Zephyr with his powerful sword crackling with energy. However, our boy calmly blocks the attack, which only excites Idarius more. He calls it a real challenge. But to his shock, Zephyr suddenly uses his Dark Hand spell, gripping Idarius mid-air and slamming him into the ground with tremendous force. Stunned, Idarius wonders where such overwhelming power is coming from. He finds himself unable to move, as if something unseen is pinning his entire body in place. Zephyr stands calmly, still holding his glass of water. For Idarius, it becomes clear. Zephyr just used Dragon's Way, a technique powered by an absorbed dragon heart. The ability allows the user to summon the image of the dragon as it once was, granting them the same powers and attributes. Using telekinesis, Zephyr subdues him while reflecting on their past. In his previous life, Adarius was already considered the strongest among the 10 great warriors, making him a priority for recruitment. Zephyr had always intended to test him this way. Now, seeing his current level, he realizes Adarius still has a long way to go, and likely experienced a dramatic leap in strength later in life. He recalls the exact cause of that growth, and feels relieved that if he had left Lindell Fortress out of boredom, they might never have crossed paths again. Back then, Zephyr wouldn't have had the strength to restrain Adarius. But this time, he knows the outcome will be different. In this life, he becomes the first truly powerful opponent Zephyr has faced since leaving his master's side. He sees potential in him, believing that this time he will grow stronger, not alone, but with Adarius as his sword. As their battle concludes, Zephyr acknowledges his victory and tells him to accept him as his master, giving him the nickname Mutt. The scene shifts to 6 years earlier. A gray-haired woman, Princess Altair's teacher, grabs her arm and tells her that her time is nearly over. She calls Altair her beloved disciple and says she has taught her all she can. Although her instruction is incomplete, she believes she will find a way to finish the magic herself. She stresses the importance of defeating the head of the Demon Lord worshippers. Having spent 25 years in this physical incarnation, the teacher reflects on her long journey filled with both failures and promising students. Some quit halfway, others were lost to corruption, but Altair stood firm. The teacher feels proud to have her as a final student, confident she will continue fighting and inspire hope in the world. She quietly wishes she could have fully healed her disciples' emotional wounds, and hopes someone will be there to stand by her when she eventually reunites with her original self. As her physical form begins to dissolve, she senses something is wrong. Instead of returning peacefully, her spirit is suddenly pulled elsewhere, as though caught in a trap. Disoriented and unable to breathe properly even in spiritual form, she finds herself in a strange place filled with dust. In her weakened state, she becomes trapped in the body of a small lizard and is then caught by a young orphan boy, Adarius. He casually contemplates whether to grill or boil her, completely unaware of her true identity. The dragon spirit is in disbelief, internally protesting the absurdity of being eaten by a child. Back in the present, Adarius explains how he became the Blade Master's disciple. She trained him in swordsmanship until her physical form faded about 6 months ago. Before parting, she entrusted him with a sword and armor, asking him to aid Princess Altair. Adarius, true to his word, especially when it involves a bet, now pledges himself as a loyal follower, ready to do whatever is asked of him. Watching all of this, Zephyr is pleased. Adarius, once wild and untamed, now shows humility and discipline, proof that the encounter has tempered him. Zephyr sees this change as inevitable, knowing how hard it must have been for a battle-hungry warrior to train in seclusion as a dragon's disciple. Meanwhile, badly beaten, Adarius reflects on how dull combat has felt since leaving his master. Bandits, knights, even boss monsters, none offer a real challenge. Disillusioned, he begins to question if this is all there is to fighting, and wonders where he'll find that same thrill again. But after meeting Zephyr, it feels like he's found his answer. Adarius knows Zephyr still hasn't shown the full extent of his abilities, and he's desperate to uncover what he's hiding. He wants to fight him again someday, hoping that next time, he'll win. But he also understands that raising a warrior like him is like raising a dog. You can't just train them to bite on command. Zephyr jokingly asks if he also wants snacks and plays with him. Adarius excitedly confirms, assuring he'll have the energy to do whatever's needed. Hearing that, Zephyr calls him closer, then suddenly flicks him so hard that in a split second, his forehead caves in. The force is so intense, Adarius is sent crashing into the wall with a thunderous impact. After that, Zephyr calmly reminds him to keep his distance, and warns him not to forget that the White Dragon, his master, won't return to the physical world for a long time. Her final message was an instruction to protect the princess, and Zephyr questions whether risking his life in a duel is really the best way to honor that wish. Though Zephyr finds his personality irritating, he can't ignore the fact that he won the marriage tournament, and thus has a legitimate say in certain matters. While he has no intention of driving him away, he decides it's best to keep him under observation. Adarius accepts the decision and thanks him, to which Zephyr casually loads up his hand with mana and responds that he'll need some kind of safety measure, just in case. 2 days later, in the third parish of the Temple of Light, Ned, while spying, witnesses something troubling. Although the knights belong to different factions, they are all officially temple knights. However, using the potion of true sight, which reveals the hidden marks of Demon Lord worshippers, he sees the truth that many of them have been compromised. Ophelia, who is with him, explains that the Demon Lord worshippers have likely infiltrated, or even taken control of, these units. For now, they're simply demonstrating their power. Since they still operate under the temple's banner, they won't initiate a full siege without a clear excuse, such as undeniable proof of Cardinal Olden's murder or the theft of the dragon's heart. Until then, they wait, ready to strike when the moment comes. That's why Zephyr told them that it all comes down to timing. Since the enemy hasn't found their excuse yet, it's a small relief. Both Ned and Ophelia are here to scout the situation and to make contact with Lucius, who remains under lockdown. They were chosen for this task because of their speed and stealth. However, an unexpected complication arises. Due to the power of the bands they wear, they're forced to hold hands, which they both find awkward. Just before leaving the Great Elfin Forest, the Elfin Queen gave them these bracelets. According to her, holding hands while wearing them activates a combined stealth effect, something they now have no choice but to rely on. Both of them feel annoyed at the idea of having to hold hands, but Altair reminded them that they already agreed to it. She explained that their mission included stopping individuals with exceptional abilities from interfering, people like the smiling woman. Ophelia was the only one capable of recognizing her, which makes her presence essential. Meanwhile, the Third Parish is already preparing for an invasion. They've used enchanted items to set traps and build hidden tombs, turning the entire parish into a makeshift dungeon. The one who helped Lucius set up the traps was Ned, so he knew exactly where each item is placed and how they work. Altair saw the value in both of them working together and encouraged them to hold hands to maintain their shared stealth. The suggestion made them both visibly uncomfortable, leaving them wondering what exactly they've gotten themselves into. A while back, after the dragon raid ended, Altair ordered the party members from Danakil and the Magic Tower to remain in the forest for a while. She also instructed the healers to assist with recovery during that time. Meanwhile, the mage Milia felt nervous about the assignment. She was hoping Altair would recommend her for her thesis, and the unexpected delay unsettled her. However, Daisy tried to reassure her, pointing out that being close to the Elven Princess could greatly benefit her academic career. Milia quickly understood the opportunity, and also recalled Altair asking them to develop a special tool for the Ice Dragon raid. Recognizing this as her chance to make a name for herself, Daisy eagerly shared her blueprints and designs. She hoped to prove herself as a loyal servant to Her Highness. To achieve that, she knew she would need Milia's help, so she began pursuing her support. After that, the rest of the party members were sent to the Third Parish. Back in the camp, Zephyr forces Adarius to cut onions by activating the training mode on his silver helmet. The helmet, a gift from the White Dragon, includes a hidden feature that can be triggered using the dragon tongue. Adarius, clearly annoyed, blames the White Dragon for leaving that function enabled. Now, he's stuck chopping onions against his will. Meanwhile, Zephyr stands nearby, casually controlling the training mode through the lion's emblem on Adarius's helmet. By activating it remotely, he manages to keep Adarius busy while giving himself a chance to rest. Still, Zephyr knows that Adarius's presence here isn't driven purely by a desire for battle. He senses that this boy is meant for more, that in a few years he'll awaken a different talent that could completely reshape his path. Many people unknowingly rely on him. In his past life, their efforts failed, and though Adarius gave his all, he couldn't protect everyone. Zephyr understands that if Adarius ever loses his way, the consequences could be disastrous. He's even prepared to kill him if necessary. At the same time, Zephyr prepares food for his new guests, knowing they're likely arriving at the Third Parish by now. He also has a serious problem to solve before heading there himself, one that explains why he couldn't use the Sword of Light during his fight with Black Moon. He knows that if low stats were truly the reason, he shouldn't have been able to wield his power against the worshipper's leader, and also the strange secrecy pact placed by him. As he glances at the silver key in his hand, he realizes he must uncover the truth behind it all before entering the Temple of Light. A while later, Zephyr manages to forge two powerful weapons, which immediately catch Adarius off guard. Shocked by their presence, Adarius shows visible excitement, prompting Zephyr to ask if he can use anything besides a sword. The boy eagerly says yes, expecting it to be a gift, only to be struck hard by the sudden weight of the hammer and axe, knocking him to the ground. Noticing that the axe works better, Zephyr hands it to him and orders him to cut down a tree outside and carve a cute squirrel into it. Adarius is visibly annoyed, but Zephyr pushes him, casually mentioning that the others were able to do it just fine, implying that he might lack control over his mana. Challenging his pride, Zephyr strikes a nerve. Adarius, fueled by ego, yells that he can absolutely do it. Without hesitation, Zephyr sets a deadline. The carving must be completed within a few hours, and Adarius is not allowed to leave the castle grounds. To enforce it, he activates a command through the silver helmet, locking Adarius within a set perimeter. Shocked by the restriction, Adarius still follows the order and rushes off to begin the task. Meanwhile, Zephyr returns to his own work and activates the silver key, ready to face whatever it reveals. Meanwhile, in the underground waterways of the Third Parish, Ned and Ophelia move stealthily through the shadows. The parish itself is massive, practically a fortress, with high walls and a food supply capable of sustaining it even if completely sealed off. This time, even the carrier pigeons are blocked to prevent the smiling woman or the demon lord worshippers from receiving any information from within. However, the sewage system remains a weak point. It can't be fully sealed off, and Ned knows it's the most likely route for invaders. Opening a grated door, he uses a magic tool called the Labyrinth Maker, a device that distorts space, allowing only those who follow a specific choice to pass through. Its location is also magically hidden. He reminds Ophelia of the method he explained to her earlier. To activate the path, both of them begin dancing, an unusual but necessary ritual to meet the entrance requirements. Embarrassed, They go through the steps, and Ophelia quietly questions who in their right mind would design something like this. As they continue, each specific dance unlocks a different layer of the magical entrance. But when they reach the ballroom dance requirement, Ophelia accidentally steps on Ned's foot. As a result, they fail to meet the full entrance condition and are immediately ejected from the pathway, forced to start over from the beginning. At the same time, inside the main building, Lucius gazes out the window. Without warning, someone sneaks up on him and holds a knife to his head. Despite the threat, Lucius remains calm, more surprised than frightened that someone managed to slip past the heavy security. With a faint smile, he turns his head slightly, curious to know what this intruder wants from him. The intruder announces it's a robbery, but Lucius remains calm and replies that he has nothing left to steal. With a swift move, he spins around and grabs the intruder, only to realize it's his wife, playfully teasing him. The tension fades into laughter as the two begin to flirt and share a moment of light-hearted affection. Later, after spending some personal time together, they sit down for dinner. The Holy One feels relieved to witness a peaceful gathering like this after such a long time. For Lucius, it feels almost like a holiday, a rare moment of calm. Ever since he purged the parish of demon worshippers, nearly half of its high-ranking priests have been removed. The raid also claimed many temple knights, leaving a noticeable shortage of capable people for important roles. Amidst the growing pressure, these quiet moments with his family feel like a blessing. He knows that heavier battles lie ahead, and when they come, there will be little time for gatherings like this. He then gets tensed, recalling the time when a holy priest from the central parish revealed that if he cleared the abominable princess's dungeon and presented the results to the temple, they would consider releasing the woman he brought from the Twilight Mansion. Until then, she would remain confined in the third parish. According to the priest, this was already a generous offer, as by temple rules, the woman should have been kept in the underground prison. The situation leaves him confused. A woman who had lived 100 years inside a dungeon and possessed strange powers might not even be human. Still, he understands that her freedom depends entirely on the priest in charge and the majority vote of the Inquisition. That's why he considers clearing the tomb of the princess. It's the only way to gain the vote of the one in charge. However, he can't trust them blindly. The temple is unlikely to release her, his wife, so easily. He also suspects that some of the temple's higher ranks may be secret followers of the Demon Lord and might vote against her. Worst of all, if things go wrong, she could face a far worse fate. Ensuring her safety remains Lucius's top priority. Just as she prepares to return to isolation, she suddenly loses consciousness, catching him off guard. The Holy One quickly suspects sleeping gas, likely the work of an intruder, and immediately activates his rosary's dimension magic, forming a barrier around himself. While the barrier shields him from further exposure, he still needs to locate the intruder. To his surprise, the intruder reveals himself without hesitation, and it's Fade. Fade is already sitting beside him, casually smoking. Lucius hadn't even noticed him arrive. Despite his relaxed posture, Fade shows no openings. Lucius also spots a tattoo on the man's arm, one that represents the legendary Assassin Guild. This realization makes him uneasy. If the man truly belongs to that guild, he likely possesses advanced skills in both combat and poison. While such toxins may have little effect on Lucius himself, they clearly work against his wife and son. What puzzles him, however, is the use of sleeping gas. A true assassin would more logically use poison to take them hostage and demand something in exchange for the antidote. The intruder's timing, confidence, and behavior all seem off. Lucius begins to suspect this might be some kind of test, perhaps a riddle with deeper meaning. He considers whether this man was sent by his father. Fade confirms this, implying that Lucius's mind is still functioning clearly, exactly as it should be. Lucius's father is Duke Cesare, the leader of the Cayenne Kingdom's Eastern Alliance. His territory is known to host many high-profile guests, and rumors suggest that among them are royals from fallen kingdoms and even assassins. Fade reveals that the Duke sent him to check on his son. He explains that he infiltrated the temple a week ago, assessed the situation, and even forced the priest to cooperate using a truth serum. He also confirmed whether Lucius had been infected with the worm or not. This information catches Lucius off guard, but he quickly seizes the opportunity to make a request. He asks Fade to inform his father that he intends to repay the loss of the dragon heart by investing in the princess. Fade agrees and adds that Lucius's wife and son will wake in 6 hours, so there's no need to use purification magic. With that settled, Fade shifts to the original purpose of his visit. His expression turns serious as he asks about Zephyr. Lucius begins to question how Fade knows that name, but Fade quickly interrupts, warning him that he isn't the one who should be asking questions. Instead, he should be thinking about the consequences of giving the wrong answer. Fade goes on to reveal that he has poisoned the top 50 priests with a slow-acting toxin and spread traces of it throughout the area. Eventually, they will be forced to escape through the culvert. This deeply worries Lucius. The culvert is part of the sewage system, and if even one of them escapes that way, their testimony will give others a reason to act. Those who have been waiting for justification to move against him, perhaps even launch a siege, will find what they need. Fade then opens a small bottle containing the antidote and offers to hand it over, but only if Lucius reveals everything he knows about Zephyr. The third parish culvert is no ordinary passage. It's surrounded by a space-distorting force field, requiring designated magic to enter. However, anything inside can exit without restriction. Security measures are in place, including stationed soldiers, but the strongest layer of defense lies in the hidden runestones and the magic formation that connects them, completely invisible to the naked eye. Their purpose is simple, to trigger alarms if anyone passes through without authorization. Soon enough, Lucius hears multiple alarms ringing in succession, confirming what Fade had already told him. Fade presses further, warning that only 5 minutes remain, and demands the information quickly. Despite the urgency, Lucius remains firm. He argues that his knights are already deployed in the chamber beside the culvert, and will be able to subdue the priests with ease. At the same time, Lucius realizes something important. Fade has offered him the antidote, yet insists the priests are already in the culvert. This suggests the poison can be purged remotely, even without the antidote. Charging his holy light into his relic, Lucius confidently concludes that if he defeats Fade now, he may still find a way to forcefully detoxify the affected priests. Feeling that the balance has shifted in his favor, the Holy One demands to know who Fade really is. But Fade is already one step ahead. Without hesitation, he pulls out the rosaries of Lucius's knights and calmly reveals that they've all already been put to sleep. Meanwhile, in the knights' waiting room, they are all already deep in sleep, lost in their own dream worlds. Back in the chamber, Fade draws his blade and points it at Lucius, stating that the only one at a disadvantage here is Lucius, whether he wants to fight or prolong this. But before he can finish, someone strikes him from behind with a powerful thunderclap-like slap. It's Ned. Fade reels in shock. Despite being on guard, this man still managed to land a hit. For a moment, he wonders if it's Lucius's trick, but seeing Lucius just as surprised, he realizes it's not. His head begins to spin, and he starts to feel disoriented while a strange scent lingers in the air. While he had been focused on the room, something unfamiliar must have slipped past his senses. Unbeknownst to him, it's Ned's mist bracelet, an artifact with an exceptionally strong stealth effect, even when only one side of the pair is worn. Fade grows increasingly uneasy. Observing Ned's stance, he realizes the man is intentionally hiding his weapon, keeping his moves unpredictable. Meanwhile, Ned sticks to a hit-and-run strategy, fully aware that getting caught in close combat with a poison user like Fade could be dangerous. Suddenly, Fade draws his whip sword and begins swinging it wildly. The whip is laced with poison, and his attacks sweep through the entire area, leaving little room for mistakes. Still, Ned manages to dodge each strike with precision. As he evades, he recalls something Zephyr told him about Fade, and that if the chance ever came, he should try to convince him to join their party. Ned feels slightly concerned, but according to Zephyr, he's the perfect person for this task. Fade is someone who doesn't respect the weak, so if Ned can beat him, there's a strong chance he'll join their side. Zephyr also warned that Fade is a poison user, and one of his toxins enhances his physical strength. Depending on the type and amount used, the intensity of that boost can vary. However, even at its peak, it won't surpass Ned's strength. Ned knows Zephyr is once again sending him to do something ridiculous, but deep down, he understands why. Zephyr trusts him, not just because of his strength, but because Ned is the only one capable of dispelling stealth magic. On top of that, he carries the blessing of the Elf Queen, making him uniquely suited for this encounter. Back in the present, Lucius breathes a sigh of relief upon seeing Ned. His presence confirms that the dragon raid was also a success. With that in mind, Lucius understands what he must do next. Meanwhile, Fade stands face to face with Ned, still trying to make sense of what just happened. He's puzzled, not just about how his stealth was broken, but also by the strange force Ned used on him. Something about it feels oddly familiar. Meanwhile, in the culverts, Ophelia takes down the poisoned priests and feels grateful that she stayed near the entrance, especially after stepping on Ned's foot 12 times during their dance. However, it's already been an hour since Ned went in, and she knows it's time to follow. To prepare, she uses a magical seed given by the elves. As she pours water over it, the seed transforms into a large, root-covered tree creature. Once it fully forms, she instructs it to guard the entrance, then hurries in, concerned that Ned might be in a situation where he needs her support. Elsewhere, in the angel room, Mercedes hears loud crashing sounds coming from the main hall. She rushes in, only to find Zephyr already there. Surprised, she demands an explanation for his sudden arrival. Zephyr, however, brushes her off, casually claiming that he's just upgrading the place's exterior. Without waiting for a reply, he begins smashing furniture and ornaments with his axe, shocking Mercedes. She starts yelling at him to stop, insisting that the items are valuable and irreplaceable. But Zephyr, visibly irritated, insists that he'll replace them with better ones once he's done. Just as he raises his axe again, the ancient turtle-shaped clock in the room lets out a loud chime. Zephyr pauses, muttering that time's up. He then presents Mercedes a large marinated rack of blue dragon ribs that he prepared using his grandfather's recipe. The dish is coated with a special poison, as a normal knife can't even leave a scratch on the meat. According to him, he used a toxin called venom spear, then purified it using black moonstone to remove the poison's harmful properties. After neutralizing its effect, he sealed the purified venom into a jar in liquid form. To cook the ribs, he uses weak flames produced from dragon breath, applying just enough heat to slowly roast the meat until it reaches perfect tenderness. The result is a rare delicacy. Even Mercedes, for a brief moment, is drawn in by the rich aroma, but she quickly reminds herself that this might be part of his trap. She plays along, telling Zephyr that she designed the room for him to do whatever he wants, cook, destroy, indulge, but warns him that if he thinks causing chaos will help his cause, he's mistaken. She calls his behavior pointless, but Zephyr calmly begins slicing the meat and offers her a taste. Despite her annoyance, Mercedes can't resist the flavor. As she takes a bite, Zephyr casually asks how it tastes, but his tone shifts suddenly. He grabs her by the mouth, calling them untrustworthy and demanding to know what really happened. He's furious. He had believed the Sword of Light was meant for him, but just as he was about to use it, he was told he couldn't. Mercedes insists that they don't know what he's talking about, but Zephyr doesn't believe her. He throws her to the ground in frustration, declaring that if this is the kind of deception they want to play, then he'll do whatever he pleases. Without hesitation, he sits on the throne and announces that his time as a tool is over. From now on, he'll sit back, eat, and let the gods watch. If they want anything from him, they'd better pay more. He then orders the angel to leave. Mercedes, enraged by his arrogance, can't believe a mere human dares speak to them this way and act so shamelessly. Just as she prepares to retaliate, 2 glowing letters descend from the sky and crash before them. She's stunned that the gods have actually responded to his tantrum. She turns to Zephyr and congratulates him, saying he's gotten what he wanted. Zephyr, slightly confused, listens as she explains. These are sealed letters from the gods, each containing divine explanations and rewards. However, he can only open one. Once he chooses, the other will vanish. The 2 letters are from the god of light and the god of sky, and now Zephyr must choose between them. Back in the 3rd parish, Ned and Fade clash, both swinging their blades with precision. Fade, however, has already interrogated the nun Rose. Under torture, she revealed that Zephyr was using a strange fighting style she had never seen before. She also claimed he used to inject himself with poison through a needle, and that the last time she saw him, he was following the Saints' raid party. That was all she knew. Now, as Fade fights, he is certain the one facing him is Ned, while the man with silver hair will be Zephyr. Still, something about Ned's movements unsettles him. The way he fights seems to reveal something deeper, something about who he truly is. As their swords collide, Fade asks how he acquired these skills so quickly and what he might have been doing 4 years ago. He suspects that he might have been trained in Eastern martial arts, and perhaps once worked as an assassin. Distracted by the thought, Ned launches a strike, but Fade blocks it and counters with a barrage of poison needles. Ned quickly neutralizes them all, but he follows up with a cloud of poison smoke. Ned stays one step ahead, dispersing the smoke with a sharp clap that sends out a shockwave, catching Fade off guard. Only then does Fade realize that during their fight, Lucius has slipped out through the door. It becomes clear to him that Ned revealed himself to buy time for the Holy One's escape. Still, he finds it foolish that Lucius didn't choose to help Ned instead. Meanwhile, Ned feels confident. Lucius's speed and healing abilities may not be useful in direct combat, but they are ideal for protecting his wife and child. He also knows that defeating Fade will require something special, though the ability's activation conditions are too difficult to meet in a one-on-one fight. For now, his only option is to buy time until reinforcements arrive. During the fight, Ned tries to reason with Fade. He asks whether his revenge is aimed at the one who uses dragon arts, or at their former master. He then reveals that 4 years ago, he too was in isolation, undergoing training. Now, betrayed by the very people he once trusted, he has aligned himself with the Saints' cause against the worshipper's master. He tries to appeal to Fade, pointing out that their goals seem to align and suggesting that they work together. But the guy remains skeptical. He refuses to trust Ned so easily and insists that he is the one who has been deceived, specifically by Zephyr. According to Fade, Zephyr values nothing and discards anyone once they've outlived their usefulness. He recalls how 4 years ago, Zephyr joined the group of Eastern martial artists, only to betray them. As a result, their entire guild was wiped out. Since then, Fade has followed rumors and leads, always trying to track Zephyr down but never getting close, until now. He sees this moment as his first real clue and has no intention of letting it slip away. Aware that Ned is trying to stall for reinforcements, he vows to capture and torture him to extract the information he needs. With that, Fade morphs a dragon-shaped sword in his hand, declaring that executing traitors remains his final duty as an assassin. The strange weapon and the energy radiating from it take Ned by surprise. It feels suffocating, making him dizzy and disoriented. Suddenly, Fade charges at him, but Ned finds himself distracted, his mind flashing back to the past. He remembers sensing this same kind of energy before, coming from a corrupted monster that polluted its victims' thoughts. It had been a living weapon used by the Demon Lord's cult. That same fear creeps over him now, but just as Fade closes the distance, a powerful kick sends him crashing to the ground. The guy is stunned, especially when he realizes the strike came from the woman beside him. Even more surprising is the fact that she had approached undetected. A moment later, she lets out a sharp scream, and the guy freezes instantly. At first he wonders if the scream itself caused it, but then it hits him. She's like him. Right then, Lucius arrives with his priests. Together they chain Fade to the ground. Now the final task falls to Ned. As he steps forward, Ned recalls the moment the Elf Queen entrusted him with a unique spell. She had warned him that it was dangerous, one sought by humans long ago, though she had refused to give it to them. The spell required him to maintain eye contact and physical contact with the target for 30 seconds. She had made him promise never to abuse it, explaining that it was a power meant to help him recruit a comrade, someone vital in the effort to save mankind. With those words in mind, Ned places his hand firmly on Fade's shoulder and begins to channel the spell. About a month ago, when Zephyr was preparing for the dragon raid, there was a small hut used by Olden's infected subordinates to pass information to him and among themselves. Although Olden was weaker in combat compared to the other apostles, he excelled in intelligence gathering, with contact points spread across the country. He also managed to rise to a high rank within the demon cult due to his strong skills in politics. That, however, is a story of the past. Now, in the same hut, the lifeless bodies of demon cultists lie scattered as the smiling woman steps inside and calmly crushes them underfoot. She's searching for Olden, but the state of the hut tells her everything she needs to know. The cult has descended into chaos following his death. There's no longer any reason to check the other contact points. She begins to suspect that the nobles who have suddenly fallen ill and isolated themselves might be hiding something. Her master's words return to her. Before sending her on this mission, he warned her not to trust anyone outside their sect, not even the cult, because all others care only about deception. He instructed her to investigate everything personally and to execute any traitors herself. At that time, he had also given her his hairpin as a token of proof, so others would recognize her authority. Accepting it, she made a quiet promise not to dishonor the Dragon King's style. Now, as a succeeding disciple, her first task is clear. She will save her master, who has been imprisoned unjustly. However, the master himself had reasoned that if she helped him escape, it would only make him appear guilty. Instead, he instructed her to deal with the traitors first. As she was leaving, he mentioned that some of the other disciples who had gone to search for his lost brother might be on their way back, and she could receive good news about it soon. Later, while looking at his old pocket watch, she realizes that the only thing she remembers after losing her memory is her name, and the gift her brother gave her. She also feels a quiet gratitude toward her master for not forgetting his promise, and prepares to set out on her mission. This new development introduces an unexpected variable to her situation. Her priority now shifts. She must find this element and either take control of it or eliminate it in order to secure victory. The outcome could determine not only her master's position, but also his survival. She's prepared to do whatever it takes to protect him. Meanwhile, outside the main building of the third parish, Ned informs Fade that the Master of the East trained 2 official succeeding disciples, but also secretly groomed several shadow disciples as a precaution. Among them is one reportedly similar to Zephyr or himself, someone said to possess poison or face-shifting techniques. This is what Ned chooses to reveal to Fade, knowing the latter hasn't fully grasped the situation yet. He explains that the Master's shadow disciples were all trained in poison techniques. What bothers Ned, however, is that the poison used by Fade and Zephyr resembles one he encountered 8 years ago, from his own brother, who was later caught by the Master and punished for an entire month. Their master doesn't acknowledge any technique outside of martial arts, so Ned has never heard about this specific poison in detail before. From Ned's words, Fade begins to suspect that the person being discussed might be the same one who guided him 8 years ago. Internally, Ned remains confused. His master taught him Eastern techniques like needle arts and acupoint blocking, so why is Fade, an assassin, using them? The skill is undeniably deadly, and Fade seems increasingly dangerous. Still, there's a silver lining. Fade is sharing information and appears willing to support the siege effort. Then Ned notices something that catches him off guard. The red scar on Fade's face has grown larger since the last time he saw him. For the next few days, a deadlock settles around the castle. The enemies outside make no move. Ophelia remains on watch throughout the day, but there are no signs of siege preparation. The opposing forces appear to be doing nothing while they are training their soldiers. Meanwhile, Lucius, aware that the Blue Dragon raid has drawn most of the attention, begins preparing for a follow-up Ice Dragon raid. But something is still missing, both in his own strategy and in the enemy's. It's as if both sides are waiting, each reaching quietly toward their limit. Then, without warning, the balance breaks. A strange newcomer arrives outside the castle gates. All the soldiers and commanders turn their attention toward him. Lucius, catching sight of the figure, momentarily loses his composure. He can't believe his eyes. It's none other than the old inquisitor of the Third Parish, the former captain of the vanguard party during the raid, Matthias Grimmer. The mages outside recognize him too. To them, he's Lucius's former subordinate, once dismissed from the saint candidacy at a young age, often mocked as the crumb-picking dog of Lucius himself. As the others talk about Matthias, Lucius remains frozen in shock. He clearly remembers seeing Matthias transform into a demon with his own eyes. He had killed him, and the body had turned to ash right in front of him. Ophelia, however, sees through it immediately. She recognizes it as a trick, an illusion created by someone familiar with their history. They likely knew that Matthias's corpse was never recovered. This appears to be the work of the Master of the East, Jinriang, who personally trained that weapon, shaping her into a master of disguise and deception. She is the smiling woman, and while Ophelia understands how the trick works, even she finds it strange that they chose to use Matthias as bait. Still, the intent is clear: draw attention, confuse the enemy, and shift the blame. Meanwhile, Matthias begins weaving a false narrative. He claims he and others were part of the original raid party, but were abandoned as soon as they uncovered Lucius's alleged plan. He insists that Lucius had plotted to scam his investors, steal the dragon's heart, and keep the profits for himself. According to him, during this betrayal, Lucius also allied with the demon worshipper Ned. Matthias then goes further. He formally accuses Lucius of blasphemy, invoking official authority to put a target on his back. Ned is also visibly confused that Matthias looks just like his older sister. He struggles to understand how she could accuse him of worshipping a demon lord in front of so many people. He recalls Zephyr once saying that she lost her memories in an accident as a child and doesn't even remember his name. Meanwhile, one of the waiting party members shows interest in the Matthias declaration. Though he finds the situation amusing, he acknowledges that, despite being a senior inquisitor, he lacks the authority to detain the Holy One, who vastly outranks him. He can only bring formal charges, and for them to take effect, at least 3 high-ranking priests must approve. As he removes his mask, Benjamin reveals that 3 such priests are present, and warns that if his accusation is false, he will be executed immediately for insulting the Holy One. He then activates a hero-grade holy relic called Themis's Judgment, a tool from the Old Kingdom that was used in trials. It automatically fires an arrow at anyone giving false testimony, and can be used 3 times a day. He presents the relic and commands everyone to give their testimony, claiming the angel is watching. He directs the relic toward Matthias and accuses the Holy One of working with demon lord worshippers. The smiling woman recalls that the relic once belonged to the ancient inquisitor Themis, who blinded herself to ensure fairness and relied on hearing alone to detect lies. The relic works by analyzing subtle sounds like heartbeat, breath, and vocal tremors for signs of anxiety. However, Smiling Woman is an expert in manipulating muscle movements and simulating emotions at a subconscious level, confident that even a holy relic can't detect her lies. In her Matthias form, she confirms the accusation. When no arrow is fired, it signals that his statement is true. Cornwall, a first-class inspector from the Temple of Light's Financial Council, acknowledges this and officially approves the accusation. Benjamin, a senior member of the Vatican's Holy Relic Management Team, also gives his approval. The smiling woman silently reflects on the absurdity of the moment. If it's blasphemous to accuse the Holy One, then surely surrounding and threatening him must be blasphemous as well. She sees the crowd as a group that has traded reverence for profit, shameless people waiting for someone else to throw open the temple doors on their behalf. She debates whether she's simply relieved to be present, and mentally links the name Matthias to a pyre, imagining it burned under the title of the Holy One. Her thoughts turn darker, considering whether it might be better to just incinerate everything altogether. Meanwhile, Matthias questions Gertrude about her stance. Internally, Gertrude doesn't care much about financial losses related to the Holy One. Her only concern is whether Olden is still alive. Just as she prepares to respond, a lightning strike interrupts, and Ophelia steps in. She expresses disbelief that such claims are being entertained. Gertrude immediately recognizes her as Ophelia, one of the 10 great warriors and a known bodyguard of the princess. Cornwall too notices the man standing beside her, finding his face oddly familiar. Ophelia turns to Benjamin and asks how reliable Themis's judgment truly is. He responds with confidence, claiming it's perfectly accurate. She then challenges this certainty, asking whether the relic can account for false testimony delivered under hypnosis or mental suggestion. She argues that even if someone speaks with conviction, the underlying belief might be manipulated. As she points toward Ned, she explains that he was personally sent as reinforcement by Princess Altair to aid the Holy One. She calls him her servant, claiming he slept with her horses in the stables for 12 years. In her eyes, his loyalty is unquestionable. She accuses the one posing as Matthias of fabricating lies and manipulating the situation. At that moment, the disguise begins to fail. Her outer clothing is scorched, and the lightning strike disrupts her mana flow, revealing his true form. The crowd realizes it isn't Lord Matthias at all. It's a woman in disguise. Caught, the impersonator admits she's been exposed again, noting this is the second time Ophelia has foiled her plans. She then turns to Ned, calling him a traitor and vowing to take his life before the day ends. With that, she and her two men take out the Hypnos ocarina and begin to play. In response, a massive corrupted creature rises from the ground. Ned quickly realizes the creature before him is indeed a Shoggoth, but something feels off. The musical pattern needed to control it is unusually long, which signals that the beast has evolved. What they face now isn't a regular Shoggoth, it's a Basilikos. The impersonator, now fully transformed into her true female form, prepares for what's next and asks if they're ready. She announces it's time to begin the Song of Swords and Screams. As her voice echoes, Cornwall feels a wave of fear. He recognizes Basilikos' cry spreading across the battlefield, inducing intense dizziness in anyone without magical protection. A nearby soldier reassures him, stating that the mercenaries will secure a path for retreat. Cornwall soon notices that everyone reacted to a skill the Basilikos had just used. As they move to counterattack, they encounter other monsters. Realizing the scale of the threat, Cornwall identifies it as a full-scale monster attack, with the Basilikos acting as their commander. He reflects that the term Basilikos means small king, and the creature's power certainly lives up to the title. Troops fall back in panic, shouting for help. Benjamin observes the chaos and warns that scattering is dangerous. He recalls that anyone who meets the Basilikos' glowing eyes turns to stone. As he watches people begin to petrify, he summons the Staff of Benevolence. When planted in the ground, it generates a purifying magic circle. Multiple staffs resonate with one another, expanding the circle's protection to a wider area. Using the staff to create barriers, Benjamin orders all parties to focus on defeating the monsters. He then requests Cornwall to buy him some time, claiming he has a way to kill the creature. Cornwall grants permission, and Father Benjamin agrees to leave the task to them. Meanwhile, Cornwall brings out the Spear Servant of the Goddess, an item they had reserved for destroying the castle gate in Sage. When activated, it summons a powerful stone statue that immediately attacks with its spear, creating a massive hole in the monster's body, then follows up with a relentless barrage of strikes. Benjamin reflects on the Basilikos as an evolved form of the Shoggoth, known for their psychological attacks. Like Shoggoths, they induce fear through mind corruption, leading victims to hallucinate. When mental corruption hits 100%, victims enter a berserk state, attacking even their own allies. Physical attacks are useless. Only magical or elemental attacks can cause harm. Fortunately, most of its skills can be neutralized by a priest's purifying magic. While its light-based attacks aren't a concern, Benjamin worries about a unique feature reported in past Basilikos encounters, a second mouth located on its tail. He notes that this mouth can cast a powerful spell after a charge time of 5 minutes to an hour. If the spell activates, up to 80% of the party could be wiped out. Since each Basilikos possesses a different tail-based skill, predicting their behavior is nearly impossible, so preventing skill activation now becomes the top priority. As the battle intensifies, Benjamin asks for a monster's report. A priest informs him that land-based monsters will arrive within 10 minutes, with flying monsters following 2 minutes later. Benjamin acknowledges the urgency and instructs everyone to protect him for the next 3 minutes. He decides it's time to activate the Holy Family's Golden Mirror, a legend-grade holy relic. Meanwhile, at the headquarters of the Holy Relic Management Team, where Mage is standing in front of a portal mirror announces they've received a signal, Father Benjamin has used the Golden Mirror. They state that it's now their turn to assist. For this, they all use their Dagger of the Holy Sanctuary skill, which draws mana from those who wield it. They then use the Golden Mirror to send the gathered mana to Benjamin, who channels it through his relics and feels the overwhelming force. It's far stronger than what he's used to, and he struggles to stay on his feet. He recalls bringing the Golden Mirror as a contingency for a siege. If he had rented it, like the Stake of Faith, he could have used it freely. However, since this relic was specifically assigned for the siege mission, using it outside those bounds would result in severe punishment. Despite this, he decides that survival takes precedence over protocol. Just as he targets the monster, he is shocked when Gertrude grabs him from behind. She reminds him of the rules, warning that the mirror is only authorized for use against fortress gates. Then, for Olden's sake, she forcefully redirects the target toward the gate. As the blast hits the gate, one of the worshipper apostles watching is satisfied with their preparations. The apostle is confident that Gertrude's obsession with Olden will ensure she follows their plans. Meanwhile, another apostle expresses his preference for direct action and would rather confront the threat personally than wait. The other understands but insists that an all-out war must remain the last option. He explains that before launching such a campaign, they need to establish clear justification through formal declarations, repeated negotiations, and explicit orders from their superiors. By following these steps, he believes their actions will be seen as justified. Justification, he adds, ensures the backing of powerful allies and honors the rules of war. Ultimately, it means they won't have to fear retaliation from the Golden Dragon, the kingdom's guardian. The apostle named Othello claims he is trying to drain the Holy One of anything valuable while keeping his own position secure in the spotlight. Another member present, Wilhelmina, acknowledges that such behavior is simply how high society operates. She notes that the apostles are bound by rules. They have risen too high within the Temple of Light to give up their influence now. With that, she urges everyone to gather their strength once again and prepare for a second strike. Back in the fight, on interruption, Cornwall demands to know what Benjamin and Gertrude are doing. The two then proceed to fire a third shot from the Golden Mirror. Meanwhile, in the forest near the third parish, a golem guiding Altair's party reports that the assault has begun and they'll reach the weakened temple barrier in 30 minutes. Elise suspects the Golden Mirror is responsible, explaining that it uses concentrated divine energy or mana to generate a brief vortex of destructive power. Princess Altair expresses concern that even the protective force field generated by the Dungeon Princess relic may not hold much longer. Dariel offers to provide cover fire with an arrow and asks Kiara to calculate the coordinates. She requests 15 seconds, but as she begins the calculations, Dariel notices something unexpected. Without hesitation, he orders everyone to jump on the count of 3. Despite their efforts to dodge the incoming slash, some soldiers are struck and fall, while Princess Altair watches it all unfold. As the dust settles, they hear a voice mocking their luck. Stepping into view, it's revealed to be Jin Gang, Jinriang's son and the top disciple of the Dragon King style. Drawing his weapons, he declares his intent to send them to hell. Back in the third parish, chaos unfolds as Ned and Ophelia join forces against the Smiling Woman in a 2-on-1 battle. While fighting, Ned attempts to confront her, urging her to remember that he is her younger brother. She refuses to accept it, unable to believe that the person standing before her could be related to her. She lashes out, but Ned sidesteps the strike. She accuses him of being misled and warns that if he intends to deceive others, he should at least be convincing. Suddenly, the sound of a barrier breaking echoes through the area, and the fortress gate collapses. Ophelia quickly assesses the situation and confirms that the defenses have failed. Realizing this, the Smiling Woman activates her electric acceleration ability and dashes toward the temple while Ned and Ophelia immediately give chase. As they sprint after their leader, the Demon Lord worshipper guards begin playing a flute, recognizing that their role is to support her mission at all costs. The sound of the flute triggers the monster's strange mouth ability, designed to hold back the pursuing priests. The monster opens its mouth and roars a spell into the sky, forming a dark magic circle that begins to rain down blood. The priests initially hesitate, confused by the sudden downpour, but their thoughts quickly distort. The cursed rain takes effect instantly. Anyone it touches falls into a frenzy. Even the priests struggle to shield themselves, despite using the purification barriers. Moments later, the situation worsens. The wild monsters arrive and begin attacking indiscriminately, tearing through anyone in their path with brutal force. As Ned flashes through the chaos, he hears the piercing screams of his comrades and realizes how devastating the situation has become. The Demon Lord worshippers, protected by the flute's influence, remain unaffected by the rain. Ophelia too got the protection against it. So Ned finds himself at a crossroads. He must choose between going after his sister or protecting his overwhelmed party members. He recalls Zephyr's words, how eliminating enemies is crucial, but saving those who can still fight is just as important. Numbers matter, and Ned should trust his judgment in the moment. Remembering that, Ned quickly instructs Ophelia to pursue the Smiling Woman, knowing she can identify her on sight. Meanwhile, he turns his focus to dealing with the advancing monsters. He understands that chasing his sister and using the Queen's elf blessing might have been the better option to reach her, but right now, the situation demands something else. As Ophelia closes in on Matthias, ready to strike, the monster suddenly intercepts and traps her before she can land the blow. Just then, the Smiling Woman vanishes and reappears behind her in a flash, charging up her falling thunder attack as she descends. However, before she can strike, a poison whip hits her mid-air, interrupting the assault. It's Fade, making a clutch entrance at the perfect moment. Seeing him, Ned realizes he has strong comrades now, people he can trust. He channels his mana into his sword, determined to clear a path for Zephyr. With renewed resolve, he begins swinging his blade, cutting down monsters and enemies with his powerful electric innate. As he fights, he reminds himself of Zephyr's dream, to become Altair's king. Ned is confident that helping him achieve that dream will bring this conflict to its rightful end. With that belief, he charges forward, entering the mouth of a massive monster with his sword drawn. Meanwhile, outside in the parish, Lucius speaks into a megaphone, addressing all party members and followers of light. It's the first time they've heard his voice in 50 days, and the sudden broadcast stuns everyone. The Holy One continues, explaining that during those days, he prayed to Goddess Arya to deliver their enemies into their hands. Now, he announces that he carries her message. According to him, the goddess urges them not to doubt, and to treat her followers with the same reverence they would show a god. Those who believe will receive her blessing. He then raises his voice, calling for everyone to witness a miracle. A massive beam of light shoots down from the sky, piercing through the monster's body. As everyone looks up, they see Zephyr in his dragon form, holding a lightning bolt weapon. He shot that from the sky in a brilliant flash, lighting up the battlefield. It turns out he had opened the letter from the goddess of light, and with it, the miracle begins. The other party leaders are stunned when they see the boy wielding the sword of light. They can't believe that someone so young holds a high-ranking item capable of dispelling dark magic. They know that this sword only appears once every few hundred years, and is granted exclusively to a chosen one. Their surprise deepens when they notice that, with the sword in hand, the boy now exhibits dragon-like features and radiates an aura strikingly similar to that of the gold dragon. Meanwhile, Zephyr reflects on his past life. At this same point in time back then, he had gone largely unnoticed, overshadowed by Adarius, who took the spotlight. But in hindsight, that anonymity gave him the chance to move in silence, ambush enemies, and seize rare opportunities to grow stronger. Now, he knows that just like before, he could remain hidden behind figures like Lucius or Dariel, but this time, there's no need. He understands it's finally time to step forward and show himself to the world. Just a few days earlier, inside the Silver Key, Mercedes had revealed something that stuck with him. The voice that once stopped him from using the sword wasn't Arya's, because he cannot hear the voice of a god directly. That moment reminded him of a time when he thought he had heard the goddess's voice through Mercedes, but never actually heard it firsthand. He realizes now that he still doesn't know what Arya truly sounds like. Pushing that thought further, Mercedes also disclosed that while the goddess granted him full permission to wield the sword of light, it was the sword itself that rejected him. This brings back another memory. When Mercedes explained that the goddess entrusted him with the sword on one condition: he must protect the Holy One. Only then does everything click into place for Zephyr. He now understands that although he can use the sword freely for 10 months, the moment he carries out the goddess's command, protecting the Holy One, the sword is bound to obey him. 10 months is more than enough time for him to take what he needs. Back in the present, the boy casts his dragon tongue spell, forcing all humans to kneel and freezing the monsters in place. To everyone's shock, the spell works instantly. Everyone stops exactly where they stand. Even Ned and Ophelia fall under its effect. Then, with a single swing, Zephyr slashes through all the frozen monsters, leaving the smiling woman stunned. She doesn't understand what just happened, but quickly realizes that the figure before her isn't the saint with the dragon heart. It's a dragonoid. Now aware of the threat, she knows the only option left is to retreat. Fortunately for her, the chaos Zephyr caused gives her just enough time to shift her appearance. As she prepares to flee, something strikes her from behind, leaving her dazed. It's Fade, once again arriving at the perfect moment. He was watching closely, and noticed that she stole someone's cape and altered her energy signature to mimic someone else. But he never lost track of her. He's certain it's her because he previously marked her with a uniquely scented poison. The scent remains, allowing him to locate her easily by smell alone. Realizing this, the woman silently acknowledges his rare talent. Meanwhile, Zephyr remains deep in thought, aware of how powerful he has become. With the Sword of Light and the 2 dragon hearts within him, thanks to Yggdrasil, his current output reaches 24.5% for both hearts. With all this power, he knows there's no longer any need to hide who he is. He only needs to wait for the right moment to reveal his identity and claim the missing piece of the puzzle. In his past life, no matter how strong he became, people never believed in him. They saw him as inferior simply because he was a slave. That perception cost him valuable opportunities, and was partly to blame for his and Altair's eventual separation. Zephyr finds it ironic now. Despite being the only one capable of saving them, the powerful figures of that time refused to acknowledge him. They never allowed him to take a leading role, all because of pride and ego, even in situations where cooperation was essential to survive. Still, despite their stubbornness, he chose to help them. He knew he needed numbers to face the overwhelming enemies ahead, and powerful allies were necessary, regardless of their attitudes. Now in the present, he understands that he can't win the Great War with just a handful of elites. They need someone the people can rally behind, and that role is determined by the one who holds the Sword of Light. Right now, that person is Zephyr, with undeniable proof of his status as the chosen one in his hands. Even Lucius kneels before him, saying he has been waiting for this moment. Zephyr confirms that he completed what Lucius had asked of him. Then, from within his silver key, he pulls out the severed head of the blue dragon, presenting it to reveal the deeper issue, the corruption rooted in Danakil. Seeing the dragon's head, the leaders are in complete disbelief. That same day, Lucius's public prayer spreads rapidly across the entire continent. News of the Chosen One's appearance reaches every region, accompanied by letters urging officials and nobles to recognize the decision of the Goddess of Light. The message also mentions the presence of the Dragon Heart, reinforcing the Chosen One's legitimacy. Upon reading it, the royal court expresses concern. It feels dangerously close to embezzlement or overreach. But with the goddess's name involved, the matter becomes nearly impossible to challenge. Moreover, many witnessed the event firsthand, and they know that no one will question the disappearance of the Dragon Heart. With all these factors in play, it becomes clear that Lucius and Zephyr have secured a significant victory. Zephyr is now seen as the central figure in the unfolding story of this world. In response, the people begin the official prayers to goddess Arya, asking for her eternal light and guidance. The scene shifts to Jin Gong as he recalls his earlier days, when he stood out as the most gifted among all the disciples of the Dragon King style. Born with an exceptional physique, he quickly grasped the core principles of martial arts. Even after accepting the demon worshipper's worm, he continued to grow and gained incredible power. His name, meaning strong dragon, seemed perfectly suited to his identity. He sees himself as powerful and firmly on the right path, though he holds a deep dislike for his father, who constantly speaks of returning east to reclaim his throne. Jin Gang also considers Ned foolish and stubborn for refusing the worm. In his view, everyone else is mistaken. He believes that, with the world on the verge of collapse, there's no point in clinging to loyalty or pride. Rejecting the worm to him is nothing more than empty ego. Jin Gang is convinced that in the end times, such values will become irrelevant. The only thing that will matter is who possesses the demon's power capable of adapting beyond the fragile limits of humanity. That, he believes, is the reason both his father exiled him from the East, and why Ned turned against him. Despite this, he holds no respect for Ned, and believes he alone is destined to become the true dragon. However, things haven't unfolded as he expected. At present, Jin Gang is trapped, bound by magical roots and enchanted hand seals cast by Altair's party, including Dariel. He doesn't understand why he's being held. Altair, however, recognizes him immediately as Ned's elder brother, and acknowledges that Jin Gang is clearly stronger than all his siblings, having already defeated dozens of Dragon King-style disciples on his own. However, they manage to trap Jin Gang. While holding him in place with her dark hand and ghost spells, Altair calmly remarks that he should have brought healers with him. Meanwhile, Kiara supports the fight by casting her root spell combined with Pollen Rush, dealing with the remaining Demon Lord worshippers who arrived alongside Jin Gang. Elise tends to healing duties, keeping the party in fighting condition. Dariel's enchanted bow, empowered by Elise's buffs, proves especially effective. His boosted speed allows him to slow down and damage the enemy group significantly. As the battle winds down, Altair looks at Jin Gang and tells him he made a critical mistake by letting his guard down and allowing them time to channel their buff spells. She says his downfall is the result of his own carelessness. Hearing this, Jin Gang grows furious and begins shouting curses at her. But before he can finish, one of Dariel's arrows strikes him directly in the head, blasting it apart. Altair watches as Jin Gang collapses. She knows he had no value as a hostage, and could have become a serious threat if he had joined forces with the smiling woman. In the end, killing him was the safest option. Realizing that Jin Gang was present here, Altair begins to suspect that the smiling woman may now be with Lucius. The flash of light she noticed earlier might have come from Zephyr. As she thinks about this possibility, a slight blush rises on her face, knowing she might see him soon. Afterward, the group scouts the surrounding area, makes sure it's secure, and begins the healing process in preparation to move toward the third parish. At the third parish, Altair's group arrives just as night falls, and finally reunites with Zephyr. Meanwhile, the local residents are shocked at the sight of Dariel. It's been centuries since they last saw an elf. Cornwall, observing from a distance, grows puzzled upon seeing Princess Altair standing so close to Zephyr. He begins to wonder if they had known each other before. Fade, also present, sees Zephyr for the first time. Immediately he realizes that Zephyr is not the one he has been searching for. Ned, noticing Fade deep in thought, offers to introduce him to Zephyr, but Fade refuses, claiming he doesn't like him. His indifference shifts to surprise when Kiara calls out his name. As she runs toward him, he vanishes without a trace. Outside the parish, the 10 strongest challengers begin to retreat. They know they can't confront the Saint right now, and if the Saint truly defeated the Twin Knights, then he may be stronger than any of them, making it pointless to engage at this time. Elsewhere, in one of the temple hallways, a knight arrives to find Gertrude trapped in an enchanted snare. She calls out manically for Olden, insisting she will find him. At the 13th parish, Prince Polaris finishes reading the letter detailing all that has happened. He laughs, amused by the unexpected turn of events. Intrigued, he expresses a desire to meet Zephyr himself. The boy has provided him with so much entertainment that Polaris feels he should be rewarded. Eager for another encounter, he turns to the Golden Dragon and asks whether it's time to arrange a new event for the second round. The next day, all the forces besieging the third parish withdraw. The officials in charge of the sacred relics also retrieve the stake of faith. Meanwhile, the Finance Council expresses satisfaction at a new investment opportunity connected to Zephyr. The parish defenders witness these developments and prepare to relay various updates to their respective clients. Among the most notable news is a possible change in the Ice Dragon raid plans due to the recent arrival of a Dragon Slayer. On the other hand, Gertrude and the knights who had secretly entered the parish in search of Olden are captured and placed in jail, awaiting further investigation. The High Priestess, initially troubled by how they can explain Olden's alleged connection to demon worship, is surprised by how smoothly everything turned out. Strangely, Those involved appear to have lost their memories, which prevents any complications. The priest standing nearby remarks that the situation could have escalated had news of Olden's death become public. He also suspects that the fourth parish may still be plotting something, and believes their retreat is only temporary. To the high priestess, it almost seems as though the situation has been resolved, yet something still feels unfinished. While they escort Lucius, he overhears the conversation and surprises them by confidently declaring it a straightforward victory. In hindsight, he is right. They managed to handle the grime-smiling woman, and even the angel herself appeared, delivering a letter from the goddess of light directly to Lucius. Before departing, she simply reminded him to continue offering prayers. As the Holy One opened the letter, it revealed that an emissary of the goddess would soon arrive from the haven, carrying a divine artifact. Lucius felt deeply honored that the goddess herself sent a message, and immediately assumed the emissary was Zephyr. He became fully committed to fulfilling any task she required. What Lucius didn't know was that the letter was a forgery, written by Zephyr himself after bribing an angel during the Dragon Corpse barbecue. Zephyr knew Lucius would never uncover the truth and quietly planned to reward him later for his unwavering faith. Meanwhile, something more pressing occurs. Fade receives a letter from Lucius's father, informing him of his arrival at the third parish. The Holy One is visibly shocked by the news, but when Fade reveals that his father has instructed him to offer his help, the priest becomes enthusiastic. He recognizes that Fade's presence could be a significant asset in the upcoming Ice Dragon raid. Fade agrees to assist, though he makes it clear that his support stems purely from goodwill, as he feels no personal obligation to be involved. Not far from them, Zephyr arrives and asks Fade if the smiling woman had provided any useful information. He adds that if Fade had known anything about the tarantula, he wouldn't have left in the middle of the night. Fade seems ready to respond but then stops himself. Ned, reflecting on the situation, realizes his suspicion might be accurate. The main problem with the smiling woman lies in the failure of his queen's blessing. It has no effect on her. As a result, they resort to using a truth serum, but even that yields no information about the tarantula. Ned suspects that all Fade managed to obtain was the location of the Dragon King's style, which still leaves many questions unanswered. Ned also recalls that the tarantula are notoriously difficult to track, and with the Jin gang now dead, the only ones who might have information about them are Master and Zephyr. At that moment, Zephyr offers to help Fade take revenge, on the condition that he shares what he knows. He warns him not to refuse. With a sudden burst of movement, Zephyr flashes close to Fade, startling him. Caught off guard, Fade quickly agrees to listen. Later, the entire group gathers for a meeting, where the new party member, Adarius, introduces himself as the wielder of the Requiem sword and a disciple of the White Dragon. He explains that his master instructed him to assist Altair, so he has come to fulfill that order. The group welcomes him warmly, and Altair suggests that he train under Zephyr for the time being. Adarius accepts without hesitation. Though he understands the princess wants him to observe and understand the current situation first, he feels slightly disappointed that he couldn't make a more dramatic entrance by arriving earlier, ideally during the Blue Dragon raid. He holds strong confidence in his own abilities, believing that had he been there, he might have slain the dragon himself with a single strike to the heart. Inwardly, he recalls the words of the White Dragon, that when the demon lord descends upon the world, all dragons will follow him and unleash destruction. His mission, therefore, is clear that he must kill them all before the end times arrive. This is what his master had once told him, while in lizard form, which also implied that he would eventually have to kill the original form of the White Dragon as well. Adarius knows he cannot bring himself to do that. As a result, his goal shifts. Instead of killing, he now aims to prevent the demon lord's descent altogether. He also understands that dragons could be powerful allies if used correctly, and their support might make the coming battles much easier. Still, he feels puzzled as to why Altair hasn't considered this possibility. Then he remembers. Perhaps it's fear. A fear that might be affecting everyone seated around the table, clouding their judgment and making it harder for them to think clearly. Adarius doesn't like this atmosphere, so he decides to stay quiet for now, observe the group, and follow the other party members until he fully understands the situation. While he's lost in thought, Zephyr glances over and notices something about him that he doesn't like. After the meeting, Elsie casts her spell, Angel's Embrace, a strange form of magical health assessment. All the new members are visibly uneasy about it, while Elsie seems to enjoy their discomfort, playfully commenting on how rare it is to examine specimens like a dragon, a seasoned warrior, and an elf. Hearing this, Fade becomes irritated, but to his surprise, Elsie soon discovers that she's unable to inspect him at all. Around the same time, Altair arrives and asks whether she has looked into the smiling woman. Elsie explains that despite fulfilling all the known conditions for the queen's blessing, they were unable to apply it to the woman. Kiara speculates that the woman might already carry a blessing, or perhaps a curse, that causes interference. However, that theory doesn't hold. According to Elsie, they examined everything thoroughly, and the results suggest a different issue. The woman may have a problem with her brain. This revelation surprises Altair. The High Priestess notes that while high-level healing spells can reattach freshly severed fingers, they can't restore parts that were lost years ago. Since the smiling woman was involved in the shipwreck where she lost her memory, it's likely she suffered brain damage and now perceives the world in a fundamentally different way. Elsie points out that the woman didn't even recognize that she was looking directly into Ned's eyes, meaning the conditions for the Queen's blessing were never actually met. This suggests that the smiling woman might no longer see humans as humans at all. Later, Zephyr visits the holding cells to observe her himself. As he approaches, she stares at him without the slightest hesitation in her eyes. 13 years ago, after the boat incident, she was swept away by the waves and washed up on an island. When she regained consciousness, everything around her was dark and silent, except for a constant ringing in her ears. With no memory of who she was, she panicked and screamed. One day, overwhelmed by pain and thoughts of ending her life, she suddenly caught the scent of incense, and the ringing stopped. At that moment, she heard a heavy voice commanding her to open her eyes. When she did, a mysterious master healed her, and her vision began to return, if only slightly. That was the moment she met her mentor. She spent her days learning the language of the East and meditating under the master's guidance. Slowly, a sense of peace began to settle within her. During meditation, her vision gradually improved, but what she saw disturbed her. Everyone around her appeared as monsters. The only person she could recognize as human was herself, reflected in the mirror. Tired of living among monsters, she longed to reunite with her younger brother. The problem was, she had no idea what he looked like. Still, she held on to hope, believing that if they shared any resemblance, she might recognize him when the time came. Then, one day, despite faithfully following everything the master had taught her, her vision became even stranger. She began to see symbols and arrows hovering over people's forms, markings that left her deeply unsettled. In the present, after hearing everything, Fate explains that what she experienced resembles a form of long-term trauma treatment, an extreme method that breaks the brain's normal function to allow the natural flow of mana. The process is brutal, often involving poison, and 9 out of 10 subjects don't survive. However, those who do gain altered sensory abilities. These heightened senses can affect smell, taste, or sight, and sometimes even shift a person's entire perception of reality. As the smiling woman gradually becomes accustomed to the strange figures she sees, she realizes the arrows are actually guides. By adjusting the shape of her face to match their patterns, she discovers she can transform her appearance into someone else entirely. She recalls how her mentor cared for her, showed her her worth, and taught her martial arts. He even tried to locate her younger brother. Determined to repay him, she once set out to retrieve a dragon's heart, but failed. Still, her primary goal remains to save her master. For that, she needs a way out of this prison. Zephyr manages to extract all this simply by watching her closely. She notices him staring and assumes he's acting strange. She then admits she will be killed if released, and makes a final request, to take a bath before she dies. Willing to offer any information in exchange, she pleads with him. If he cannot untie her, she asks if he could wash her himself. Zephyr steps into the cell, tells her to stay still, and gently lifts her head. In that moment, as she looks into his eyes, she believes she has ensnared him with her charm. She believes she has Zephyr under her spell, convinced that he sees her as an unforgettable war trophy and will eventually give in. Desperate to escape, she's willing to do anything, knowing that even those as strong as a dragon heart bearer or the wielder of the Sword of Light can't fully resist their natural instincts. But to her shock, Zephyr leans close to her face and coldly orders her to expel the worm inside her. Almost instantly, she feels something rise in her throat and begins coughing up blood. Zephyr watches from the side, smirking. He remembers her from the past, how she once tried to manipulate him, pretending to be close just to use him before discarding him. But now, in the present, he stomps on the writhing worm she vomits onto the floor as she struggles to breathe. Zephyr states that he could kill her right now, but chooses not to, for her brother's sake. He tells her that her life now depends on her behavior. With those words, he forces her eyes open, anchoring her back to awareness. Suddenly, a blast of light bursts from the cellar, and moments later, Zephyr emerges. Altair, waiting outside, wonders if it's over. Zephyr calmly explains that he made sure she will gradually return to normal, and that her senses, and possibly her memories, may also come back over time. Altair, concerned, asks if the process will take long. Zephyr replies that slowing the side effects of worm removal is the best approach. Still, he's slightly surprised, having assumed that Altair was against rehabilitating the smiling woman, and had intended to kill her instead. Hearing that, Altair admits she did want the smiling woman dead, but also sees the potential in using someone with such rare talents. Deep down, she knows the truth, that the smiling woman is Ned's sister, and of course, she feels responsible for helping her. Meanwhile, back in the cell, the smiling woman lies unconscious. Zephyr, anticipating the possibility, has already placed a safety seal there as a precaution. With that matter temporarily resolved, he shifts his attention to the next pressing issue. In truth, Zephyr never wanted to meet the smiling woman at all. His original intent was to kill her, but because she is Ned's sister, he had no choice. Even so, The moment he saw her in person, he struggled to suppress the emotions she stirred. What troubled him even more was the same question he still couldn't answer. Why did so many individuals willingly follow the demon god cult, even after learning the truth? Why did they remain loyal to someone who brought ruin? He knows he can't afford to ask those questions. The future he's fighting for depends on holding on to the memories he already carries. As he stands lost in thought, a sandal flies past his head. Looking up, he sees Altair at the top of the stairway, smirking slightly. She had intentionally untied it. The moment feels almost surreal. The dark, narrow stairwell, the chill in the air, and Altair's skin faintly glowing in the low light. It all blurs together. Then, on those cold steps, they share a quiet, intimate moment. Zephyr reflects on how deeply he's been wounded in the past, betrayed time and time again. He had built his world in darkness, where trust had no place. But then Altair came. She offered honesty where others brought lies, and somehow became the reason that, no matter how many times he has to start over, he still wants to be with her. The next morning, as the lockdown at the third parish is officially lifted, the council announces a grand ceremony to mark the end of the recent raid. During the banquet that follows, Altair takes the opportunity to reveal her plans for the upcoming Ice Dragon raid. The event also features the spoils from the princess's dungeon raid, along with the presence of several powerful party members, each adding weight and prestige to the gathering. The setup is ideal for attracting investor interest, and Zephyr feels genuinely pleased with how everything is coming together. However, his mood shifts sharply when he spots Polaris entering the main hall, accompanied by a group of knights. Clapping and offering praise, Polaris openly commends Altair, and then turns his attention to Zephyr, highlighting his impressive performance and stating that he had come specifically to meet him in person. The boy, caught off guard, stands in disbelief. He hadn't expected Polaris to appear, and certainly not here. Polaris Albert Cayenne, the first prince of the Cayenne kingdom and the youngest cardinal in the temple, is well known across Aslan. Unlike the sickly second prince, Polaris is celebrated for both his intelligence and appearance, earning him the title of Aslan's brightest star. Zephyr feels uneasy and confused by the unexpected presence of someone with such a status, especially considering Polaris is also the leader of the Demon Lord cult. Before Zephyr can react further, Lucius quickly steps forward to welcome him. Outwardly calm, Lucius is just as unsettled. He knows Polaris has no valid reason to be here and silently vows not to let Zephyr become his next target. Sensing the tension in the room, Polaris attempts to lighten the atmosphere, reminding everyone that he's merely a priest. Then, with a playful smile, he adds that if people find his presence unpleasant, he's prepared something for them. He snaps his fingers, and a group of cheerful children rushes in, surrounding Zephyr. At Polaris's signal, they begin singing in harmony. Zephyr, caught off guard, has no idea what he is trying to accomplish. He then reveals that the children are war refugees and orphans he has personally taken in. He points out that while he himself has limited power to change the world, Zephyr was the one who prevented the recent tragedy at its root. Saying this, he kneels before him and offers thanks. The attendees respond with applause and cheers. Altair, however, remains skeptical. She knows her brother too well to believe he traveled all this way just to offer praise. Something else is at play. Meanwhile, Polaris shifts the topic, smoothly transitioning into a speech about the dungeon bubble collapse and the economic ripple effect it caused across the continent. Polaris explains that new dungeon-related laws have recently been enacted. One of these laws requires that all treasures and loot obtained from dungeon raids must be evaluated by a nationally certified appraiser and reported to the investors. He then reveals another clause stating that all item values must be assessed based on current market conditions and economic trends. To everyone's surprise, he claims that upon review, the current market value of a black dragon heart is listed as 0 gold. He continues, noting that, according to the law, dungeon items do not legally belong to the party until they are officially reported. If any items are used before this reporting, such as healing items or exclusive loot, their value must be reimbursed from the party's profits. Since the dragon heart was valued at 0 gold, Polaris argues that its use should technically cost nothing. However, he implies that this reporting doesn't reflect the truth. At that point, Lucius reacts angrily, but Polaris calmly clarifies that such claims wouldn't come from him directly, but rather from the public. Turning to the room, he addresses everyone, stating that the dragon heart cannot be measured in human currency, as it was used to carry out the goddess's will. Naturally, he concludes, its monetary value would be 0. He then shifts attention back to Zephyr, praising him for acting selflessly, claiming he never cared about treasure or money and acted purely for the sake of the goddess. His tone and words are sweet, but both Lucius and Altair sense something off beneath the surface. Meanwhile, Polaris continues, emphasizing that Zephyr saved everyone from chaos without accepting a single coin in return, which, in his view, makes the dragon heart priceless. Zephyr, however, grows visibly annoyed by the act. The guy continues, stating that as soon as he heard the news, he rushed to his father and requested that Zephyr's arrest be reversed. He then summons a scroll, explaining that afterward, he visited the bishops of every parish and gathered their signatures, all in agreement that Zephyr's actions were a miracle of the goddess and could not be judged by human laws. Placing a hand on the young soldier, he claims that they all respect Zephyr for his help and his sacrifice for humanity. He goes on to announce that the bishops have pledged their full support, promising military aid, resources, and the establishment of a foundation to assist those in need. Hearing this, Lucius realizes the entire scene is an act, but one he didn't expect to unfold this way. The very religious justification they had often used to avoid legal responsibilities is now being turned against them. They are now indirectly forced to provide aid without compensation. If they refuse, the legitimacy of the dragon heart will come under scrutiny, but if they comply, they stand to lose all potential profit. Hearing this, Zephyr glances at Altair, hoping she might intervene. However, he quickly realizes that the one behind all of this is her brother, formerly the Gold Dragon's left arm. He had renounced his claim to the throne and taken priesthood, eventually rising to become a bishop in the Gold Dragon's territory, a position that grants him immense influence. Challenging him is effectively the same as challenging the Golden Dragon itself, making it nearly impossible for anyone to oppose him. The investors, witnessing everything unfold, grow disheartened. Realizing that Polaris is maneuvering to take all the profits for himself, they decide to withdraw, knowing there's no financial gain left for them. At that moment, Polaris steps closer to Zephyr, revealing that he hasn't come to start another war, but simply to defeat him. Despite the tension in the air, Zephyr holds back a laugh, fully aware that the man in front of him is completely absurd. Polaris's actions follow a familiar pattern often used by temple guilds and nobles to suppress smaller guilds and individuals. They start by making vague excuses to cut their targets off from funding, initially keeping their promises once or twice. After that, they begin to stall, claiming the money is still being processed or that approval is needed from another branch. Eventually, the promised support never arrives. As a result, soldiers are left under-equipped, and dungeon raids fail. To keep the strongest members from being recruited by other parties, guilds are forced to overpay them. On top of that, dungeon equipment, especially enchanted or specialized gear, is expensive. There are also ongoing costs for labor and supplies such as potions, food, and camp gear for parties that can range from a dozen to several hundred members. Even the rights to raid a dungeon must be purchased, so when higher-ups monopolize the profits, it becomes a death sentence for the party. This is exactly what Polaris is attempting. Returning to the present, Polaris mocks Zephyr's lack of a proper response. He pushes the idea that, now that he is seen as important, he must follow established rules, regardless of his personal strength. He even suggests that Altair will go broke without any financial products to support her, and since she has a public image to uphold as a princess, Zephyr will be expected to fulfill those expectations. His words are carefully aimed to provoke, pushing Zephyr to the edge of anger, knowing that an impulsive move could lead to serious consequences. But instead of reacting with violence, he calmly begins quoting an old prophecy, one that speaks of a red smoke, like blood, rising from the south and covering the entire world. He says it will be a sign that the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse have risen, bringing war and death across the world. As he quotes the prophecy, Lucius recognizes it immediately. Meanwhile, Zephyr continues to use his silver key to summon the Sword of Light, claiming that an angel told him he would use it to prevent the world's downfall when he first earned the blade. Charging the sword with mana, he firmly states that since the goddess has granted him both the dragon heart and the sword, he cannot hand them over to anyone else. Instead, it will be Princess Altair who decides where the dragon heart belongs. After making this clear, he calmly shakes hands with Polaris and expresses his gratitude. With that, the bishop takes his leave. As he walks away, he's deep in thought. For a mere peasant, Zephyr handled the situation better than expected. He wonders whether he plans to give the dragon heart to Altair in order to strengthen her party against him. The idea darkens Polaris's expression. He feels that Zephyr has chosen a difficult path, one that will eventually ruin him. Polaris firmly believes that all 7 pieces of the dragon's heart must be recovered and reunited. Otherwise, there's no point in having them at all. Even as he returns, he remains lost in thought about Zephyr. He suspects that the boy knows nothing about how the world truly works. His cooperation with Altair, his cryptic prophecy, and his calm behavior all raise doubts in his mind. He doesn't believe Zephyr is acting purely out of goodwill. He considers whether he should have performed a mana dedication ritual to test him, but there were too many eyes on them. Still, he reassures himself, his true goal is to summon the Demon Lord. Everything else is just entertainment for now. Besides, he has prepared a special gift for them, one he crafted himself. The gift turns out to be Adirius, whom Polaris had already met earlier. He had lied to Adirius, claiming he had found a way for him to reunite with his master. Adirius, appearing to believe him, accepted a necklace from Polaris. Back in the third parish, Altair and Zephyr discuss their recent encounter with Polaris. Altair feels relieved that they still possess the dragon heart, though she's slightly surprised to see Zephyr smiling. When she asks about it, he reveals that he had expected a far worse outcome. The meeting also helps explain some of the cult leader's behavior in his previous life. At the time, he was confused by the man's sudden appearance, but after hearing Altair's remarks about the white dragon, he developed a theory. Perhaps the cult leader had shown up to investigate whether the white dragon was involved in Olden's disappearance. Even so, one detail still puzzles him. In his past life, Polaris never took any action against Adarius for 2 whole years, despite Adarius's known connection to the white dragon. The answer, however, comes from Adarius himself. Sometime earlier, Zephyr met Adarius and who showed him his ice dragon deity. From that conversation, he learned that Polaris was never able to collect the dragon hearts. This explains why he seemed relieved during their recent meeting. He likely believed they would never gather enough power to challenge him. With this in mind, Zephyr decides to act. He pretends not to know how to use the dragon heart, and it works just as he hoped. Polaris leaves, choosing to fight through wealth and political influence, exactly how humans tend to operate, and Zephyr understands that well. But when he mentions humans, Altair briefly recalls a memory of her brother in his demon form. Meanwhile, Zephyr continues thinking, if the bishop had revealed his true power, they would all be dead by now, or at the very least, their party would have been forced into a desperate struggle for survival. Yet, Polaris leaves Zephyr untouched and never reveals his allegiance to the Demon Lord worshippers. Our boy suspects there must be rules in place, boundaries Polaris cannot cross, at least for now. He realizes that all Polaris can do is label him a threat to the kingdom and try to eliminate him through the Gold Dragon's influence, likely by triggering internal conflict within the temple. Zephyr finds it almost amusing. Despite all his manipulation and arrogance, he genuinely believes he came out on top. But our boy knows better. He knows that eventually the cult leader will recognize his mistake and regret letting this opportunity slip. And although Polaris took a step back, Zephyr is certain they'll push much further now, especially with Altair by his side. In the next meeting, Zephyr prepares a variety of delicious dishes made from dragon meat, accompanied by a glass of water drawn from the Lake of Life. According to him, this combination helps boost their stats, something they'll need for the upcoming battles in the snowy fields of the Blue Dragon Raid. As he encourages everyone to eat, they're all surprised by how flavorful and nutritious the food is. The water from the Elven Lake not only enhances regeneration, but also extends one's lifespan. While the others enjoy the meal, Altair grows curious about when Zephyr learned to cook. He replies that he picked it up from his grandfather, who once owned a restaurant. Altair makes a light remark in response, but then raises a concern. Ada Ruiz is the only one missing. Zephyr simply notes that dragon meat doesn't sit well with him, avoiding further explanation. Still, she worries that Ada Ruiz might come to resent them. Zephyr, however, feels confident that even if he holds a grudge, he won't act on it, not with Dariel around. Meanwhile, Ada Ruiz quietly concludes that it might be best to eliminate Zephyr now. Despite the cult leader's earlier interference, the dragon raid proceeds as planned and on schedule. In the following meeting, Lucius presents a list of items to be sold at the upcoming Lauren auction. This auction is the largest on the continent, where millions of gold worth of goods are traded, including legendary items. According to the priest, placing an item in the auction is a lengthy process. It takes months to submit an item and even longer for it to be evaluated. Only after all the formal procedures is it added to the official catalog, one that only auction staff are permitted to view. Overall, the auction process typically takes around half a year for an item to be listed. However, Zephyr notices that one particular entry in the catalog is scheduled to go up for bidding in just 2 months. He recalls that once auction dates are finalized, sellers can't cancel their listings unless the auction house finds the item unsatisfactory. That loophole gives them an opportunity. If they offer something better in return, the auction house may cancel the previous request and accept the new one. With that in mind, Zephyr begins reviewing the list, trying to decide which item might be useful for the raid. He also realizes he can't rely on his usual method of consulting the past, as these events haven't occurred yet. He then recalls a significant event. When Ada Ruiz arrived to meet Altair, he brought a large force with him. At that time, Altair and her group had left the castle to pursue Ned, who was fleeing with the dragon heart. With the castle mostly empty, Ada Ruiz decided to seek out the dragon on his own. He claimed he simply intended to communicate with it. When he reached the ice castle where the dragon resided, hoping to establish contact before the princess could, he encountered something entirely unexpected. The ice dragon was not what he had imagined. She appeared as a girl with horns and a commanding presence. As Ada Ruiz stepped inside, she immediately closed the distance, recognizing her sister's scent on him. She had long suspected her sister's involvement in matters like these. Believing that Ada Ruiz had come either to test his strength or the Dragonheart's power, she drew her sword and introduced herself as Marenia, the ice dragon. She then declared that if he wanted anything from her, he would have to defeat her first. Despite being caught off guard, Ada Ruiz feels a flicker of excitement. He and the ice dragon are similar, both driven by passion and a fierce instinct to protect their masters and their kind. With that unspoken understanding, the two clash. She quickly becomes impressed by how well Ada Ruiz holds his ground against her relentless attacks. Knowing that he is her sister's disciple, she expects no less. She then summons hundreds of ice swords and sends them flying toward him. In one powerful swing, Ada Ruiz shatters them all, Without missing a beat, the ice dragon charges forward in a flash, following up her assault. Their fighting styles mirror each other so closely that it seems as though they are reflections. Each strike met with an equal counter, each move answered with matching precision. Meanwhile, her aura intensifies, and with each breath, she begins to freeze the area surrounding her castle. As the battle moves outside, she finally gains the upper hand and brings Aedaruis down. But in that moment she realizes he didn't come to kill her. Curious about him, she chooses to learn more. And while the two remain locked in that fragile pause, unaware of what the future holds, a quiet, magical winter begins around them. Despite being knocked down, Aedaruis stands up and makes another attempt to strike, but the ice dragon easily dodges and counters, sending him back to the ground. She remarks that he needs at least 100 more years of training before he can hope to challenge her. To give him a chance to keep sparring, she summons 7 magical swords and encourages him to try using them, especially one named Requiem. He picks up the sword, and together they continue sparring for hours on end until exhaustion nearly overwhelms him. At one point, he uses a flint to start a fire, something the ice dragon has never seen before. Intrigued, she watches as he prepares food over the flames. They share the meal, chewing through roasted meat. Once finished, they resume sparring until sleep finally overtakes him. As he dozes off, the ice dragon finds herself puzzled by human behavior. Most humans lose their will to fight when faced with her dragon power, yet he remains curious, even eager. She thinks back to her sister's other disciples, recalling how strange they all seemed. The dungeon princess and her armored guard come to mind, the guard especially, whose inhuman strength and presence left a lasting impression. She once saw him as a mere child, but he grew into something that now unsettles her. Now Aedaruis shows promise too. He has a strong physique, adaptable mana control, and excellent spatial awareness. What stands out most is his mindset. He embraces challenges. Even when struck down, he continuously analyzes his technique, reflecting on what went wrong and how to improve. Though he clearly can't match her yet, he trains hard, not for victory, but for the joy of testing himself. Each clash is a chance to grow, and he thrives in the struggle. Aedaruis improved so much that the ice dragon, Marenia, now spars with him in her true form. 3 months into his training, he feels excited by his progress. He can now land hits on Marenia even in her dragon form. However, that excitement quickly turns into panic when he remembers he must return to Lindel Castle in 2 months, as the princess is expected to arrive. In the meantime, he has carved out a small space within the ice to live in. One evening, Marenia calls him outside and shows him the northern lights. As he sits and watches, he is mesmerized by the shifting colors. He recalls something his master once told him, that she too had seen the northern lights with Marenia, and had wished to see them with her again. Hearing this, Marenia reflects on the past. Long ago, the great dragon heart shattered into many pieces, and over the course of 100 years, those pieces became the dragons. Her own fragment was a blend of blue and white. After awakening from the ice, she met her sister. They were different from the others because they shared something deeper. Her sister had a passionate nature, and though both of them were white in appearance, Marenia could never claim the title of the White Dragon, as it already belonged to another. She continues to reflect. After Kaiserus died, her sister went into a long sleep, and the other dragons began to act strangely, preparing for some unknown grand mission. Since then, Marenia hasn't had a conversation like this with anyone, especially not someone who shares memories with her sister. Hearing that, Aedaruis can't hold back his emotions, which the ice dragon immediately notices. Inside, he wrestles with himself. His mission is to eliminate all dragons, but if he follows it to the end, he would have to kill both Marenia and her younger sister. He knows he cannot do that. To express what he truly feels, he uses the Earth's Cradle skill to bring out the preserved body of the white dragon lizard, revealing that it once belonged to his master during the time she traveled with him. The ice dragon senses her sister's aura in it. She even notices the flowers her sister used to love, which stirs her emotions. Meanwhile, Aedaruis excuses himself, saying he must search for another of his master's disciples, Princess Altair. According to what he believes, the princess intends to destroy all dragons, and he plans to support her, following his master's final words. However, he secretly hopes to avoid that outcome. He believes he has found a way to prevent the world's end without killing the dragons, and for that, he needs Marenia's help. It is known that when the end of times arrives, everything, including dragons and the Tree of Life, will turn toward destruction, aligning themselves with the Demon Lord. This is the rule of the end. Only death can escape it. Despite this, the White Dragon was given a second chance by taking possession of a lizard's body. When her health began to fail and her body reached its limit, she revealed to Aedaruis that she cast a spell to pass on her will to him after her death. She was forbidden to speak it while alive, so the spell served as her only means of communication once she passed. She advised Aedaruis to seek out Princess Altair and support her efforts to stop the end of the world, as Altair was determined to destroy all dragons to save it. Even as she shared this, the white dragon struggled to admit that Adaruis might not be able to carry out the task, especially if it meant killing her or her sister. In her final moments, she urged him not only to save the world, but to live for himself. After her death, Adaruis set out to fulfill her mission, but he remained conflicted. The thought of having to destroy her kind weighed heavily on him. He failed to reach a clear decision, but continued moving forward, telling himself he was helping others. One day, inside a dungeon, he encountered something his master once spoke of, a summoning altar for the demon lord. Recognizing it immediately, he destroyed the altar, believing that by eliminating such threats at their source, he could prevent the apocalypse without needing to kill dragons. However, the Ice Princess later explained that there were thousands of altars, each hidden and scattered, making it nearly impossible to stop them all that way. She emphasized that Adaruis was delusional, even about her, and if he truly wanted her support, both he and Princess Altair needed to prove their worth. According to her, this was the perfect opportunity, as Altair planned to eliminate Artalis. If Adaruis proved useful in that effort, she wouldn't mind joining him as a teammate. Following this, Adaruis traveled to Lindel, where Princess Altair welcomed him as her fellow's disciple. Over the next year, he cleared various dungeons and gathered loot to prepare for the upcoming raid. During this time, he avoided visiting the Blue Dragon, knowing her sensitive nature could make any encounter dangerous if not approached carefully. He believed accompanying the party was a safer strategy and pretended to support Altair's raid, hoping this would eventually convince the Blue Dragon, and perhaps even the princess, to align with his plan. Later, Princess Altair announced that they received additional investment for the Blue Dragon raid, crediting Adaruis for the increase in volunteers. Although he downplayed his role as simply clearing dungeons, she insisted he deserved the recognition. As preparations continued, a mercenary named Ralph arrived, introducing himself as someone assigned to assist Adaruis as a penalty for losing a duel. Soon after, Fade also joined the group, sent by Duke Giornetti, and immediately asked about payment. Adaruis felt everything was progressing smoothly. When the time came, he opened the dungeon gate, marked the beginning of the raid, and instructed the vanguard to head toward the Lake of Life. As the Blue Dragon was defeated, Golem cheered, celebrating their success. Adaruis hid his sorrow and acted pleased, knowing he needed to maintain appearances. He then declared that he would consume the dragon heart as promised, and Princess Altair gave her approval. Adaruis quietly accepted the moment, determined to earn everyone's trust and rise in influence until he surpassed the princess and took control of the party himself. Fade insisted on relying on his own strength. Although Adaruis preferred to fight alone, he understood he couldn't keep an eye on Fade during the battle. Instead, he focused on getting close enough to heal the Blue Dragon. He used the demonic sword of sacrifice for this purpose, and upon seeing the dragon, he quickly realized that reality was far more complex than he imagined. Still, he felt grateful for the healing items he collected. As he attacked, the dragon briefly regained full consciousness and recalled the divine blade, Requiem. The dragon remembered that its true power awakened only through someone who possessed a dragon heart. To the dragon, the blade represented both a tombstone and a funeral march. While thinking of the White Queen, the dragon acknowledged that she no longer needed to follow her commands. However, she couldn't pass her power to someone she deemed unworthy. She challenged Adaruis, who narrowly avoided the initial strike. Adaruis failed to persuade the dragon, and found himself unable to retreat, forcing him to fight. When Dariel charged in, Adaruis saw no alternative and struck at the dragon's horns, apologizing repeatedly as he stabbed. In that moment, he began to wonder if this experience was revealing a hidden talent within him. He reflected on his own limitations and his failure to protect those he wished to save. Realizing he needed to become stronger, he decided that he must take control of the raiding party. If he didn't, he feared they might end up killing Morenia next. For now, he continued to play along, hiding his intentions. Thinking it over, Adaruis felt relieved that claiming the Blue Dragon was part of his contract. He couldn't bear the thought of someone else taking it. Before making any decisions about it, however, he planned to meet Morenia first. But his anticipation was abruptly shattered when Black Moon burst out from the dragon's stomach and exploded upon contact with its heart. Just like that, the raid became Adaruis' worst yet. He lost both the Blue Dragon and its heart. Furious, he blamed Fade for dragging him away in an attempt to protect him, convinced he could have stopped everything if he stayed. But Fade disagreed. He argued that even if Adaruis claimed the heart, the poison mixed with it would have caused serious harm. Given the risk, Fade insisted that retreating was the safest option, not just for Adaruis, who survived thanks to his armor, but for everyone else around him who could have been exposed to the toxin. With that, Fade announced the end of his contract and his intention to leave. He warned the group not to invite him again, especially if Adaruis was still part of the team. He also advised the princess against granting Adaruis any authority. Though confused by the warning, the princess started keeping a closer watch on Adaruis. But sometime later, something happened that made her set those doubts aside. The Ice Dragon herself arrived to support Adaruis, recognizing that he proved his worth. To aid him, she froze the entire Elfin and Danakil farmlands. This action crippled Danakil's resources, but by freezing the river, she prevented the poison from spreading across the continent. Following this, the Ice Dragon officially joined Altair's party. Edaruis, now carrying the title of Dragon Knight, began fighting alongside her on the battlefield. However, this marked the beginning of the party's descent in the wrong direction. According to Edaruis, removing the summoning altars became the party's top priority, and all efforts were directed toward it. During the battle with the Black Dragon, Phillips, the leader of the merchantry, was lost, and Fade departed soon after due to ongoing conflict with Edaruis. Tension also rose between Dariel and Kiara following the Ice Dragon's inclusion in the group. They both understood that eventually the Ice Dragon must be killed, but Edaruis disagreed, which caused further division. Many members began siding with Edaruis, who consistently helped others without expecting anything in return. In contrast, Dariel, who lacked a charismatic presence, struggled to earn similar support. Edaruis claimed he only wanted to gain people's trust, but this shift ultimately led to the elves leaving the party. What remained of the group started to resemble a close-knit circle, bound more by personal admiration for Edaruis than by shared goals. Altair grew increasingly uneasy, suspecting that her master once ordered the Ice Dragon's death for a specific reason. Meanwhile, the internal division Edaruis unintentionally created became the opening Zephyr used to join the party. Upon arrival, Fade immediately recognized Zephyr from the Third Parish and quickly pinned him down, surprised to find that the boy learned combat skills. He wondered who might have trained him. The scene then shifted to an earlier time, when Zephyr once wielded the Dragon Heart and formed a bond with Fade. Because of these events, and Zephyr's growing influence, Altair found herself drawn to him. She realized that building strong allies like Zephyr was essential if she hoped to challenge Edaruis and prove that he might be leading the party in the wrong direction. To move forward with her plan, Altair persuaded Zephyr to work with her. Our boy, standing on business, reminded her to clarify the terms of their agreement beforehand, as a previous party member stole their kill. He demanded the spoils back, claiming that the Demon Lord worshipper's corpse and belongings rightfully belonged to him. Their first meeting involved some tension, especially as Fade and Zephyr struggled with the limitations of working as a team of just two. Despite these initial difficulties, they agreed to collaborate due to their shared goals. However, Edaruis was displeased, both by the return of Dariel and Fade, and by the presence of the person who once took the Dragon Heart. In the past, Edaruis shared this concern with the Ice Dragon, who, upon hearing it, grew furious. She trapped Zephyr in ice and interrogated him. The knights witnessing the scene felt reassured, seeing that the dragon was on their side. Edaruis, meanwhile, used Zephyr's presence to subtly influence public opinion in his favor. Back in the present, Zephyr observes the boy during training and quickly realizes that, while naive, he is instinctively cunning and driven by a thirst for fame. The boy, aware of his limitations, pushes himself hard, hoping for just one chance to gain freedom and influence during the upcoming raid. Meanwhile, Edarui, while running through preparations, remains frustrated by Zephyr's use of the Silver Lion's control over him. Still, he knows that Zephyr will likely lift the training restrictions once the dragon raid begins, as his full power will be needed. Edaruis remains firm in his belief that he alone should have the right to decide whether his master, the White Dragon Familiar, lives or dies. During the pre-raid briefing, Altair assigns all party members to specific teams. The auction team is tasked with purchasing equipment, while the farming team, which includes Edaruis and the priests, is assigned to gather loot from monsters. Upon hearing this, Ned realizes he must keep a close eye on Edaruis during the mission. Lastly, the scout team consists of Fade, Dariel, and Dariel's sister, who are tasked with locating more members. This team division reminds Zephyr of his earlier days. However, Ophelia quietly raises a concern to Lucius about whether it's safe to leave the parish, especially with his father's arrival imminent. According to the Holy One, there's a chance he might be late, so finding him directly would be faster. Lucius also mentions both his firstborn and second sibling, which surprises Ned. Meanwhile, Altair is preoccupied with another important task awaiting them in the capital. She recalls the Elf Queen asking her to deliver greetings to a human scholar named Vitel, who had visited the Elfin Forest 61 years ago. Altair had been shocked to learn that not only was Vitel still alive, but he also served as the current dean of the academy, where she herself once studied under him. The Elf Queen entrusted her with a letter to deliver to him, noting his considerable influence among the nobles and the possibility that he might assist with the upcoming raid. Still, Altair hesitates, remembering her poor attendance at the academy and how it had left a negative impression on the dean. To make a better impression, she decides to bring Lucius along, knowing he holds top academic standing and might help smooth things over. At the same time, Fade and Kiara discuss what supplies they'll need for the scouting mission, but Fade believes running will be the fastest option. Meanwhile, Zephyr, despite running low on time, has another urgent task. He must fulfill the Goddess of Light's quest to protect an unknown target for 10 months. He knows both the rewards and the punishments are significant, but the identity of the target remains a mystery. According to the prophecy, the Sword of Light is meant to guide him. As he prepares to resume his other responsibilities, his sword suddenly begins to glow. A beam of light shoots into the sky, and Zephyr instantly senses that it's pointing toward the target, who now seems to be rapidly approaching. Moments later, two figures riding dragons descend from the clouds. One is Lucius's father, the Duke, and the other is none other than Vitel, the Academy Dean. As the dragon lands, Phillips, the leader of the merchantry, is revealed to be with them. Zephyr immediately recognizes him and recalls leaving him in the elfin forest for his safety. Altair, upon seeing Phillips, feels slightly relieved, and Phillips appears just as glad, having heard that the group managed to capture the smiling woman, the very reason he had gone into hiding. Phillips quickly explains the situation. Knowing the group's deteriorating condition, he brought Lucius's father, the Duke, along with Professor Vitel. When Ned sees the Duke for the first time, memories resurface. He remembers how the Duke had played a key role in shaping the world's current state. The Duke had benefited greatly from the economic collapse caused by the bubble break, and his aggressive investment strategies had only worsened the damage. Ned indirectly blames that event for his own family's downfall, and as a result, finds no reason to hold a favorable opinion of the man. Even from a purely logical standpoint, the Duke appears to be the worst kind of person, self-serving, short-sighted, and entirely focused on his own family's gain. That's why Ned finds it hard to believe that someone with such a reputation for greed would willingly join the human resistance. Altair, on the other hand, is excited by the Duke's arrival. She had intended to approach him for help, and now he has arrived of his own accord. According to the events of Zephyr's past life, the Duke had eventually offered his support, though only after Lucius was brainwashed by Olden and his own grandchild, along with valuable merchandise, was taken hostage. In that timeline, the Duke had severely underestimated Olden's capabilities. He allowed Matthias to remain close to Lucius, and even reassigned Olden to the Third Parish, unaware of Olden's true intentions. After completing his mission, Olden received a powerful item from the cult leader, recruited the Master of the East as his subordinate, and rapidly strengthened his forces to the point where even the Duke was unable to intervene. In the present, Altair knows that Zephyr has successfully disrupted Olden's plan, but she also understands the drawback. Because the Duke never witnessed Olden's actions or the consequences, he has no reason to be grateful for being saved. When they meet, the Duke immediately expresses his disappointment to Phillips, noting that Zephyr, whom some call noble, appears like an ordinary person. Phillips steps in to defend Zephyr, calmly stating that he has real combat experience, having fought on the front lines during the Dragon Raid. He adds that he, together with Ned, defeated the Dungeon Princess on their own. This revelation surprises the Duke, who seeks confirmation that the two truly acted alone. Phillips confirms it and mentions that they also witnessed what transpired inside the dungeon. The Duke shows interest in learning more but refrains from asking further, aware that revealing too much might expose his real motives. Instead, he shifts the conversation, making it clear that he will not offer any financial support. On the contrary, he states that if they want access to his knowledge and connections, they will have to pay him. Lucius, taken aback, urges his father not to speak that way, reminding him that Zephyr saved his life and is the only one capable of helping with the Dragon Raid. However, the Duke quickly silences him, further fueling Lucius's frustration. He mocks his son, telling him to focus on repaying his own debts. As for the Ice Dragon Raid, the Duke notes that the Guild Union is already on standby and prepared to act at any time, implying that he has other options. As the Duke prepares to add more conditions, Zephyr steps forward and firmly interrupts him. He states that whatever offer the Duke intends to make, he can provide a better one. With that, he summons the light sword and swears an oath, declaring that he has been sent by the Goddess of Light. He reveals that she has instructed him to protect the Duke. Then, using light chains, he restrains the Duke, ordering him to stop the theatrics and remain still. With that, the Duke silently joins their cause, Big Cap, and the groups proceed with their assigned duties. The farming team sets out toward the desert lands, where they meet Harvey of the Galliano Guild, who has been ordered to join the princess's raid. The auction team, led by Phillips, heads toward the capital, while the scout team also departs on their mission. Kiara feels anxious that Zephyr is not with their group, but Dariel reassures her that everything will be fine. Still, she remains uneasy, especially knowing that Vitel, the man rumored to be her biological father, is also among them. She wants to say something to him, but seeing him as an old man now, she no longer feels the need to bring it up. After some travel, the scout team arrives at the blazing forest. Meanwhile, Zephyr and the Duke are making their way up Mount Scylla, located at the center of the continent. As they hike, the Duke grows curious, wondering why the two of them have chosen such a remote location. According to Zephyr, they need to reach the destination no matter what. However, deep down, he knows part of the reason is personal. He wants to understand the Duke better, and it's easier to do that when they're alone. In his past life, when they had used the Dungeon Princess's tomb as shelter, the Duke had been genuinely excited, claiming that his dream was finally coming true. Zephyr had been with him then, listening as the Duke admitted he had spent millions of gold, countless years, and even lost his own son, all just to see what the dungeon boss room looked like. He wasn't interested in the dragon heart, but in something far more important, though at the time, Zephyr had thought it was pointless to ask further. Despite his power and Zephyr's past life, the Duke remained secretive, and no one ever truly knew what his goals were. Now, in the present, Zephyr recalls the Duke's expression when they mentioned the Dungeon Princess's tomb. It seems he hasn't given up on his original wish related to it. Zephyr wants to help him achieve that goal, but he also knows that if the Duke does anything reckless, he may be forced to stop him.